At the outset, I found myself as the furnace for the elder sister of the Huan sect, teetering on the brink of death. Seeking counsel online, I mused that perhaps it would be best to embrace my demise. Yet, with 99 lives at my disposal, each time I perished, I could select one realm, technique, or magical artifact to retain permanently. Should I excel, I might even acquire unique talents. Before the Huan sect, tumultuous clouds roiled, obscuring the sun. With a thunderous roar, dozens of majestic vessels descended slowly before the protective array of the sect. As the flying boats lowered their gangplanks, they crashed to the ground. What are you waiting for? We've arrived, disembark at once. A commanding voice rang out, causing countless youths to erupt from the vessel like startled birds. I, Qin Chen, stood bewildered, swept away by the throng. What is this? I merely took a brief nap while idling at work, and now I find myself here? As I moved with the crowd, a sudden influx of unfamiliar memories surged into my mind. Moments later, I gasped, cooling my overheated body amidst the throng. The situation was rather dire. I hadn't even boarded a celestial ship, yet I had somehow transcended to another realm. According to the memories of my original self, I now stood upon the continent known as the Divine Martial Continent, entirely unrelated to Earth. Here, civilization seemed to have evolved an entirely different skill set, immortal cultivation. On the Divine Martial Continent, every individual is born with innate spiritual roots. However, those capable of cultivation are exceedingly rare. The vast majority possess spiritual roots unsuitable for cultivation, destined to live as ordinary folk. To foster growth, various sects regularly scour their territories for promising candidates suited for cultivation, bringing them back to their sanctuaries for training. I, Qin Chen, had passed the spiritual root examination and was thus brought to the sect. As I lifted my gaze, the grand mountain gate loomed before me. Towering over 100 feet, it was forged from dark stone, bearing the marks of time's passage. Merely gazing upon it instilled a suffocating sense of awe. At the pinnacle of the gate, 3 resplendent characters glimmered. Huan sect. Goodness gracious! I exclaimed, utterly astonished. Is it truly this exhilarating? What joy, what harmony! I can hardly contain my eagerness to join the ranks of the sect and display my prowess. After all, I have longed for a venue to showcase my talents. As I pondered, a sudden bellow pierced the air. Hurry up, all of you. Board the no flying vessel. Without needing to move, I was swept along by the crowd into the mountain gate and aboard a small flying vessel. This craft could accommodate roughly 20 individuals, and once filled, a robust man at the bow slowly guided it aloft. Simultaneously, countless small vessels took to the winds like dandelions, each heading toward its destination. On board, gazing at the undulating sea of clouds below, I could not resist the urge to let out a powerful cry to the heavens. Without the old man, without the supreme bone, without the ruler, what does it matter? I need none of it. My specialty is my specialty. Huan sect, tremble in fear. Brace yourselves to welcome your deity. Thud. The flying vessel has landed. Sister Liu, these are the furnace cauldrons sent this year. Please inspect them. As soon as it touched down, the man controlling the vessel leapt off and swiftly approached a female cultivator, bowing deeply with utmost reverence. With a mere glance, Qin Chen's attention was instantly captivated. Indeed, as expected of the female cultivators of Huan sect, she donned a flowing gown of pale purple, complemented by a delicate pink silk corset beneath, her lustrous black hair elegantly pinned up with a light blue jade hairpin, embodying the essence of a regal lady. However, her enchanting peach blossom eyes, the beauty mark beneath her right eye, and the striking high slit revealing her thigh as she gracefully moved, exuded an entirely different allure. It is hard to fathom how such contrasting qualities of icy pride and captivating charm coalesce so harmoniously within one individual. One must concede, the products of Huan sect are undoubtedly exquisite. Thank you for your hard work, junior brother, Liu Hanbing spoke calmly, her voice as clear and resonant as pearls falling onto a jade plate. Wait. Qin Chen's eyes widened in shock. He had inadvertently activated his targeting, too engrossed in admiring her legs to realize he almost overlooked a crucial detail. What is this? Furnace cauldron. Am I not the chosen one? When did I become a furnace cauldron? After absorbing this batch of furnace cauldrons, will sister also successfully form her core and enter the inner sect? Congratulations are in order in advance. The burly man clasped his hands again. The Huan sect is divided into inner and outer sects. Their status is as disparate as heaven and earth. Only those in the core formation stage qualify for the inner sect. Indeed, Liu Hanbing nodded. However, this matter is of great significance. These furnace cauldrons are resources of the sect. If I were to privately seize them for my cultivation, it would undoubtedly cause considerable trouble if word got out. The burly man swallowed nervously, hastily swearing an oath to the heavens. Sister, I am merely a hired hand. If you are not at ease, I can swear on my Tao heart. Before he could finish, A sudden chill pierced through his chest. He looked down to see the jade hairpin Liu Hanbing had used to style her hair had inexplicably pierced through his torso, leaving a gruesome, gaping wound. Junior brother. It is not that I distrust you. It is merely that only the dead can keep secrets. Oh wait, in our Hawan sect. There are at least 3 methods to make the dead speak, so I must apologize. As her words fell, Liu Hanbing lightly waved her jade arm, and an eerie black mist erupted from her sleeve, enveloping the burly man's body. Wretched scoundrel, you shall not die a good death. The burly man howled in despair. The black mist churned violently, and in mere moments, his lifeless body was reduced to a handful of ashes. A chilling wind swept through, scattering the remnants away without leaving a trace. Liu Hanbing gracefully withdrew her jade hairpin, casually reinserting it into her flowing locks. Simultaneously, a strange black mist, tinged with a hint of crimson, slithered back into the sleeve of her robe. The 20 furnace vessels aboard the flying boat gazed at this scene in sheer astonishment. Particularly Qin Chen, who was utterly shaken. Could this truly be the realm of demonic sects? To kill one's own kind without hesitation? Was there still any sense of justice, any semblance of law? Run. Someone had barely uttered half a word when Liu Hanbing cast a disdainful glance with her enchanting peach blossom eyes, now glimmering with a chilling intent to kill. Ants. Liu Hanbing scoffed coldly. Immediately, the eerie black mist surged forth once more, enveloping the flying boat and drawing it into the depths of the mountain. Within the mountain's core, Liu Hanbing had already set up a soundproof barrier and a formation to obstruct spiritual power detection. Having exhausted all her savings to break through to the core formation stage, she was now gambling everything on the clandestine capture of the sect's furnace vessels. If she could utilize these 20 furnace vessels to achieve her breakthrough, she would meet the demands of that influential figure, potentially gaining entry into the inner sanctum and even becoming a direct disciple of an elder. As she contemplated this, a trace of a smile finally graced Liu Hanbing's haughty visage. She cast the 20 furnace vessels into the blood sacrifice formation and then seated herself at the formation center. In the next instant, the grand formation roared to life. Qin Chen, witnessing the blood-tinged radiance of the formation, was engulfed in despair. This scene inevitably reminded him of a famous opening line. Chapter 1, The Fallen Genius. However, the unfolding of his current narrative felt utterly wrong. Was he destined to perish right after crossing over? At that moment, his vision blurred. When he opened his eyes again, he found a semi-transparent screen before him. Name: Qin Chen. Age: 18. Realm: none. Cultivation technique: none. Magic artifact: none. Special talent: none. Gazing at the screen, Qin Chen was on the verge of tears from joy. Oh, dear system, was it merely my voice that was too loud before? Qin Chen slid to his knees. He had intended to achieve greatness through hard work. Yet the heavens had denied him that opportunity. Now, with the system in hand, it had unleashed a mode of rampant slaughter. System, eliminate that woman first and assess her strength. Qin Chen shouted internally. Seconds passed without a response. System, act. The formation is about to activate. Panic began to set in. More seconds ticked by, still no reaction. System, are you loaded yet? Activate. What are you doing, system? Are you deaf? Before Qin Chen's internal fury could fully manifest, the semi-transparent screen suddenly flickered to life. In the next moment, Qin Chen's personal information vanished, replaced by a delicate little tower. Binding item successfully gifted. Celestial treasure, reincarnation tower, reincarnation tower. Upon the host's demise, they will be reborn at the designated time node. After rebirth, the host may permanently retain one of the realms or treasures acquired in their previous life. The reincarnation tower consists of 99 levels. After each death, the system will conduct a performance assessment, illuminating the soul lamp at the corresponding level. The evaluation grades, from lowest to highest, are white, green, blue, red, and gold. White grade yields no rewards. Green and blue grades grant random starting item rewards, while red and gold grades bestow special talent rewards. Brother Tongzi, well, my little brother's voice was indeed a bit loud just now. With so many people around, once it's quieter, he will perform just for you. Qin Chen knelt again. 99 lives, complete with save files. Brother Tongzi had truly granted him a reincarnation cheat. If he still couldn't grasp this, it would be better to find a piece of tofu and end it all. At that moment, Liu Hanbing's gaze pierced through the blood-fiend great array, landing squarely on Qin Chen. Her expression was complex. You, take off your clothes and come here. Chapter 2. You are dead. Huh, me? Take off my clothes? Qin Chen pointed at himself, bewildered. If you say another word, I will extract your soul and refine your spirit, subjecting you to endless torment. Liu Hanbing shouted angrily. Though her figure seemed to sway slightly, Qin Chen, perplexed, decided to remain steadfast. How absurd. He wasn't a performer to be commanded so easily. Besides, with the reincarnation tower, What did it matter if he died in this life? The pressing concern was to contemplate how to navigate the next life. Seeing Qin Chen remain unmoved, a glint of menace flashed in Liu Hanbing's eyes. Seeking death. With a flicker of her thoughts, the ominous black mist surged once more, engulfing Qin Chen and pulling him out of the blood fiend great array. Qin Chen's vision darkened, and before he could comprehend the situation, he found himself falling before Liu Hanbing. Astonishment surged within him. This woman not only possessed extraordinary beauty, but also wielded unfathomable power. Merely standing before her sent chills racing through him. In the next moment, Qin Chen was struck by a sudden realization. What the hell? Where are my clothes? What did that black mist do to me? Not a single piece remained. Liu Hanbing gazed at the man before her, a faint blush rising on her cheeks, her eyes betraying a hint of panic. Though she was a disciple of the Harmony Sect, she had never encountered such a situation. Within the Harmony Sect, external disciples had only two methods of cultivation. One was through rigorous practice, absorbing the essence of heaven and earth. The other was to spend considerable sums to purchase finished cauldrons from the Yin-Yang Hall to absorb their internal spiritual energy. Only upon entering the inner sect could one be qualified to practice the dual cultivation method. Not only that, but the inner disciples also possessed the privilege of cultivating their own furnace dings, allowing their cultivation speed to soar at an extraordinary rate. It is precisely for this reason that Liu Hanbing has decided to gamble everything, employing every possible means to break through to the Dan formation stage in her quest to enter the inner sect. Yet now, it seems she is on the verge of failure. Liu Hanbing's gaze fell upon the blood fiend formation. Aside from Qin Chen, the bloodline power of the other 19 furnace dings within the formation had all been siphoned away, flowing into her own body. However, this was still far from sufficient. Those incompetent fools from the Yin-Yang Hall, how could the quality of the furnace dings be so abysmal this time? Liu Hanbing gritted her teeth in resentment. The Yin-Yang Hall is the institution within the Huan sect that specializes in managing furnace dings. The newcomers entering the sect today were, in fact, all furnace dings sourced by the Yin-Yang Hall for the sect. Liu Hanbing could hardly believe that out of 20 furnace dings, they were all nothing more than worthless dregs. She was still a great distance away from her breakthrough. And now, with no choice but to act, she shifted her gaze back to Qin Chen. Among the 20, only Qin Chen's cultivation aptitude was marginally acceptable, managing to survive in the blood fiend formation thus far. It appears that she has no choice but to resort to that method. Liu Hanbing lightly bit her luscious red lips, as if she had made a resolute decision, murmuring to herself that this matter was known only to heaven and earth, and no third party would ever know. After all, he was merely a furnace ding, a means to her cultivation. Qin Chen's eyes widened in alarm. No, this was utterly wrong. The woman's gaze had transformed. Was he about to be forced into a situation he could not escape? After the ordeal, Liu Hanbing slowly rose, draping her silk palace gown over herself. A powerful surge of spiritual energy emanated from her. The Dan formation stage. So this is the strength of the Dan formation stage. Though a hint of blush adorned Liu Hanbing's cheeks, it could not mask her exhilaration. Her immense sacrifice had not been in vain. By employing the dual cultivation method to absorb Qin Chen's life force, she had finally broken through to the Dan formation stage. At that moment, Liu Hanbing's peripheral vision caught sight of Qin Chen, who was now barely clinging to life, sprawled on the ground like a lifeless dog. Recalling the earlier scene, her cheeks flushed again with embarrassment. She couldn't help but regret not having sealed Qin Chen's foul mouth beforehand. This was her first time utilizing the dual cultivation technique inherited from the inner sect. During the process, she had refrained from speaking, focusing entirely on the operation of the technique, fearing any misstep. Yet, this had inadvertently granted that scoundrel an opportunity. Though he had been drained of considerable bloodline power by the blood fiend array and, moments ago, forcibly harvested by Liu Hanbing. At this moment, as his lifespan drew to a close, this kick nearly severed his last glimmer of hope. Nevertheless, Qin Chen summoned every ounce of strength to force a triumphant smile onto his face, his voice hoarse, yet laced with derision. Upon hearing this, Liu Hanbing's peach blossom eyes erupted with boundless killing intent. How dare a wretched furnace cauldron mock her? Seeking death. Just as Liu Hanbing was about to obliterate Qin Chen entirely, she suddenly sensed something, and her expression changed dramatically. The formation she had used to conceal her presence and sever spiritual fluctuations had, astonishingly, been breached. Who could it be? Liu Hanbing barked, turning swiftly, her demeanor taut. Indeed, how remarkable that one could form a core so swiftly. The old man truly had not misjudged. A voice of relief echoed. Before Qin Chen and Liu Hanbing could react, an elderly man in gray robes materialized before them. With hands clasped behind his back, his hair and beard were white, and his face was etched with wrinkles reminiscent of ancient tree rings. Though he exuded an imposing aura, a gentle smile lingered on his visage. Upon seeing him, Liu Hanbing's expression shifted several times before she released Qin Chen, bowing respectfully to greet him. Greetings, Elder Sunday. Thanks to your provision of the Blood Fiend Array and the dual cultivation method, I was fortunate enough to form a core. I am uncertain about the matter of apprenticeship. Apprenticeship? Do you think you are worthy? Elder Sun's words struck like a bolt from the blue, causing Liu Hanbing's countenance to pale. I intend to concoct a batch of elixirs, and am in need of the essence blood of a core-forming cultivator as a catalyst, which is why I chose you. Do you truly believe that a dignified inner sect elder would lack disciples? Ridiculous. Elder Sun chuckled. Stroking his beard, to privately detain a furnace cauldron from the Yin Palace for cultivation, you possess quite the audacity. I shall personally intervene to tidy up the aftermath and erase the traces. However, considering your timely core formation, I shall deem it an atonement. Upon hearing this, Liu Hanbing's delicate face grew fierce. Elder Sun, I have already formed my core. If I self-destruct, it could create quite a commotion. If the law enforcement hall is alerted, even you, a revered inner sect elder, may face consequences. As if he had heard something amusing, Elder Sun burst into guffaws, disregarding all decorum. Threatening me? You are still far too inexperienced. With a hearty laugh, Elder Sun summoned a surge of spiritual power. In the next instant, Liu Hanbing suddenly collapsed to her knees as though her very sinews had been drawn from her body. Alarmed and furious, she stammered, "What have you done to me?" Elder Sun smirked with amusement, observing that a mere outer sect disciple could not discern the modifications I had made within the technique. He stepped forward, grasping Liu Hanbing by the neck and lifting her, his gaze akin to that of an art connoisseur, utterly satisfied. Splendid, splendid. Elder Sun laughed with pride. Her essence blood could be utilized for alchemy. Her cultivation could serve my purposes, and the remnants of her soul, flesh, and bones could be repurposed for crafting. She was a veritable treasure, truly not in vain for the efforts I have expended. As the words fell, Elder Sun's index finger swiftly pointed towards Liu Hanbing's divine cord acupoint. Liu Hanbing let out a cry of anguish. Her beautiful eyes widened in horror and dread. Feeling the pure spiritual energy flowing into her body, Elder Sun was in high spirits and mockingly remarked, "The dual cultivation method I provided you is incomplete. While it can normally harmonize yin and yang, if I were to seal your divine cord acupoint, the effects would be immediately reversed. I shall gladly accept your pure spiritual energy." As his words lingered, sensing the presence of a watcher, Elder Sun scoffed and unleashed a wave of spiritual energy, reducing Qin Chen to a mist of blood. In the boundless darkness, a series of large characters appeared in Qin Chen's mind. Elder Sun's casual strike has turned you into blood mist. You are dead. Commencing evaluation of your previous life as performance. Since ancient times, defying fate has never been achievable by ordinary individuals. Faced with a life and death crisis, you were powerless to resist, ultimately meeting a tragic end. However, you displayed extraordinary talent in certain matters, withstanding a foundational cultivator in your mortal form. A lamentable irony. Performance evaluation, red. The soul lamp on the first floor of the reincarnation tower lights up. Lamp color, red. You have awakened a special talent, 7 times in one night. 7 times in one night. The answer lies within the riddle itself. As the name implies, some of your talents have been greatly enhanced, allowing you to showcase your prowess even against cultivators of significantly higher realms. Due to the absence of any cultivation methods or treasures in your previous life, you will directly transition to your next life. Boom. Qin Chen opened his eyes. Before him lay the blood-soaked killing formation, reactivated once more. Chapter 3. The Shift of Offense and Defense. Qin Chen was bewildered. He had been contemplating how to procure a new flying vessel in his new life to avoid another encounter with Liu Hanbing. However, to his astonishment, upon opening his eyes, he found himself already within the killing formation. After a moment of reflection, he understood. When the system was activated, there had been a notification. The binding of the reincarnation tower served as the resurrection point. At the time of binding, he was indeed within the killing formation. Did this imply that every resurrection would lead him back here immediately? At that moment, a translucent interface materialized before Qin Chen. Name: Qin Chen. Age: 18. Realm: none. Cultivation method: none. Treasure: none. Special talent: 7 times in one night. Gazing at the solitary talent displayed on the panel, Qin Chen was at a loss, unsure whether to laugh or cry. This talent had no opportunity to manifest. Just as he pondered, a cold yet conflicted voice echoed. "You. Come here." Liu Hanbing's gaze fixated on Qin Chen, her tone laden with complexity. "Wait. Qin Chen barely began to explain when the dark mist swept him away from the killing formation. Why are you?" Moments later, Liu Hanbing's voice, filled with astonishment and fury, resonated within the mountain's depths. Her eyes, resembling the delicate blossoms of a peach tree, were filled with astonishment. The bloodline power of those furnace vessels was insufficient to break through to the core formation stage. Consequently, she had resorted to desperate measures, seeking to forcibly advance by employing the technique bestowed by Elder Sunday. Yet now, Qin Chen appeared completely unfazed. This was abnormal, too strange. Meanwhile, Qin Chen had come to a realization. In his previous life, despite his extraordinary talent, he had met an untimely demise shortly thereafter. The fact that he was still alive this time was undoubtedly due to that very talent. To his surprise, this seemingly frivolous gift enabled him to withstand such a malevolent technique. Indeed, the progenitor possessed remarkable abilities. Observing the arrogant Qin Chen, Liu Hanbing bit her crimson lip, her gaze flickering with intensity. Then, as if resolved to a decision, she approached Qin Chen. I refuse to believe that you can withstand the dual cultivation technique of the inner sect of the Huan sect with your mortal body, Liu Hanbing declared fiercely. In her quest to break through to the core formation stage, she had exhausted her family's wealth. The clandestine detention of the Yinyang Palace's furnace vessel was a capital offense. If she could not achieve a breakthrough today, all her efforts would be in vain. At that moment, an epiphany struck Qin Chen. If his memory served him correctly, Liu Hanbing's cultivation method had a loophole. In his previous life, Elder Sun had exploited this flaw to subdue Liu Hanbing in an instant. How could he have forgotten such a crucial detail? Surely, it must have been the distraction caused by Liu Shiji's long legs. How infuriating. With that thought, Qin Chen quickly pointed towards Liu Hanbing's Shenting acupoint. Liu Hanbing suddenly felt a chill on her forehead. In the next instant, the tumult within her dantian filled her with terror. What have you done to me? Her eyes sparkled with an endless murderous intent. She felt her dantian spiraling out of control, her spiritual energy dissipating uncontrollably. Liu Shiji, what can I possibly do? Qin Chen feigned innocence, yet within him, several strands of pure spiritual energy began to accumulate. Scoundrel! Liu Hanbing, both alarmed and furious, attempted to raise her hand to strike down Qin Chen. At that moment, she could no longer afford to consider breaking through to the core formation stage. If her spiritual energy continued to leak, she would not even be able to maintain her current level. But just as her delicate hand was lifted, she collapsed, utterly powerless. Qin Chen was taken aback, then a subtle smile graced his lips. Having exerted herself, Liu Hanbing tilted her head back, her eyes a tumult of murderous intent and fear. What exactly have you done to me? In mere moments, her cultivation level had plummeted by an entire minor realm, from the peak of foundation establishment to the late stage. Meanwhile, this seemingly powerless furnace vessel before her had ascended directly from an ordinary mortal to the third layer of qi refinement. Liu Shiji, I am but a mere mortal. What could I possibly do to you? Qin Chen chuckled, reveling in the transformation of his body. However, he mused that it would be splendid if he could master that dual cultivation technique. In his past life, Elder Sun had absorbed Liu Hanbing's cultivation without wasting a single bit. However, he was devoid of any martial arts skills, leading to the dissipation of most of his spiritual energy during the process, which was rather wasteful. Nevertheless, surviving was a victory for Qin Chen. Yet, upon sensing Qin Chen's malicious gaze, Liu Hanbing revealed a cold smile, wondering if he thought he could silence her. As a disciple of the demonic path, she understood Qin Chen's intentions with a mere glance. Oh, junior brother, do you jest? Am I truly so heartless? Qin Chen responded with an innocuous smile. Yet, beneath his calm facade, he was in turmoil. If Liu Hanbing were to recover, her first action would undoubtedly be to seek revenge on him. He had intended to eliminate her, but his strength was insufficient. She was on the verge of forming a core, while he was unarmed and lacked any martial arts knowledge. To silence her? Such aspirations were nothing but delusions. It would be prudent to confess what sinister means he had employed to usurp her cultivation before she regained her strength. Otherwise, she would ensure his suffering was profound. Liu Hanbing threatened him coldly. Although her words conveyed bravado, her heart was already brimming with murderous intent. The loss of her cultivation was secondary. If she let Qin Chen go, and the matter of her illicit possession of the Yinyang Hall's cauldron came to light, the enforcement hall would not spare her. Sister, truly, you are heartless. Only moments ago you were so tender, and now you wish for my life? Who was being tender? How dare you? Liu Hanbing spat, only to find Qin Chen advancing towards her. What do you intend to do? Liu Hanbing exclaimed, a mix of fury and fear surging within her. Was this scoundrel aware that his time was short and sought to act before his demise? Just as this thought crossed her mind, a sudden chill enveloped her, prompting her to instinctively open her eyes once more. Chapter 4, Sister. This is our token of affection. The first thing that caught Liu Hanbing's eye was a light pink bellyband woven from silkworm silk. It bore intricate cloud patterns embroidered upon it, with silver filigree along the edges, adorned with tiny pearls, exquisitely crafted. It was unmistakably her personal belonging. Liu Hanbing hurriedly covered her chest, her beautiful peach blossom eyes ablaze with murderous intent. What do you want from me? Do you believe I won't kill you right now? Liu Hanbing clenched her teeth, her voice laced with anger. Sister Liu, today I am deeply grateful for junior brother. I perceive that you possess an extraordinary demeanor and remarkable talent. Undoubtedly, you shall achieve great things in the future. Since you have claimed my first crimson victory, why not consider us as companions on the path of enlightenment, seeking the great Tao together? Liu Hanbing spoke softly, striving to infuse her tone with a gentle warmth. Regrettably, Qin Chen remained entirely unmoved. Zhang Wuji's mother once opined that the more beautiful a woman is, the more likely she is to deceive. If he were to believe in Liu's words, he would likely end up like the junior brother who had accompanied them, reduced to mere remnants. Liu's proposal was intriguing. Once he firmly established himself within the sect, he would revisit the notion of rekindling their connection. With that thought, Qin Chen turned on his heel and departed. Not casting a glance back, Liu Hanbing, possessing considerable strength, surely intended to prolong his presence under the guise of companionship. Once she regained her power, escape would be impossible. Watching Qin Chen leave, Liu Hanbing clenched her delicate fists, an icy aura of murderous intent emanating from her being. All her efforts today had merely served to adorn that scoundrel. Not only had she lost her purity, but she had also plummeted an entire minor realm. As she felt her spiritual energy gradually recovering, she contemplated pursuing him, but upon taking a few steps, she recalled the blood slaughter formation. The Yingyang Palace would undoubtedly investigate the missing furnace. She must eliminate all traces swiftly, lest dire consequences ensue. Let you live a few more days. As long as you remain within the Huan sect, there will come a day when I shall unearth you. Liu Hanbing whispered through gritted teeth. Meanwhile, Qin Chen exited the cave, initially intending to descend the mountain directly, when a glimmer from the grass caught his attention. Approaching, he bent down to retrieve a token. This circular token, entirely jet black and as smooth as jade, was adorned with petal-like and leaf-like embellishments, its material unknown. The front bore the powerful characters Yingyang Palace, while the back inscribed the name of the outer disciple, Peng Tong. Judging by the token's location, it likely belonged to the disciple whom Liu Hanbing had obliterated. Unsure of its purpose, he decided to retain it for potential future use. Qin Chen tucked the token into his robe and hurriedly made his way down the mountain. Perhaps due to his newfound cultivation, he felt invigorated, swiftly traversing several peaks. It was imperative to leave the Huan sect. That woman would surely not let him escape. As he surveyed his surroundings, a sense of urgency to flee took hold. However, upon reaching the final peak, he was taken aback to find himself facing the imposing gates of the Huan sect. A melody echoed in his heart, returning him to his initial starting point. Standing dazed before the mountain gate. Hey, you there. Come over here and board the flying vessel. What are you staring at? Yes, you. A palace-clad woman pointed at Qin Chen and barked. A bitter smile crept across Qin Chen's face. Even in this life, he had yet to meet death. Yet he felt as if he were already caught in the cycle of reincarnation. As Qin Chen hurriedly boarded the flying vessel, he was engulfed in trepidation, his gaze frequently drifting toward the woman at the helm, while her long, fair legs undoubtedly contributed to his distraction. It was primarily his past experiences that instilled fear in him. Once bitten by a snake, he was now wary of even the slightest rope. He dreaded being whisked away to some unknown location to become mere fodder. After all, he was within the confines of the demon sect, where the minds of its denizens could be quite unpredictable. Fortunately, this time, the journey proved to be more thrilling than dangerous. The flying vessel ultimately glided into a sprawling mountain range. The mountains stretched for dozens of miles, dotted with pavilions and towers, while numerous cultivators soared through the air on their swords, their blades leaving trails of light. Occasionally, the flying vessel could be seen weaving through this aerial tapestry. At the summit of the range, clouds and mist swirled around the mountainside, thickening as they ascended, obscuring all vision beyond. The surroundings of the main peak were periodically illuminated by flickering waves of formation light, emanating an aura of peril that was palpable even at a glance. However, before Qin Chen could scrutinize the scene further, the vessel landed smoothly at the foot of a smaller peak, which was not only dwarfed by the main summit but also situated at a considerable distance from it. As soon as the vessel touched down, a woman clad in palace attire approached, accompanied by several cultivators. 3 breaths from now, anyone still aboard the vessel shall perish, the leading woman declared coldly. Upon hearing her words, the occupants of the vessel were momentarily stunned before hastily leaping off in a frenzy. The scene reminded Qin Chen of dumplings being tossed into boiling water. Before he could even lift his foot, he was swept along by the throng and tumbled off the vessel. 3 breaths later, The palace-clad woman turned her gaze back to the vessel. A few young individuals, who had been a tad slower in their movements, clung desperately to the edge, their expressions fraught with anxiety. With a disdainful curl of her lips, the leading woman flicked her fingers. Instantly, a chilling pressure enveloped the area. In the next moment, the remaining few aboard the vessel were silently severed in two, blood splattering as their lifeless forms crumpled to the ground. Onlookers stood frozen in shock at the technique you have just acquired is the fundamental practice of the Hahuan sect, known as the Hahuan method. The elixir you possess is the gathering chi pill, which aids in your cultivation. You have 7 days to grasp the basics of this technique. Those who succeed may join the Hahuan sect as formal outer disciples. Failure, however, leads to a grim fate, becoming a furnace for the Inyang Hall. Chapter 5, Do Not Move? My words can be quite harsh. As Su Ruoli's voice faded, the crowd erupted in uproar. The Hahuan sect had not mentioned such conditions during their recruitment. 7 days to master the path of immortality. Was this a deliberate challenge? What did it mean to become a furnace? Was this a matter of life and death? Fools! Qin Chen silently cursed, retreating a few steps to shield those around him. The corpses aboard the flying vessel had yet to grow cold. Were these people devoid of reason? The lesson from the past still lay before them. Yet they dared to complain. Indeed, upon hearing their grievances, Su Ruoli raised her delicate fingers expressionlessly and pointed into the air. In the next moment, the chests of those who had just complained erupted with gory holes, leaving them wide-eyed and lifeless in an instant. Send them to the artifact hall while they are still fresh. Their flesh and blood are in high demand lately. Remember, charge a premium, Su Ruoli stated coolly. Understood. Senior Sister. 2 disciples responded, taking the corpses into the AI. Had it not been for the reception of these newly initiated disciples, I would have already commenced my seclusion. There would have been no need to wait until now. Su Ruoli spoke with a frigid tone, stating that after 7 days, once she had dealt with this batch of disciples, she would enter closed-door meditation to strive for the golden core stage. At that time, you few must pay close attention to peak. The disciples hurriedly responded with respect. Yes, Senior Sister. Meanwhile, as Su Ruoli and her companions departed, Qin Chen stealthily entered a nearby tile-roofed house. Unsurprisingly, the interior boasted nothing more than a large communal bed and a few rudimentary pieces of furniture. Quick-witted and nimble, Qin Chen seized a position against the wall before anyone else had a chance to react. The communal bed, as the name suggests, was simply a long platform. Despite its simplicity, the choice of position bore great significance. This bed could accommodate 20 or 30 individuals, and any spot other than the wall would leave one's back exposed to strangers, an invitation to danger. Should one encounter someone with peculiar inclinations, one's lifelong purity could be irrevocably tarnished. Even if rebirth were an option, such an experience would likely leave indelible scars on a tender psyche. Thus, claiming a wall position was the wisest choice, safeguarding oneself. Indeed, after Qin Chen secured his position, others soon realized and began to scramble for space. At that moment, a few elegantly dressed women approached him. The foremost among them appeared to be in her teenage years, exuding an air of haughtiness. Qin Chen scrutinized her from head to toe. Her garments, crafted from silk and brocade, were undoubtedly exquisite treasures. The hairpin adorned with emeralds and the delicate white jade accessories at her waist further underscored her noble status. In stark contrast, he wore coarse cloth garments, representing 2 entirely different strata of society. Is there something you desire? Qin Chen inquired, his brow furrowed and tone icy. Although he considered himself somewhat handsome, he had not yet reached the level of narcissism to believe these women held any interest in him. Their approach likely meant trouble. As anticipated, no sooner had he spoken than one of the women waved her hand dismissively in front of her nose, disdain evident in her demeanor. Clear out of this space immediately. We are taking it. Qin Chen's frown deepened. He refrained from responding, instead contemplating a pressing question. If he were to leap up and slap this woman, would anyone intervene? Noting his silence, the other women chimed in. Are you deaf? Hurry up and pack your things and get lost. It is your fortune that Sister Su has her eye on your spot. Do not overstep your bounds. How unfortunate. Just the sight of such a lower-class man makes me feel nauseous, one of them remarked. I never expected joining the Hahuan sect would be so troublesome. Having to share a space with these filthy men. Humph. While the others complained, the woman addressed as Sister Su remained silent, her expression indifferent as she regarded Qin Chen, as if uttering another word would diminish her worth. Confronted by the provocations of several women, Qin Chen quietly stowed away the recently acquired Hahuan Ju and elixirs. Just as the women assumed Qin Chen would swallow his pride and concede his position, he unexpectedly made an international gesture, signaling them to leave. At this proclamation, the women were momentarily taken aback, with the leader, Su Miayun, incredulous and aghast, exclaiming, "What did you say?" One of the women, fuming, struggled to articulate her anger. Stammering, I said for you all to quickly get lost, the farther the better. If your ears are failing you, perhaps you should consult a physician. After delivering his scathing retort, Qin Chen turned to the remaining women, stating, Are you all lacking in sense? I am not your wild father. To simply yield my space to you. What audacity do you possess? If you do not leave, do you dare to believe I will strip you bare and hang you at the entrance? With so many men coming and going, I wonder if you could survive until 7 days hence. Upon hearing Qin Chen's words, the women instinctively took a step back, clutching their chests. Su Miaoyun, gritting her teeth, felt her face flush with rage, declaring, You are courting death. A woman behind Su Miaoyun pointed furiously at Qin Chen. How dare you be disrespectful to Sister Su? Do you know who she is? Qin Chen replied, Of course I know. The women were momentarily stunned, clearly bewildered by his response. Without allowing them time to process, Qin Chen continued, You are all genuine little flying bamboos. Thus, she must undoubtedly be the authentic great flying bamboo. Some individuals, when unweighed, may appear to be under 100, but once on the scales, they could tip the balance at 200. As a time traveler, Qin Chen had endured 2 decades of rigorous training on the internet in his previous life. To hone his mentality and eloquence, he had purposefully downloaded various apps and platforms, immersing himself in subjects ranging from astronomy and geography to politics and military affairs, and even delving into topics concerning appearance and income. In addressing diverse audiences, one must target different pain points. For men, one should exploit their masculine capabilities. In the past, someone had been mockingly referred to as a sewing needle, unable to vindicate themselves, likely seething in private. For women, the focus shifted to their appearance and physique. A mere mention of someone's looks could shatter the confidence of countless fair maidens. The topics may be simple, but they are undeniably effective. The women before him, to be candid, were not overweight. They simply lacked a slender figure. But what of it? Qin Chen was unapologetically unreasonable, launching his verbal assault. Leave now, or I assure you, I have far more unsavory remarks to utter. With his arms crossed and a cold smirk upon his lips, he taunted them. Chapter 6. What is a furnace? Su Miaoyun and her companions were incensed by Qi. Su Miaoyun gritted her teeth and threatened, while Qin Chen merely raised an eyebrow, his expression dripping with disdain. Oh, so you intend to turn me into a puppet? Frankly, your level of confidence resembles that of my 7th uncle's mentally challenged old dog, which, when it opens its mouth, either consumes excrement or drools incessantly. Your mere presence would undoubtedly wreak havoc on the nearby vicinity. Upon hearing Qin Chen's words, the women around him stood frozen in shock. Initially, they had followed his line of reasoning, but once he mentioned the 7th uncle's dog, they struggled to keep up. What on earth was he saying? However, one thing they were certain of was that Qin Chen's insults were rather vulgar. You, Su Miaoyun pointed at Qin Chen, ready to retort, but he interrupted her decisively. What do you mean by you? You can't even articulate your thoughts. Your intellect resembles that of a broken water jar at my 3rd aunt's home, half empty and half filled with water. I suspect your mother must have been kicked by a donkey shortly after giving birth. Otherwise, how could she have managed to raise you to this age? As soon as Qin Chen finished speaking, gasps of astonishment erupted around him. Sister Su, Miaoyun, what's wrong? Don't scare us. It appeared that Su Miaoyun had become overwhelmed and fainted from the barrage of insults. Quick, carry Sister Su outside for some fresh air. Someone shouted urgently. The women scrambled to lift Su Miaoyun, clumsily exiting the room in a flurry. Qin Chen shook his head in exasperation. Truly, she was a sheltered young lady, far too fragile for this world. He had barely exerted a fraction of his strength when she succumbed to fainting. Such a hollow victory. Yet, with the departure of those irritating women, Qin Chen finally enjoyed a moment of peace. He picked up the book titled Heavenly Harmony Technique and began to peruse its contents. Heaven and earth in harmony, yin and yang give birth. Vital energy surges towards the purple mansion, spirit merges with the vast void. To attain the great way, one must first clarify the heart, with desire entering emotion, and emotion leading to the way. After reading just a few lines, Qin Chen felt a headache coming on. Truly, the great sects were formidable. Even their entry-level techniques were profoundly esoteric. As he attempted to motivate himself, he began reciting the text. There was no choice. He simply could not comprehend this material. Thankfully, 9 years of compulsory education had taught him one crucial lesson. Repetition leads to understanding. First, he would memorize the technique, and gradually, comprehension would follow. If he couldn't grasp it in this lifetime, perhaps he could in the next. While he was immersed in reading and memorization, the others occupied their respective beds, and their chatter faintly drifted into Qin Chen's ears. That elder Su said, "If we fail to master the heavenly harmony technique, we will become a furnace." But what exactly is a furnace? I learned about it while reading plays. I heard that a furnace assists cultivators in their training through intimate means. So if one becomes a furnace, wouldn't that mean daily intimacy? I've heard that after cultivators refine their bodies with spiritual energy, it greatly benefits their physique, and not a single one is unattractive. As a few individuals engaged in discussion, an untimely cold snort echoed nearby. Truly, it was akin to a toad aspiring to dine on swan meat. Ugly in appearance, yet harboring beautiful thoughts. Upon hearing the derision, the previously conversing group turned their furious gazes towards the source of the mockery. The individual in question appeared to be no young man, perhaps in his late 20s, with a gaunt figure and a sinister expression. Rather than jostling for a spot in the crowded area, he leaned against the wall, seated in the corner. What did you say? Have the audacity to repeat it. One of them challenged. Boy, dare to insult us? Do you wish to have your bones loosened? The offended group rose in indignation, with one even flexing his well-defined biceps in a display of intimidation. Observing their reaction, the shadowy figure remained unmoved, seemingly dismissive of their presence. Summer insects cannot speak of ice, he proclaimed. Since you are so unconvinced, allow me to enlighten you with some fundamental truths. A furnace, indeed, serves as an aid in cultivation for practitioners. However, in the eyes of a cultivator, a furnace is hardly regarded as a human being, but merely a resource at best. Furnaces are categorized into two types based on their nature. Ordinary individuals, who have yet to cultivate spiritual energy, can be transformed through special methods to awaken their blood energy. This blood energy can be absorbed by cultivators to assist in their training, hence such a furnace is referred to as a blood energy furnace. Conversely, cultivators of some skill can also become furnaces, purchased by those practicing the harmonious union technique to absorb their internal spiritual power. These are known as spiritual power furnaces. Regardless of the type, the ultimate fate is singular, death. As he spoke, the sinister man cast a glance at the assembled group, a cold smile curling at his lips. The process will be exceedingly torturous, and at that point, wishing for death will be a luxury. At these words, not only the group that had been poised to strike, but all others in the room fell into a chilling silence. A gulp echoed through the air, the source unknown, as fear gripped the hearts of those present. Oh, it's getting late. I must return to my cultivation. The individuals hastily abandoned their intentions of confronting the sinister man and quickly resumed their places, poring over their techniques. After all, the man's assertions were delivered with such conviction that they could very well be true. This implied that every individual's life now rested upon a mere 7 days. Qin Chen discreetly cast a glance at the sinister man in the corner, committing his features to memory. This individual, possessing such knowledge of hidden truths, was likely no ordinary person and warranted careful observation. However, the most pressing matter at hand remained cultivation. Following the descriptions outlined in his technique, Qin Chen closed his eyes, striving to sense the spiritual energy surrounding his body. Upon reopening his eyes, he realized it was already the next day. Did I actually fall asleep? Qin Chen felt a tinge of embarrassment. Classical Chinese, especially when untranslatable, indeed remained a lifelong adversary. Nonetheless, he was fortunate to possess a cheat. Initially, he had exploited a loophole in Liu Hanbing's technique, forcibly drawing forth an amount of spiritual energy equivalent to that of a third-tier Qi cultivator from her body. Although Qin Chen had yet to master any techniques and could not wield the spiritual energy, he was capable of sensing it. Spiritual energy is refined from spiritual aura, both originating from the same source, and thus should be remarkably similar. As Qin Chen felt the spiritual energy slowly circulating through his meridians, he also sought the spiritual aura surrounding his body. This time, he finally managed to stay awake. He had emulated the ancient practice of tying his hair to a window close to him. By merely lowering his head, several strands would part from him. 3 days later, it must be said that Qin Chen's approach proved exceedingly effective. At a certain moment, a spark of inspiration illuminated his mind. It was as if he had shattered some shackles, and he finally sensed the presence of spiritual aura. Although Qin Chen kept his eyes closed, in his mind's eye, he perceived vibrant wisps of energy surrounding his body. By activating the harmony technique, these energies would be drawn to him, flowing through his pores into his dantian. Once refined in the dantian, they would ultimately merge into his meridians, transforming into usable spiritual energy. In the next moment, Qin Chen felt an additional trace of spiritual energy within him. This increment, though minuscule compared to what he had absorbed from Liu Hanbing, signified that Qin Chen had finally taken that monumental step and entered the realm of cultivation. At this moment, the mortal Qin Chen had transformed into the cultivator Qin Chen. Moreover, he commenced his journey at the 3rd level of Qi refinement. Chapter 7. What on earth is a cousin? After dedicating another day to solidifying his cultivation, Qin Chen had fully mastered this newfound power. The 3rd level of Qi refinement was truly formidable, as he sensed the immense spiritual energy within him. Qin Chen felt as if he had undergone a complete metamorphosis, brimming with boundless vigor. If he were to encounter Senior Sister Liu once more, She would certainly learn the meaning of cruelty. Suddenly, someone frowned and exclaimed, "What is that foul odor?" Many others, upon careful reflection, also covered their noses, unleashing a torrent of curses. With so many people crammed together for several days, the amalgamation of men's sweat, foot odor, and the women's fragrant powders had thoroughly mixed. The already unpleasant scent in the room was now compounded by a noxious stench, inciting the displeasure of the crowd. Is there no sense of public decency? How could someone commit such a detestable act? Who is the scoundrel responsible? Come forward if you dare. Qin Chen shouted indignantly, pointing into the throng. As he vented his frustration, he discreetly retreated from the room. Noticing that no one was paying attention to him, Qin Chen sprinted towards a nearby stream and indulged in a refreshing wash. Observing the murky water tainted by his own grime, he felt a pang of guilt and coughed lightly. In truth, during the earlier bout of condemnation, he had already recognized that the pungent odor wafting through the air originated from himself. Yet, he dared not voice this revelation. Should it be exposed, he would instantly become the target of scorn. Thus, he seamlessly joined the ranks of those who berated, venting his frustrations into the void of his own being, and then retreated in triumph. In hindsight, the layer of grime upon him should have been purged by the influx of spiritual energy, cleansing his meridians of all impurities. After a refreshing bath, Qin Chen felt invigorated. However, upon returning to his chamber, he reverted to a dejected demeanor. One must always tread cautiously in the path of survival. As the saying goes, a tree that stands out in the forest will inevitably be felled by the wind. Being overly conspicuous could render one a target for the envy of others. Thus, it was prudent to remain discreet, revealing his true strength only during the assessment. In the ensuing days, an array of foul odors permeated the air. This time, no one dared to utter curses. They had come to realize that this stench heralded the successful gathering of qi, marking the threshold of entering the realm of cultivation. On the sixth day, a sudden burst of exuberance erupted from one individual, who, in a fit of madness, leaped from his quarters, laughing joyously. The expressions of those on the communal bedding were complex, for this individual exuded faint waves of spiritual energy. Although feeble, it was unmistakably a sign of having successfully drawn qi into his body. Qin Chen merely cast a glance, saw no further anomalies, and resumed his meditation. In these 2 days, the atmosphere of cultivation had grown increasingly oppressive. Some practiced tirelessly day and night, their eyes reddened to the brink of illness. Others muttered incoherently, their ramblings unsettling to behold. There were even those who, in their haste for quick success, fell into madness. Some exhibited crooked smiles and misaligned gazes, while others faced dire consequences, their lives extinguished as the time for a fresh start approached. Fortunately, everyone was engrossed in their practice, averting any unforeseen calamities. Before long, the appointed 7th day arrived. Those remaining indoors after 5 breaths shall perish. At noon, Su Ruoli's voice resonated precisely, with the lessons of the past in mind. No one dared to delay, hastily emerging from their chambers to gather in the central clearing. Su Ruoli produced a crystal-clear jade stone, placing it upon the pedestal before her. The jade, roughly the size of a fist, was nearly transparent, resembling crystal in its clarity. This was the trial stone. Those who disrupted the order would face death. No sooner had Su Ruoli finished her declaration than several formal disciples appeared at the fringes of the crowd, subtly encircling the assembly. The individual at the forefront, trembling with trepidation, stepped forward and placed his hand upon the trial stone. Moments passed, and his face reddened, yet the stone remained unresponsive. Test failed, was all Su Ruoli uttered, her 4 words sealing the fate of the unfortunate soul. It cannot be. It must be a mistake with the trial stone. Before he could finish his protest, a formal disciple swiftly approached, effortlessly incapacitating him and casting him aside. Such decisive and formidable action sent a wave of trepidation through the crowd. However, beneath the frigid gaze of Su Ruoli, who would dare to defy, the team moved forward in silence, each member stepping up to test in succession. The results were devastating. The majority failed the test, the trial stone remaining unresponsive. Yet, Qin Chen observed that the sinister man, who had been seated in the corner, merely placed his hand upon the trial stone, and it immediately radiated a blue light. After the test, he even engaged in conversation with Su Ruoli for a while. This individual was indeed extraordinary, Qin Chen mused. Ever since the sinister man had explained what a furnace was, Qin Chen had been discreetly observing him. As expected, he smoothly advanced into the qi refinement stage, and Su Ruoli's demeanor towards him was exceedingly courteous. However, before he could ponder further, it was his turn. With a hint of trepidation, Qin Chen approached and placed his hand upon the trial stone. The stone felt pleasant to the touch, reminiscent of soft jade. Yet, Qin Chen dared not lose focus and swiftly channeled his internal spiritual energy. In the next moment, The trial stone emitted a faint blue glow. Not bad. Move to the left, Su Ruoli remarked indifferently. Thank you, Senior Sister Su. Qin Chen inwardly exhaled in relief. He had harbored concerns that the trial stone would reveal the specifics of his cultivation level, leaving him unable to explain the source of his strength, potentially leading to dire consequences. It seemed he had overthought the matter. The stone was not so perceptive. Positioned to Su Ruoli's left. There were now only 6 women and 3 men, totaling 9 individuals, including Qin Chen. He merely nodded in acknowledgement to a few of them before stepping behind the others, opting for a low profile. However, scarcely had he settled when he felt a piercing gaze upon him. Looking up, he found himself locking eyes with Su Ruoli. Beside her stood Su Miaoyun, the very girl who had quarreled with him over a bed a few days prior. That brat spoke to me so disrespectfully, cursing in a particularly unpleasant manner. I am too embarrassed to repeat it. Su Miaoyun seethed, pointing an accusatory finger at Qin Chen. The trial stone in her hand was now emitting a soft blue light. It appeared that she too had successfully entered the Qi refinement realm. With Qin Chen's authentic cultivation at the 3rd level of Qi refinement, he could hear Su Miaoyun's words distinctly. Nevertheless, he paid little heed to the matter. After all, it was merely a few insults. Within the demon sect, such occurrences were likely as commonplace as spitting in public. However, Su Miaoyun's next statement left Qin Chen utterly bewildered. Cousin, you must avenge me, she whimpered, clinging to Su Ruoli's arm. Qin Chen, what on earth is this cousin nonsense? Chapter 8, Insulting? A fine of 1 spirit stone. Feeling the weight of Su Ruoli's imposing gaze, Qin Chen instantly broke into a cold sweat. He had never anticipated that Su Miaoyun was actually Su Ruoli's cousin. You are not merely an ordinary individual. You belong to the esteemed lineage of the Tianlong. You should wield your privileges with dignity. Your cousin is a steward of the esteemed Yifeng. Why not take a shortcut to elevate your status instead of enduring the hardships alongside us mere mortals? Qin Chen, come here, Su Ruoli said with an indifferent tone. With a face full of despair, Qin Chen stepped forward. Was this it? Before he even began to enjoy life, was it destined to end? While Qin Chen was lost in his thoughts, Su Ruoli had already spoken. Su Miaoyun accuses you of insulting a fellow disciple. Do you confess to this charge? Su Ruoli's voice was calm, yet carried an immense pressure that made it hard for Qin Chen to breathe. I confess, Qin Chen replied solemnly. Many had heard him berating Su Miaoyun at that moment. If he did not admit it, she could easily produce several witnesses. However, judging by Su Ruoli's demeanor, she seemed intent on administering justice. Otherwise, with her strength, she could eliminate him with a mere finger. In that case, he had only exchanged a few harsh words with Su Miaoyun. Could it truly warrant a severe punishment? With this thought, Qin Chen raised his head and said, Sister Su. It was merely a trivial dispute over a matter of bed space initiated by her. How could I possibly bear the blame? Su Miaoyun appeared to have anticipated Qin Chen's response. A cold smile crept across her lips. Bring forth the rules of the Yuan sect. As her words fell, a formal disciple stepped forward, and with a glimmer from his storage ring, he produced a thick book. It was quite a feat for a book to be so substantial. Rules for Formal Disciples, Chapter on Communication, Article 3. Read it to him, Su Ruoli instructed. Yes, Sister Su. The disciple flipped to the specified chapter and began to read aloud. Formal disciples of the Yuan sect must refrain from using derogatory language in daily communications. Otherwise, it constitutes a violation of the sect's rules. Derogatory terms include, but are not limited to, you mother, your mother, and F you. Qin Chen? Upon hearing this, Qin Chen could not help but lean closer to the disciple to see for himself. After reading it, he felt as though a stampede of horses raced through his mind. The Yuan sect's rules indeed contained those exact words, word for word. Was this the same ruthless demonic sect known for its merciless killings? Yet they prohibited even the use of insults? This was absurd. A sudden unsettling feeling arose within Qin Chen. What would the punishment be for violating the sect's rules? Su Ruoli suddenly revealed a charming smile. The penalty for this infraction is quite light, merely a fine of 1 spirit stone. Her words made Qin Chen feel as if he might as well inquire about the well-being of Su Ruoli's parents. A spirit stone? What spirit stones did he possess? As if anticipating the moment, the disciple holding the code of conduct for Yuan sect disciples flipped through several pages and recited aloud. Any disciple who violates the code and fails to produce spirit stones shall have all their possessions seized by the law enforcement hall, including but not limited to magical artifacts, spiritual plants, elixirs, cultivation methods, and cave abodes. The sect shall forcibly purchase these at half the market price as a fine. Should the remaining amount still fall short, the disciple shall be handed over to the Yinyang Hall to serve as a furnace for spiritual energy, thereby offsetting all fines. Qin Chen gasped in disbelief. This code is utterly outrageous. A mere mistake incurs a fine, and without spirit stones, they seize your belongings. Once they've taken everything, you're delivered to the Yinyang Hall as a furnace. It's a complete exploitation. Even cursing incurs a fine. One can only imagine the dire consequences of more serious transgressions. Suddenly, a realization struck him. A single spirit stone is insignificant to a cultivator. Yet having just learned the cultivation method, how could he possibly possess any spirit stones? Would he not be sent to serve as a furnace? It seemed he could not escape the fate of being a furnace in this lifetime. Qin Chen has insulted his fellow disciples and is unable to pay the fine. Thus, according to the sect's code, he is sentenced to serve as a furnace for spiritual energy. Su Ruoli declared solemnly. Upon hearing this, Su Miaoyun burst into laughter. She approached Qin Chen, pointed a finger at his chest, and boasted proudly, "Young man, I warned you before that opposing me leads to no good end. So, how does it feel? Why are you suddenly silent? Haha, your name is Qin Chen, right? Make sure to live a few more days. Once I gather enough spirit stones, I'll buy you and torment you day and night until you wish for death." Observing the smug expression on Su Miaoyun's face, Qin Chen merely smiled faintly. In this life, he might have met his downfall, but in the next, he would ensure she paid dearly. Su Miaoyun, not comprehending Qin Chen's meaning, dismissed him with disdain. The next life? Huh. Perhaps in the next life, you'll reincarnate as a beast. Do you really think you can seek revenge on me? How foolish. Before she could finish her sentence, a sharp slap interrupted her words. Su Miaoyun instinctively covered her face, staring blankly at the man before her mind blank. Qin Si as Su Miaoyun wept and cried out. Su Ruoli regarded Qin Chen with the detached gaze one might afford a corpse before stepping forward to assist Su Miaoyun. Who allowed you to become so complacent? Can you afford the price of murder? If you truly kill him, you cannot escape the consequences. Go to the Yinyang Hall and report. I shall handle this matter for you, Su Ruoli admonished, her voice laced with frustration, despite her reluctance to acknowledge it. The moment Qin Chen passed the trial stone assessment, he officially became a disciple of the Yinyang Hall of the Hawan sect. Dealing with Qin Chen could no longer be approached with reckless abandon. It must be conducted within the confines of sect rules. Otherwise, the fanatics of the law enforcement hall would certainly not let her off the hook. Now that Qin Chen's fate is sealed, if you provoke him, you have only yourself to blame for the consequences. On the other hand, Qin Chen shared a similar sentiment. If Su Ruoli wished to kill him, a mere flick of her finger would suffice. There would be no need to invoke the rules of sect disciples. Given that she refrained from acting against him, there could only be one explanation. Should this woman desire his demise, the cost would be steep. This revelation was indeed valuable intelligence. As for Su Miaoyun, Qin Chen did not dwell on her plight. After all, if this life was to conclude, he intended to savor every moment. Were it not for his inability to contend with Su Ruoli, he would certainly have retaliated with great force. At that moment, Su Ruoli turned to the few formal disciples she had brought along. Those who failed the assessment shall be taken away for cultivation as bloodshot furnaces. Our sect's demand for such has recently surged. Be vigilant. Yes, Senior Sister. Several formal disciples summoned flying boats to escort the pallid-faced failures away. Though some resisted, they soon complied after a few well-placed blows. You few, come with me. I will take you to report to the Yinyang Hall, Su Ruoli commanded, summoning a flying boat to transport about 10 successful disciples to the hall. In the flying boat, Qin Chen sat cross-legged at the stern, while the others kept their distance. As if avoiding a plague, Qin Chen chuckled helplessly. Was he truly that fearsome? Moreover, he had been sealed by Su Ruoli with a strand of spiritual power, rendering his cultivation temporarily suppressed. The individuals nearby could easily extinguish him with a mere flicker of their own power. However, it seemed the recent display of his brutal assault on Su Miaoyun had left a psychological scar, preventing anyone from daring to approach him. Qin Chen remained indifferent to this. His mindset was remarkably positive. He had initially expected to be slain by Su Ruoli immediately after the encounter with Su Miaoyun. To his surprise, she had refrained from taking action for reasons unknown. Thus, for Qin Chen, each additional minute of life was an opportunity to glean more information about the Hawan sect. A pure gain in his eyes. Su Ruoli piloted the flying boat at the front, while the others gathered around Su Miaoyun, eager to curry favor. After all, Su Miaoyun is Su Ruoli's cousin, so it is always wise to seek her favor. Sister Miaoyun, no wonder you have progressed so rapidly. It turns out you are the cousin of Elder Su. Sister Miaoyun, as fellow disciples of the Yinyang Hall, I hope you will look after us. Sister Miaoyun, your skin is so fair. What is your secret to maintaining such a complexion? Listening to the flattery, Su Miaoyun cast a triumphant glance at Qin Chen. That gaze seemed to convey, I am now the center of attention, while your time is running out. How do you feel about that? Naturally, Qin Chen was not one to back down, and responded in kind. He calmly raised his right hand, forming a fist, and slowly extended his middle finger as a gesture of international camaraderie. Although Su Miaoyun did not comprehend the meaning of this gesture, she was certain it was far from complimentary. Su Miaoyun glared at Qin Chen. The onlookers quickly intervened, urging her to let it go. Sister Miaoyun, why bother with someone who is on the verge of death? Indeed, Sister Miaoyun, he is merely trying to provoke you. The best course of action is to ignore him. Exactly. Once he becomes a mere vessel for spiritual energy, you can deal with him then, huh? Hearing these remarks, Su Miaoyun's anger subsided somewhat. At this moment, someone seized the opportunity to change the subject. Sister Miaoyun, since we are all disciples of the Yinyang Hall, what is the story behind the Jia Peak and E Peak? The others nodded in agreement, having been curious about this for quite some time. Even Qin Chen, standing nearby, discreetly leaned in to eavesdrop. Well, I have only heard my cousin mention it a couple of times, so I have a little understanding, she began. Among the myriad sects in the world, only 6 can be considered top tier, and our Hahuan sect is one of them. Within the Hahuan sect, there are 2 divisions, the inner and outer sections. Only those disciples who break through to the golden core stage before the age of 50 can be promoted to inner disciples. This standard can only be met by those with exceptional talent and an unwavering dedication to their cultivation. Both are necessary, and we need not aspire to it. As for the outer sect, it is further divided into 6 major halls based on function. The Yinyang Hall, which we have joined, primarily focuses on cultivating vessels for the disciples to enhance their training. The Transmission Hall, as the name implies, is where one acquires techniques and martial skills. The sect only provides basic techniques to the disciples. Higher-level skills must be obtained from the Transmission Hall. I should mention that while disciples of the Transmission Hall are few, they are fervent practitioners and should not be provoked lightly. The Law Enforcement Hall is responsible for handling various infractions against the sect's regulations, maintaining a perpetually stern demeanor, and is even more intimidating than the Transmission Hall. Even my cousin holds a certain trepidation towards the people from the Law Enforcement Hall. The Alchemy Hall and the Artifact Refining Hall, as their names suggest, are dedicated to the crafting of elixirs and magical artifacts. Disciples from these 2 halls are quite affluent, practically swimming in wealth. As for the Outer Affairs Hall, it serves as the venue for issuing sect missions, where one can undertake various tasks for the sect. Upon completion, one is rewarded with contribution points, which are considered more valuable than spirit stones within the sect. For instance, purchasing cauldrons in the Yinyang Hall, exchanging for rare techniques in the Transmission Hall, or acquiring elixirs and magical artifacts in the Alchemy and Forging Halls all necessitate a significant amount of contribution points. These elements outline the fundamental structure of the Hahuan sect, while the 6 major halls of the outer sect are expansive and thus further subdivided. For example, our Yinyang Hall is divided into 12 peaks, each designated with names such as A, B, C, and D. Currently, we find ourselves on Peak B. Although these peaks share the same responsibility of cultivating cauldrons for the Yinyang Hall, there exists an underlying competition among them. After all, when the sect allocates cultivation resources, they are directly distributed to the Yinyang Hall, and the Hall Master allocates them proportionally based on each peak's contributions, which leads to a severe imbalance in resource distribution among the peaks. At this juncture, Su Miaoyun provided the group with a clearer understanding of the Hahuan sect and elucidated the status of their current location, Peak B of the Yinyang Hall. However, when Su Miaoyun mentioned the differing statuses of each peak, the group's interest was piqued. Sister Miaoyun, does our Peak B rank highly within the Yinyang Hall? They inquired eagerly. Indeed, given Su's sister's strength, Peak B must be formidable as well, they anticipated. The ranking of each peak directly influences the distribution of resources. Thus, a higher rank for Peak B would signify a larger share of resources for them. Clearing her throat slightly, Su Miaoyun responded with a hint of embarrassment. Well, Peak B was previously at the bottom of the rankings. However, under the guidance of my cousin, we have robustly surged into the mid-tier. Qin Chen chuckled inwardly. Sensing Su Miaoyun's unease, he surmised that Peak B likely hovered around the lower mid-tier, certainly not the mid-tier. Alas, however, it seems that Peak B may soon face trials. Su Miaoyun sighed. The group was taken aback and quickly pressed her. Sister Miaoyun, what do you mean by that? She explained. My cousin has already reached the peak of the foundation establishment stage, and is but a step away from breaking through to the core formation stage. Once she leads us to join Peak B, she will enter seclusion to advance, and upon emerging, she will ascend to become an inner sect disciple. If the new steward lacks my cousin's strength and capabilities, the ranking of Peak B may decline further. Upon hearing this, the group was left in a state of astonishment. After enduring arduous trials, they were finally on the verge of becoming official disciples of Peak B in the Yinyang Hall. And now they were told that Peak B was doomed? Was this some kind of jest? However, before the somber atmosphere could fully take hold, the flying vessel landed with a resounding thud. The landing site was precisely the towering peak that Qin Chen had previously observed. It appeared that this was indeed the main peak of the Yinyang Hall. Before them lay hundreds of stone steps paved with azure stones, which, through the passage of time, gleamed with a lustrous sheen akin to jade. Atop these steps stood an ancient and grand hall, soaring over 100 meters high, exuding an aura of solemnity and majesty. Before the grand hall, dozens of resplendent white dragon pillars stand majestically. The wide entrance is flung open, adorned with intricate carvings of unknown mythical creatures, each vividly depicted in diverse forms, seemingly imbued with an overwhelming aura that can be felt at a mere glance. Above the entrance, a profound yin-yang symbol is intricately sculpted, representing the harmonious balance of opposites. In comparison to the entire yin-yang hall, Qin Chen and his companions appear as insignificant as ants before its grandeur. Follow me into the main hall of the yin-yang temple, and refrain from speaking carelessly along the way. Should any misfortune occur, I cannot guarantee your safety, Su Ruoli warned, sealing Qin Chen's lips with a wave of her spiritual power. While a mere reminder suffices for others, she cannot afford to let him speak freely. Qin Chen, however, displayed an indifference, maintaining a steadfast mindset, as his current actions were merely paving the way for his next existence. Leading the group, Su Ruoli ascended the 100 or so steps into the Yinyang Hall. Chapter 10. The Master of the Yinyang Hall, an enigmatic and alluring ice queen? Inside the hall, the opulence far exceeded Qin Chen's imagination. The floor was laid with impeccably cut slabs of an unknown white jade, its lustrous sheen illuminating the entire palace as if it were daylight. At each corner of the hall stood 4 colossal dragon pillars, each large enough to be embraced by dozens of people. The black dragons carved upon them appeared strikingly lifelike, their eyes embedded with unknown gemstones, exuding an overwhelming murderous intent that seemed palpable. Help! A disciple's gaze was fixated on the dragon's eye, his body trembling uncontrollably, legs weakening as he appeared on the verge of begging for mercy. At that moment, Su Ruoli placed her hand on the disciple's shoulder, infusing him with pure spiritual energy. He abruptly regained his composure and, bowing repeatedly, expressed his gratitude. Thank you for saving me, Senior Sister. Su Ruoli remained composed, explaining, that is the demon core of a black-scaled dragon, a 7th-tier beast, with power comparable to that of a human in the Great Ascension stage. Given your current cultivation, you are ill-equipped to withstand its pressure. I have warned you before, do not gaze about indiscriminately within the hall. If there is a next time, I cannot assist you. Upon hearing this, the group felt a wave of trepidation, hastily lowering their heads to avoid any further indiscretion. Just then, a piercing voice of ridicule echoed from behind them. What kind of misfits has Yifeng recruited this year? They lack decorum and are yet so feeble. TSK, it seems that Su's only ambition is her own advancement, having abandoned Yifeng entirely. As this remark was made, another group strode into the Yinyang Hall. Leading them was a young man, resplendently dressed, yet possessing a somewhat effeminate and ambiguous demeanor. Yu Qiyuan, Yifeng's standing is not for you to critique. Furthermore, with your Jiafeng's continuous decline in rankings, how dare you mock Yifeng? Su Ruoli retorted coolly. Yu Qiyuan's expression stiffened momentarily, but he soon broke into a cold smirk. Even if Jiafeng falters, it will always overshadow Yifeng. Indeed, I have heard whispers of your intent to enter seclusion in pursuit of the elusive Dan breakthrough. How audacious it is for one who has barely reached the pinnacle of foundational cultivation to aspire for such advancement. Nevertheless, I possess numerous elixirs that could facilitate your training, should you be willing to part with a trifling price. At this, Su Ruoli's cold gaze sharpened, and she commanded, begone. The humiliation inflicted upon Yu Qiyuan, in front of the newly initiated disciples, caused his facial muscles to twitch involuntarily. He was on the verge of retaliating when an overwhelming pressure suddenly descended, enveloping the entire hall in an instant. Qin Chen felt his cultivation suppressed by this formidable force, and he tasted the metallic tang of blood in his throat, nearly choking on it. Vile wretch, should fate allow, I shall exact vengeance in the next life. Qin Chen silently vowed as he cast his gaze towards Su Ruoli, who stood not far ahead. At that moment, within the grand hall, a striking figure had appeared, gracefully seated upon the opulent throne that symbolized authority and status. Qin Chen looked up, his heart momentarily captivated. All that resonated within him was a singular thought, so exquisite. The woman upon the elevated seat appeared to be just over 30, her flowing black hair cascading like a waterfall, adorned with naught but a simple white hairpin that held her elaborate updo in place. Yet, given the notorious disposition of the demonic sect, Qin Chen suspected that the pin might well be fashioned from the bones of a cultivator. She donned a long, black palace gown that epitomized the bold style of the demonic sect, with a plunging neckline that revealed ample porcelain skin, showcasing her delicate collarbone. The hem of her gown draped gracefully, revealing a leg as smooth as jade. Further down, her ankle traced an elegant curve, adorned with a delicate, pale blue jade anklet that shimmered with a cold luminescence, contrasting beautifully against her flawless skin, rendering her a veritable work of art. Yet, what astonished Qin Chen even more was the sight that followed. Those exquisite ankles were connected to a pair of meticulously crafted jade-like feet. The woman was barefoot, presenting herself with an air of unrestrained elegance. At that moment, she sat gracefully with one leg crossed over the other, her jade feet moving gently, creating a perfect arc akin to a crescent moon in the air, the tops of her feet slightly taut, reminiscent of a swan's neck in its elegance. The translucent, jade-like quality of her feet left Qin Chen momentarily dazed. However, at that instant, a sharp command rang in Qin Chen's ears. "Idiot, lower your head." He turned to see Su Ruoli, her eyes ablaze with fury directed at him, her teeth grinding audibly. To prevent any disruption from Qin Chen, she had preemptively sealed his cultivation and, for good measure, completely silenced him. Yet, she never anticipated that, despite all this, Qin Chen would still dare to impudently gaze upon the Hall Master. Indeed, the figure seated upon the exalted throne was none other than the Hall Master of the Yinyang Hall, Leng Yu. Gifted with a unique constitution, she was a rare embodiment of the Xian Yin charming body, capable of captivating hearts with but a smile or a frown. As Su Ruoli and her subordinates paid their respects to Leng Yu, they all bowed their heads. This gesture served a dual purpose. It was a sign of respect, and it also helped to shield them from the influence of the Xian Yinmei body, preventing any public humiliation. Just as she was about to address the group, she was abruptly interrupted by Yu Qiyuan. Now, it was too late to reprimand Qin Chen. On the high seat, Leng Yu reclined lazily, one hand propping up her delicate chin, her slender fingers lightly resting against her cheek as she regarded Qin Chen with a hint of amusement. The newcomer was proving to be increasingly intriguing. A smile played at the corners of her lips, accompanied by a soft, languid laugh that, despite its relaxed tone, was laced with an undeniable allure. Each of her expressions held the power to captivate hearts. Yet, Qin Chen found no joy in this encounter. He felt as though he were being scrutinized by an ancient, primordial beast, rendered utterly motionless, cold sweat soaking through the fabric of his back. "Master, this matter reflects my inadequate control over my subordinates. I humbly request your punishment." Su Ruoli knelt on one knee, accepting her fault with deep regret. Had she known it would come to this, she would have ensured that Qin Chen's eyes were rendered useless beforehand. "No matter. We shall simply transform him into a spiritual energy furnace," Leng Yu remarked with a light smile. "What?" Qin Chen's eyes widened in disbelief. What was wrong with these women? He had done nothing to provoke them, yet each one seemed intent on turning him into a furnace. Reporting to the master, "This individual previously violated the sect's regulations, and I have already sealed his cultivation. He will soon be registered as a spiritual energy furnace," Su Ruoli quickly explained. "Oh, I see." Leng Yu's gaze shifted away from Qin Chen. "Then let it be done." To her, Qin Chen was merely an insignificant insect. A fleeting glance was the greatest favor she could bestow upon him, and extinguishing his life was a matter of mere words. Is this how you wish to play? What kind of absurd logic is this? A single glance could lead to death? If only he could voice his thoughts. Qin Chen would have likely pointed an accusing finger at her, cursing her fiercely. It was evident that this demonic sect operated on a logic that defied all common sense. If there are no further matters, the stewards from each peak may collect the tokens for the new disciples and attend to their own affairs. By the way, this year the sect has a high demand for furnaces. Peaks that fail to meet their quotas by year's end will have all their disciples converted into spiritual energy furnaces. With these final words, Leng Yu's figure vanished without a trace. Chapter 11. Senior Sister, I will not resist. Once Leng Yu departed, the invisible pressure that had enveloped everyone dissipated abruptly. Why does it feel like the Master's oppressive aura has intensified significantly? Just standing before her made me tremble. Don't touch me, my legs are still weak. I almost knelt before the Master just now. Did you all not hear? The Master has just emerged from her retreat and has broken through to the mid-stage of the Yuaning realm. You truly are quite uninformed. What? Mid-stage of Yuaning? Hearing the discussions among the stewards, Qin Chen could not help but inwardly gasp in astonishment. To one's astonishment, the seemingly enchanting and regal master of the hall is, in truth, a venerable ancestor of the nascent soul stage. Moments later, the stewards of each peak led the newly initiated disciples away. Qin Chen could not help but smirk. Was such a grand display truly necessary merely to pay respects to the hall master? Aboard Su Ruoli's flying vessel, the members of the second peak arrived at another grand hall atop the main peak. In comparison to the majestic Yinyang Hall, this hall, while slightly less imposing, boasts a greater expanse. Above, flying vessels and swords ascended and descended intermittently, giving an air of bustling prosperity. This hall, named the Hall of Six Desires, derives its name from the renowned technique of the Hahuan sect, the Six Desires secret classic, and serves as the institution for managing matters concerning furnace cauldrons and all disciples' affairs within the Yinyang Hall. As Su Ruoli explained, she guided the group into the Hall of Six Desires. Upon entering, Qin Chen was taken aback. The interior of the hall bore a striking resemblance to a bank. Hundreds of individuals queued at a dozen or so counters, seemingly waiting to purchase something. Behind the counters lay an enormous formation, resembling a luminous curtain unfurling in midair, divided into two sections. The left side displayed information regarding spiritual power furnace cauldrons, while the right side contained details about blood energy furnace cauldrons. Judging by the number of people in line, it was evident that the spiritual power furnace cauldrons were far more sought after. Qin Chen held his breath and focused, gazing at the vibrant characters on the left side of the luminous curtain. Spiritual power furnace cauldron. Qi refinement stage 1. Price 28 contribution points or 28 low-grade spirit stones. Spiritual power furnace cauldron. Qi refinement stage 2. Price 60 contribution points or 60 low-grade spirit stones. Spiritual power furnace cauldron. Qi refinement stage 3. Price 118 contribution points or 118 low-grade spirit stones. Further up, there were even furnace cauldrons for the foundation establishment and core formation stages, the origins of which remained a mystery. However, only the cauldrons of the Qi refinement stage could be purchased with spirit stones, while those of the foundation establishment stage and above could solely be acquired through contribution points. Su Miaoyun had previously mentioned that within the Hahuan sect, contribution points were even more valuable than spirit stones, a notion that now appeared to be undeniably true. Shifting his gaze, Qin Chen turned to the right side of the luminous curtain formation. Blood energy furnace cauldron. Half-year period. Price 3 contribution points or 3 low-grade spirit stones. Blood energy furnace cauldron. 1-year period. Price 8 contribution points or 8 low-grade spirit stones. Blood energy furnace cauldron. 2-year period. Price 18 contribution points or 18 low-grade spirit stones. The time indicated above presumably pertains to the cultivation period of the furnace cauldrons. Based solely on the pricing, it was clear that blood energy furnace cauldrons were vastly inferior to their spiritual power counterparts, a fact that was hardly surprising. After all, even the most mediocre spiritual power furnace cauldron possesses some cultivation, and the efficacy of spiritual energy far surpasses that of blood energy. As you can see, all transactions concerning furnace cauldrons in the Yinyang Hall are conducted within the Hall of Six Desires, Su Ruoli remarked nonchalantly. The furnace cauldrons nurtured by each peak must be traded through the Hall of Six Desires, with 90% of the proceeds allocated to the public funds of the Yinyang Hall, while the remaining 10% is at the discretion of each peak. Upon hearing this, Qin Chen immediately grasped the implications. The Yinyang Hall entrusted the task of nurturing furnace cauldrons to the 12 peaks, delegating the dirtiest and most arduous tasks to the subordinates, while the profits from transactions were entirely appropriated by the Six Desires Hall. Qin Chen, without a hint of doubt, could ascertain with the smallest inkling that the Six Desires Hall was undoubtedly under the direct supervision of the Hall Master. Although the rules dictated that a substantial portion of the profits from the Yinyang Hall should be submitted to the sect, the amount that would end up lining the Hall Master's pockets would likely be astronomical. Follow me this way, Su Ruoli instructed, leading the newly admitted disciples to the side hall. This side hall was designated for handling the affairs of the Yinyang Hall subordinate disciples, presided over by an elderly man at the foundation establishment stage. One by one, they registered their names, cultivation levels, and other pertinent information, also leaving behind a soul lamp with their life essence. After each received an identity token, they were considered official members of the Hahuan sect. When it was Qin Chen's turn, Su Ruoli addressed the elderly registrar with an air of indifference. This individual has violated sect rules. I have reported it to the Hall Master, and he will be demoted to a spirit power furnace cauldron. The old man, seemingly unfazed by such matters, hoarsely replied. The price for a furnace cauldron at the first layer of Qi refinement today is 28 contribution points. Given your rank, you may pay either 20 contribution points or the equivalent in spirit stones. Su Ruoli nodded, handing over the identity token to the elder, who deducted 20 contribution points. The unfortunate news was that Qin Chen ultimately became a furnace cauldron for the Hahuan sect. The silver lining, however, was that he was not entirely worthless after the discount. He still held a value of 20 contribution points. As new disciples, their identity tokens contained 10 contribution points. Furthermore, as disciples of the Yinyang Hall, they would receive a discount when purchasing furnace cauldrons from the Six Desires Hall, paying only 90 of the standard price. In the future, should you require furnace cauldrons, feel free to come here for your purchases, Su Ruoli informed the group while securing her identity token. Yes, Senior Sister. The disciples responded in unison. After returning to the second peak via flying boat, Su Ruoli wasted no time and promptly brought Qin Chen back to her cave dwelling. The moment had finally arrived. Qin Chen, glancing at Su Ruoli, who shared the same space, raised his eyebrows and said, "I say, Senior Sister Su, is there really a need to be in such a hurry? How about we first take a warm bath together to foster some intimacy?" Jumping straight into it. I must admit, feels rather abrupt. Su Ruoli cast a fleeting glance at Qin Chen, her expression one of disdain, as if regarding a pile of refuse. A mere mortal on the brink of death. Do you truly believe such words could sway my emotions? How naive. Rather than indulge in such frivolities, it would be more prudent for you to explain how you attained the third layer of Qi refinement. Should your answer satisfy me, I may grant you a death that is less painful, she retorted. While sealing off Qin Chen's spirit power, she had sensed his true realm. A novice, having barely crossed the threshold of cultivation, could not possibly reach the third layer of Qi refinement in just 7 days. Qin Chen must have encountered extraordinary fortunes. Moreover, even if she could not extract the origins of Qin Chen's cultivation level under duress, a furnace cauldron at the third layer of Qi refinement was worth over 100 contribution points, making the acquisition of Qin Chen a lucrative investment. Though Su Ruoli held the position of a steward at Yifeng and had the authority to govern its affairs, the expenses of cultivation were equally exorbitant for her. 100 contribution points was no trifling sum. Do enlighten me on how you attained the third level of Qi refinement within just 7 days. She inquired with a hint of indifference. Ah, so it piques your curiosity? Qin Chen replied with a mischievous grin. There was a captivating senior sister, whose prowess and beauty matched yours, and after engaging in some rather intimate activities with her, I found myself at the third level of Qi refinement. Should you be intrigued, I would not object to you experiencing it firsthand. While his words were indeed grounded in truth, they struck Su Ruoli's ears as nothing short of blatant insult and mockery. A cultivator at the peak of foundation establishment would surely not deign to look upon an ordinary person like Qin Chen. Do you doubt my words? Qin Chen closed his eyes, adopting a posture of surrender. If you do not believe me, why not come and test it for yourself? I shall not resist. Chapter 12. Sister Liu, you wouldn't wish to face punishment from the law enforcement hall, would you? Resolved to make the most of his final moments in this life, Qin Chen decided to indulge in reckless teasing of the senior sister. Yet, in the next moment, Su Ruoli stepped forward, her slender fingers gripping Qin Chen's chin. The coldness of her touch was unexpectedly pleasant. However, before Qin Chen could fully savor the sensation, Su Ruoli forcibly pried open his mouth and shoved a pill inside. With a gulp, Qin Chen instinctively swallowed the pill. What did you just give me, Sister Su? I pride myself on my prowess, renowned for my stamina, and do not require such aids, he stammered in confusion. Humph, while your appearance is somewhat acceptable, your tongue is a regrettable flaw, Su Ruoli remarked. Her fingers tracing Qin Chen's lips, a surge of spiritual energy sealing his mouth shut. As he struggled to comprehend the situation, a sudden, excruciating pain erupted from his lower abdomen. Qin Chen's expression twisted in agony, cold sweat pouring from him. With a thud, he collapsed to the ground, his body curling in on itself. Overwhelmed by the intense pain coursing through him, Qin Chen was horrified. He had no idea what kind of pill Su Ruoli had given him, but its effects seemed to concentrate entirely in his dantian. The blood and energy within him began to be drawn toward the dantian by some mysterious force, forcibly transforming into spiritual energy before surging into his meridians. In mere moments, Qin Chen felt a significant increase in his internal spiritual energy. Yet, it was accompanied by a terrifying pain as if a multitude of needles were piercing his body. After what felt like an eternity, the agonizing sensation gradually subsided. By then, the ground beneath him was soaked with his sweat, forming a clear outline of his figure. Qin Chen felt utterly drained. Even the slightest movement of his fingers felt laborious. Seeing this, Su Ruoli waved her hand, lifting the spiritual restraint on his mouth. The elixir you just consumed is known as the blood ignition pill. As its name suggests, this potion ignites the power of your bloodline, forcibly converting it into spiritual energy. However, this process is irreversible and entails immense suffering. So how do you feel now? Are you still defiant? Su Ruoli taunted. Wait. Qin Chen managed to raise his hand with great difficulty. Su Ruoli initially thought he was pleading for mercy. She leisurely seated herself in the chair opposite him, a smirk playing on her lips. It is said that not even among the practitioners of the demonic sect are there many who can endure the agony of blood ignition, let alone a novice like Qin Chen. Are you begging for mercy? No, I wish to inquire if there are more of these pills available. I would like another dose. Though weak, Qin Chen's eyes sparkled with excitement. Truly, the demonic sect is remarkable. To convert the power of the bloodline into spiritual energy, what genius concocted such a miraculous elixir? With such extraordinary efficacy, it rightfully deserves to be wielded by me. In this life, I have nearly reached my end. If I can enhance my strength a bit more before I pass, my next life will commence at a higher starting point. This blood ignition pill is undoubtedly the finest means of strengthening myself. As for the burning of my bloodline's power, what relevance does it hold for my next life? Su, please, grant me this request. I implore you, Qin Chen exclaimed. Su Ruoli remained silent for several moments. After a brief pause, her lips twitched slightly, and she produced a handful of pills, stuffing them into Qin Chen's mouth. She had never encountered someone so tenacious. Given the circumstances, it seemed her only option was to elevate his strength to its zenith and subsequently utilize him as a vessel for her own cultivation. Upon swallowing the blood ignition pills, Qin Chen once again contorted in agony. His blood energy was drawn towards his dantian. A primal scream, akin to that of a wounded beast, erupted from him. Simultaneously, his cultivation level surged, successfully breaking through to the fourth layer of qi refinement. Darkness began to envelop him. Your blood energy has been completely drained. You have perished. Commencing evaluation of your previous life's performance. In the path of survival, profound and intricate, your inexperience concerning Su Mian's affair led you into peril, ultimately resulting in your demise. However, after consuming the blood ignition pill, your willpower transcended the ordinary. With your constitution, 2 pills would typically suffice to unleash the maximum potency. Yet you forcibly ingested 5. Performance evaluation, blue. The soul lamp on the first floor of the reincarnation tower is illuminated. Lamp color, blue. You have obtained a starting item, blood ignition pill X1. Due to having acquired only cultivation in your previous life, devoid of any treasures, you automatically retain your cultivation. Boom. Qin Chen opened his eyes. Before him lay the familiar blood fiend array. Feeling the familiar spiritual energy within him, he was nearly overcome with joy. As a thought arose, a semi-transparent screen materialized before him. Name, Qin Chen. Age, 18. Realm, Qi Refinement Level 4. Cultivation Technique, Heavenly Harmony Technique. Magic Artifact, none. Special Talent, 7 times in one night. It truly is thanks to Brother Tongzi. The prowess of Qi Refinement Level 4 was fully retained. Moreover, Qin Chen discovered an unexpected delight. Upon learning the technique, it became imprinted in his memory, thus escaping the system's erasure. The Heavenly Harmony Technique was preserved in its entirety. In the future, should the opportunity arise, he might delve deeper into various techniques. The notion of biting off more than one can chew is mere folly. Regardless of quality, memorizing them first is key. He could later sift through to find the techniques that best suited him for cultivation. Just as these thoughts occupied his mind, a voice tinged with hesitation pierced through. You. Take off your clothes and come here. Qin Chen looked up, meeting the intricately complex gaze of Liu Hanbing. At this moment, he fully comprehended the inner turmoil she faced. After all, having preserved her maiden essence for so many years, she was now compelled to relinquish it to a man on the brink of death for the sake of breaking through to the golden core stage. It was impossible not to feel conflicted. Yet, Qin Chen harbored no such worries. In the end, it was he who would benefit. He approached with a light jog. After absorbing the spiritual energy within Liu Hanbing, Qin Chen's cultivation ascended to Qi Refinement Level 5. Moreover, he couldn't help but reminisce about Liu Jinjia's long legs, having not seen them for several days. Once the matter was concluded, he picked up Liu Hanbing's belly band, a wicked smile gracing his lips. Liu Jinjia. Withholding the furnace from the Yinyang Hall and harming fellow disciples are grievous crimes. I've heard your spirit stones were all spent on your breakthrough. If I were to report you to the law enforcement hall, with your background, I dare say you wouldn't be able to pay the fines, would you? Liu Hanbing's expression froze. Who are you? Although what Qin Chen spoke of was not a secret within the Harmony sect, it was certainly not knowledge that an ordinary newcomer could possess. Who am I? Qin Chen waved the belly band playfully. Liu Jinjia, I am your beloved, after all. We have a token of our bond as proof. He added, do not entertain thoughts of revenge against me. I am rather timid, and if you frighten me, who knows what might slip out. With that, disregarding the extreme discomfort evident on Liu Hanbing's face, he tucked the belly band into his garments and departed without a backward glance. Chapter 13. Not a gathered beauty. Do you bully the weak? Emerging from the mountain's depths, Qin Chen navigated with ease, returning to the scene of Liu Hanbing's heinous act of murder and disposal, retrieving the identity token. In his previous life, although he hadn't acquired the token, he certainly had seen others' tokens. It was identical to this one. However, the identity token did not specify which peak of the Yinyang Palace the individual belonged to, leaving the person's affiliation unclear. It was prudent to keep it, as it might prove useful later. After tucking the token close to his chest, Qin Chen navigated according to the route etched in his memory, and eventually caught up with the flying vessel bound for the second peak. Upon landing, he was once again greeted by Su Ruoli. This time, having gained experience, Qin Chen wisely positioned himself at the optimal spot to disembark from the vessel. Just as Su Ruoli uttered the ominous warning that anyone remaining on the vessel for 3 breaths would perish, Qin Chen leapt down, successfully evading the chaotic throng of passengers. Following that, they proceeded smoothly, as Su Ruoli led them to the training area and proposed a 7-day agreement. This time, Qin Chen was determined to be cautious. In his previous life, he had inadvertently offended Su Ruoli's cousin, Su Miaoyan, which led to Su Ruoli exacting revenge by invoking a rule against slandering fellow disciples, resulting in his demise. In this life, he resolved to keep his distance from Su Miaoyan. As for retribution, given that Su Ruoli was at the peak of the foundation establishment stage and served as the steward of the second peak, he understood that vengeance must be pursued with patience. One day, he vowed, he would transform that woman into a furnace for his own use. Upon entering the room, Qin Chen chose not to occupy the same bed as in his previous life, but instead settled on the opposite side of the common sleeping area. It was wise to avoid attracting attention. However, just as he arranged his bedding and prepared to meditate, a loud and unreasonable voice interrupted him. "Hey, stop tidying up. Clear this place out immediately. It's ours." Qin Chen looked up in astonishment, only to find Su Miaoyan and her companions standing before him. What the heck? Qin Chen glanced at his position. Indeed, he had changed his spot. Were these women akin to dogs, pursuing him even after 2 lifetimes? "Are you deaf? Didn't you hear us? Hurry up and scram." One of the women sneered. Ignoring their taunts, Qin Chen stood and surveyed the opposite side of the common area, where a towering man was making his bed. Suddenly, the situation dawned on him. So they were unwilling to provoke that giant and had decided to target him instead? Su Miaoyan, being Su Ruoli's cousin, could easily command everyone to sleep on the floor, yet she resorted to bullying him? Did he really appear that easy to intimidate? Being pursued and attacked across 2 lifetimes? A mere mortal's wrath could spill blood. Qin Chen, though quick to anger, chose to yield this time. "Ladies, please," he said without hesitation, relinquishing his spot. A wise man does not suffer losses in front of him, and he would remember this incident involving Su Miaoyan in his ledger. Indeed a coward. Su Miaoyan cast a disdainful glance at Qin Chen before she and her companions claimed his bed. As for Qin Chen, he gathered his bedding and retreated to a corner. Not far away, there sat the sinister man who had classified the cauldrons in the previous life. The ominous figure was seated in a meditative posture, only glancing casually at Qin Chen as he passed by, showing little interest. Qin Chen, however, scrutinized the man in secret. Based on his experiences from the past, he recognized that this individual possessed considerable insight and seemed to have an acquaintance with Su Ruoli, indicating he was no ordinary person. After a thorough observation, Qin Chen could not discern the rumored aura of a turtle emanating from him. Thus, he withdrew his focus and concentrated on his own cultivation. In his previous life, he had barely broken through to the 4th level of qi refinement by consuming a blood-burning pill, which had been perfectly preserved with the help of the sovereign. One must admit, the blood-burning pill was indeed a remarkable item, capable of facilitating a complete breakthrough in a mere moment. In this life, the system had generously provided him with a blood-burning pill, which he intended to utilize wisely, perhaps consuming one when on the brink of death. Indeed, maximizing the benefits of mortality. 7 days later, Su Ruoli arrived as promised. During these 7 days, Qin Chen refrained from practicing, fearing that the noise of his cultivation would disturb others. Meanwhile, the sinister man nearby exuded a foul stench on the very first night, only to discreetly step out for a bath. In less than a day, he successfully crossed the threshold of qi refinement. Indeed, he harbored secrets. Consequently, Qin Chen marked him for close observation. Next came the familiar testing phase. As he tested with the trial stone, Qin Chen was anxious that Su Ruoli might uncover something amiss, his nerves frayed. Fortunately, Su Ruoli seemed entirely disinterested in probing their internal spiritual energy, allowing him to pass undetected. Moreover, feigning cowardice in front of Su Miaoyan proved effective this time. She did not report him, merely casting a scornful glance as she passed by after the test. That expression seemed to mock the notion that someone like Qin Chen could succeed in the assessment. In his heart, Qin Chen made an international friendly gesture, mentally tagging her as a target for vengeance. Should she fall into his hands, he would ensure she understood the meaning of cruelty. After the tests, the dozen or so successful candidates followed Su Ruoli to the Inyang Hall to meet with Cold Moon. This time, Qin Chen had learned his lesson and dared not meet Cold Moon's gaze. Yet, avoiding eye contact did not hinder his appreciation of her long, graceful legs, truly a perfect work of art. Having admired this artistry, he and the others accompanied Su Ruoli to the 6 Desires Hall to collect their identity tokens. In his previous life, it was here that Su Ruoli had taken him away, subjecting him to torment until death. However, in this life, Qin Chen sidestepped that pitfall. successfully enduring to obtain his identity token while remaining discreet and unnoticed. After receiving the token, Su Ruoli led the group back to the second peak at the mountainside. The residence of the formal disciples of Yifeng is established here. You may each find an unoccupied cave to settle in. Currently, Yifeng boasts a total of 82 formal disciples. Within the sect, seniority is not determined by the order of entry but rather by strength. Those of greater cultivation rank as senior brothers and sisters. Do you understand? Su Ruoli spoke in a calm tone. Yes. The crowd replied in unison. Now, all actions within the sect are governed by the disciple regulations. Those who err will face penalties. Mild infractions lead to fines, while grave mistakes may result in death. Upon returning, familiarize yourselves with the disciple regulations, for should you transgress, even the hall master cannot protect you. Su Ruoli admonished, then pointed to a woman not far away, saying, "This is the deputy steward of Yifeng, Liu. She will assign you tasks shortly. Unless it is of utmost importance, do not disturb me." With that, Su Ruoli turned and departed. Liu chuckled. Sister Su has this temperament. You will grow accustomed to it. You have one day to settle into your cave. Tomorrow at noon, we shall reconvene here, where I will assign you tasks and provide a detailed introduction to Yifeng. Chapter 14. Have you brought gifts? Having gained experience from the bed selection, Qin Chen discreetly positioned himself at the end of the line for cave selection. Once everyone else had made their choices, he opted for a cave in a corner. Although it was old and small, it was inconspicuous, making it perfect for stealth. Moreover, receiving a cave assignment upon entering was a benefit Qin Chen greatly appreciated. After spending the better part of the day, he completed a simple renovation of the cave. He sealed the drafts and leaks and crafted 2 pieces of furniture. By the time he finished, night had already fallen. Qin Chen lay on the bed, resting while shifting a palm-sized wooden board aside. He had carved a hole in the wall, allowing him to observe most of the cave's activity by simply moving the covering board. A significant reason for choosing this cave was its advantageous geographical position. Suddenly, Qin Chen's gaze sharpened. Someone stealthily emerged from a cave, glancing around cautiously before departing. Soon after, another individual slipped out, tiptoeing away. Judging by their direction, they seemed to be heading towards Deputy Steward Liu Xian's cave. Qin Chen remained discreet, memorizing their appearances. The following day at noon, at the foot of the mountain, the group once again encountered Liu Xian. After counting the number present, she spoke. From this day forth, you are officially disciples of Inyang Hall Yifeng. As newly admitted formal disciples, you will be responsible for various matters within the peak. As she spoke, Liu Xian produced several jade slips, distributing them among the crowd. The responsibilities of the formal disciples of Inyang Hall are primarily twofold. First, the daily care of the cauldron within the grand formation at the peak, and second, the transportation of cauldrons to the 6th Desire Hall when there are orders. Transporting cauldrons requires disciples of at least the 3rd layer of Qi refinement to pilot flying boats. As your cultivation does not meet this requirement, you will initially be responsible for the daily upkeep of the spiritual cauldron and blood cauldron. Within the jade tablet lies a series of considerations for the care of the furnace tripod, along with annotations regarding the disciples assigned to the task. Shortly, each of you shall take the jade tablet and seek out your respective charges for the handover, Liu Xian explained. At this moment, a voice of confusion arose. Sister Liu, what about those without jade tablets? The individual gestured towards a few, including Su Miayun and a sinister-looking man, who were devoid of jade tablets. Liu Xian's expression remained indifferent. I happen to require a few hands to assist. They will remain here at my side, awaiting instructions. Do you have an objection? The questioner, realizing the inappropriateness of his inquiry, promptly fell silent. Meanwhile, Qin Chen observed the demeanor of those individuals and suddenly grasped the situation. The notion of remaining to await orders was mere pretense. The tasks had already been distributed, leaving those individuals with nothing further to do. Moreover, Qin Chen distinctly recalled that these were the same people who had stealthily departed the cave residence the previous night. At the time, their intentions were unclear, but it was now evident. They had gone to present gifts to Liu Xian. It was apparent that while Liu Xian could have assigned tasks to everyone yesterday, she deliberately chose to delay for a day under the guise of allowing time for tidying the cave residence. In truth, she had set aside an entire night to observe who would bring gifts. How shameless. Remember, you are disciples of the Huan sect, but more importantly, you are disciples of the Inyang Hall. Regardless of the task at hand, the completion of assignments mandated by the peak must take precedence. Failure to do so will result in disciplinary action as per the sect's regulations, Liu Xian added with a smile before departing. Through this brief interaction, Qin Chen had formed a preliminary assessment of the 2 stewards of the Yi Peak. Su Ruoli struck him as a cold-hearted vixen, though stunningly beautiful. Her demeanor was icily aloof. After escorting them to Yi Peak, she had assumed the role of a detached overseer. Conversely, Lu Xian embodied the guise of a friendly tiger. She appeared approachable, but showed no mercy in her dealings, delivering an immediate lesson upon their arrival. As he watched Su Miaoyun and her companions depart without a care in the world, those assigned tasks could do little but seethe in frustration. Spitting derisively at the retreating figures, Qin Chen picked up the jade tablet and infused it with a surge of spiritual energy. The contents within the tablet promptly manifested in his mind. The instructions were minimal, primarily warnings against disturbing the formations and reminders to exercise caution while delivering supplies to the furnace tripod. Finally, the information regarding the disciples responsible for the handover was provided. Following the details, Qin Chen located a cave residence. Upon encountering Qin Chen, the disciple's eyes lit up, and he eagerly pulled Qin Chen into the cave, his enthusiasm somewhat overwhelming. "Brother Liu," Qin Chen began, yet was swiftly interrupted by the disciple before he could articulate his purpose. "No need to explain, little brother. I completely understand." Lu Yuan clapped his chest. "You must be the Qin who is taking over my duties, right? I've already been informed. Come, let us hasten to complete the handover." Witnessing the other's eagerness for the transition, Qin Chen felt a sudden chill. "My friend, your urgency in this handover is making me a bit anxious." Lu Yuan directly took the jade slip from Qin Chen's hand and tossed it aside. "Brother Qin, to be frank, what's inscribed on that jade slip is utter nonsense. It's not worth your attention. By the way, have you retrieved your disciple token? Have you ever utilized the function to transfer contribution points?" The abrupt shift in conversation left Qin Chen momentarily bewildered. Transfer of contribution points? Indeed. Contribution points can not only be traded with the sect, but can also be privately transferred. It's evident you are unaware of this. Hand over your token, and I shall instruct you. Skeptically, Qin Chen produced his disciple token. Upon seeing this, Lu Yuan chuckled reassuringly. "Fear not, brother Qin. When you first joined, the sect retained a drop of your blood essence, which is embedded within your disciple token. Unless you willingly grant permission, no one can tamper with the contribution points within your token. However, should you meet your demise, the blood essence will dissipate along with the token, rendering it ineffective and leading to the reclamation of the contribution points by the sect." At this, Qin Chen smirked inwardly. Truly, the demonic sect is shrewd. They reclaim contribution points upon a disciple's death. With this thought, Qin Chen hastily clasped his hands in respect. "I would be grateful for your guidance, Senior Brother Liu." Lu Yuan grinned. "It's no trouble at all. Simply infuse your spiritual energy into the disciple identity token, and you'll be able to manipulate it." Following Lu Yuan's instructions, Qin Chen attempted to channel his spiritual energy into the identity token. In the next moment, he felt a surge of control over the disciple token. Within it lay the 10 contribution points gifted upon his initiation. With a mere thought, he could transfer them at will. At that moment, Lu Yuan retrieved his own identity token and placed it on the table. "Come, junior brother, give the transfer of contribution points a try," Lu Yuan urged. Understanding the implications, Qin Chen realized Lu Yuan had been waiting for him. Teaching him the use of the identity token was merely a ruse for extortion. Nevertheless, as a newcomer without the backing that others like Su Miaoyun possessed, he was in dire need of someone to enlighten him about the affairs of Yifeng. Thus, he concentrated and transferred 5 contribution points. Upon sensing the addition of 5 contribution points to his token, Lu Yuan feigned surprise. "Oh, brother Qin, what are you doing? How did you transfer 5 contribution points at once? Was that a mistake? Come, let me return it." Yet, despite his words, he made no move to do so. Qin Chen clasped his hands in respect. "This small token of appreciation is a courtesy from your junior brother to you, senior brother. I hope you won't disdain it, and I will require your guidance as I navigate my time in Yifeng." Lu Yuan, upon hearing this, realized that his junior brother was quite astute. He chuckled as he accepted the disciple token. "Since it is a gesture from you, I shall graciously accept it. However, since you have been so sincere, I shall not keep my insights to myself. Over the past 2.5 years, I have gathered some knowledge regarding the daily lives of the furnace disciples, which I now generously share with you." Chapter 15. I know you are anxious, but do not rush. More work summaries? It's worth noting that insights left behind by departing employees are indeed treasures. Observing Lu Yuan's reaction, it is evident that he would not have broached such a matter had he not received some contribution. It seems that the 5 contribution points were not wasted. Qin Chen expressed, "I humbly request your guidance, Senior Brother Liu." Lu Yuan, with a smug expression, inquired through the jade slip. "How often do you intend to provide food and water to the furnace things?" After some contemplation, Qin Chen replied, "Once a day." Lu Yuan, with a hint of amusement, posed a rhetorical question. "Now tell me, how many days can a person survive without food or drink?" Upon hearing this, Qin Chen suddenly understood. The implication from his senior brother was clear. I haven't said anything, but you see, human potential is immense. Going without sustenance for 3 to 5 days typically does not lead to dire consequences. Realizing this, Qin Chen responded affirmatively. Liu Yuan continued. 3 to 5 days is ample time for you to undertake some simple tasks at the outer hall. Although the rewards may be meager, sometimes merely spirit stones without any contribution points, anything is better than nothing, wouldn't you agree? Accumulate 50 contribution points, and you can exchange them for a storage ring, making the delivery of daily necessities to the furnace dings much more effortless. Furthermore, while our work may be somewhat taxing, it is not devoid of benefits. As he spoke, a hint of lewdness gleamed in Liu Yuan's beady eyes. Curious, Qin Chen inquired, benefits? What kind of benefits? Liu Yuan chuckled. Though we are the lowest-ranking outer disciples, we possess control over the living supplies of those furnace dings. With such resources, manipulating 1 or 2 of them to fulfill our needs becomes a trivial matter. Upon Liu Yuan's explanation, Qin Chen began to grasp the situation. Observing Liu Yuan, he felt a mix of emotions. Liu Yuan's attire was nearly tattered, and his unkempt beard suggested he had not groomed himself in days. Yet, despite his unrefined appearance, he had a way of enticing the furnace dings. It must be said, Liu Yuan is indeed a remarkable character. Senior brother, it is time to set aside these trivial matters and focus on your cultivation. Some of our peers who entered at the same time have already reached the 6th or 7th layer of qi refinement, while I remain stagnated at the 3rd layer. It is truly disheartening, Liu Yuan lamented. Qin Chen offered a few compliments before taking his leave. As he departed, Liu Yuan handed Qin Chen several bottles of fasting pills. These pills were intended for the furnace dings to consume regularly. They may not be valuable, yet one must periodically retrieve them from the 6 Desires Hall. Liu Yuan, taking a liking to Qin Chen, provided him with a few bottles, thus sparing him the arduous journey up the mountain. Moments later, as Qin Chen finished his preparations and was about to head to the summit to observe the furnace dings raised at E-Peak, 3 individuals approached him. Junior brother Qin, we 3 are also tasked with managing the spirit power furnace dings. We must look out for one another in the future, the leading woman stated. The trio before him comprised female disciples who had joined the sect alongside Qin Chen, seemingly of similar age. He vaguely remembered their names. The speaker was Hui Jing, while the other 2 were Yu Zhu and Su Yasi. However, Qin Chen did not greet them warmly. Is there something you need? With a cold expression, Qin Chen inquired. Within the sect, status is determined by strength. Given that the other party entered the sect alongside him, they should appropriately refer to him as Brother Qin. Yet, instead, they addressed him as Junior Brother Qin, adopting a condescending demeanor. What does this imply? Are they attempting to suppress him from the outset? Su Miaoyun and her companions were individuals of influence he could not afford to offend. However, did these unprivileged few also wish to trample upon him? Absolutely not. Upon observing Qin Chen's indifferent demeanor, Hui Jing and her companions scoffed inwardly. They had witnessed Qin Chen's subservient behavior before Su Miaoyun. So whom was he trying to impress now? Junior brother Qin. The situation is as follows. The 3 of us intend to visit the 6 Desires Hall to collect the fasting pills for the furnace, but the journey is quite long. We wonder if you could assist us? Hui Jing proposed. Indeed, Junior brother Qin, while we have already entered the qi refinement stage, we have yet to strengthen our bodies. The distance is truly exhausting, echoed the other 2 women. Furthermore, since you are headed there anyway, could you kindly bring back the fasting pills for us? Qin Chen smiled. Merely fetching the fasting pills is not sufficient. Why not allow me to carry some water for my senior sisters as well? Managing the furnace primarily involves recording its status and distributing fasting pills and water among other necessities. According to Liu Yuan, decades ago, there was a spring at the peak of Yifeng Mountain, but it mysteriously disappeared, necessitating the hauling of water uphill. Those with storage rings could effortlessly bring water up the mountain, yet a single storage ring costs 50 contribution points, a sum far beyond the means of disciples laboring at the bottom. The 3 women had previously fretted over how to transport water, and unexpectedly, just when they were feeling drowsy, Qin Chen offered them a solution. Excellent. Junior brother Qin, your enthusiasm is commendable. We shall graciously accept your offer. Since you are carrying water for us, perhaps you could also assist with distributing the fasting pills? We assure you that we will not let your efforts go unrewarded. The 3 women eagerly replied. Ah, one shameless, one greedy for more, and one weaving grand illusions. Truly, they are something else. Is my sarcasm not evident enough? Or are these 3 simply incapable of understanding? I have made my intentions quite clear, yet they remain oblivious. Senior sisters, since we are all in the Hahuan sect, let's forego talk of rewards. Instead, how about the 3 of you join me in practicing the Hahuan technique? This profound skill encompasses numerous intricate postures, a wealth of knowledge that I am yet to grasp. I hope the 3 senior sisters can personally elucidate it for me, Qin Chen suggested. Upon hearing this, the 3 women simultaneously frowned. Qin Chen, What do you mean by that? Umph. Asking us for assistance is already a favor to you. How dare you become demanding? Indeed. You ought to reflect on your own worth. You are merely a mediocre disciple who barely passed the assessment. How dare you entertain the thought of engaging with us? Ridiculous. The three women, akin to a relentless barrage, launched a verbal onslaught upon Qin Chen. Look, they are already flustered. I understand your urgency, but do refrain for a moment. Given your innate talents, there will be ample opportunities for you to be impatient in the future. By the way, when I suggested your company, it was merely in jest. After all, you lack both beauty and physique, leaving only the fleeting allure of imminent release. Qin Chen replied. The one thing he feared not was a war of words. Previously, with just a few cutting remarks, he had managed to rattle Su Miaoyan, showcasing his prowess. The three women, in their eagerness, had indeed overstepped their bounds. Without allowing them a moment to react, Qin Chen turned and departed. This exemplified the pinnacle of verbal combat, the most refined aspect of it, regardless of one's combat prowess. Even if one could merely utter the simplest of insults, if one could swiftly disengage after the exchange, leaving the opponent without a target for retaliation, the impact of the attack could be maximized. Indeed, by the time Dong Jing and the others processed what had transpired, Qin Chen had already vanished from sight. How dare he insult us? Yu Zhu seethed with indignation, gritting her teeth. We must report him for slandering a fellow disciple. According to the sect rules, he shall be fined spirit stones. Su Yasi exclaimed furiously. Dong Jing enunciated coldly, we possess no evidence. How can we accuse him? Nonetheless, we shall keep this incident in mind, and should the opportunity arise, he will surely pay for today's affront. Chapter 16. Fragments of the ancient map on the steps leading up the mountain. Qin Chen poured 2 buckets of spring water, walking while lamenting. According to his plan, upon entering the sect, he should have adhered to a cautious and prudent approach, avoiding any provocations. Yet time and again, his tongue outpaced his heart. Years of experience had instilled in him a muscle memory. The moment his opponent hurled an insult, the reflexes buried deep within him would awaken, triggering an automatic counterattack. Often, he would not even realize what had transpired before his adversary had already flushed with anger. This was a necessity, after all, in the past. A moment's hesitation online could result in dire consequences. Fortunately, Dong Jing and her companions appeared to lack any influential backing. Otherwise, they would not be relegated to the same menial tasks as himself. Henceforth, he merely needed to exercise caution and avoid providing them with any leverage. An hour later, Qin Chen reached the mountaintop, carrying the water. Although he possessed cultivation, he felt no fatigue. However, the ascent and descent consumed half a day, indeed hindering his training. It was no wonder Liu Yuan, after 2.5 years in the sect, remained stuck at the 3rd level of qi training. At the summit, Qin Chen gazed out, observing that the mountain peak appeared as though it had been cleaved by a colossal sword, leaving only an impeccably flat stone surface. A dozen or so hemispherical large formations lay inverted upon the ground like bowls. A soft blue luminescence flowed through the formations, creating a surreal spectacle. Liu Yuan had described this formation as the soul-locking array. By employing a unique technique to extract a fragment of the furnace spirit and connecting it with the array, one could ensure the furnace could not escape. Moreover, the Great Formation possesses a distinctive characteristic. It continuously extracts the spiritual or vital essence of those bound by the soul-locking spell to sustain its operation. In simpler terms, it is akin to using one's arm to strangle one's throat, resembling a perpetual motion machine. Each formation houses dozens of cauldrons, comprised of both men and women. The mental states of these cauldrons remain relatively stable, albeit slightly haggard due to prolonged confinement. Upon seeing Qin Chen, many rose with glimmers of hope in their eyes. However, as Qin Chen approached the formation designated as B, the others within the remaining formations exhaled in disappointment and returned to their seats. With an identity token in hand, Qin Chen entered the soul-locking formation unimpeded. Upon his arrival, the cauldrons in formation B surged towards him as if he were a benefactor delivering relief supplies. Good sir, are you here to distribute the fasting pills? They implored. Please, we have not eaten or drank for 2 days and are on the brink of starvation. I want water. I want water. Dozens surrounded Qin Chen, their pleas incessant. Silence, Qin Chen commanded, and the crowd immediately fell quiet. I am Qin Chen, and from this day forth, I shall oversee the cauldrons in Formation B. If you cooperate obediently, I will ensure timely provisions of food and water. However, should anyone dare to cause trouble, do not blame me for my ruthlessness in cutting off your supplies. He added ominously, oh, and merely cutting off supplies will not suffice. I shall also strip you of your trousers, leaving you bare in the days to come. At this proclamation, the expressions of the crowd shifted dramatically. Just as they thought they had rid themselves of the merciless Liu Yuan, Here came an even more brutal figure. The thought of being stripped bare was indeed harrowing. At that moment, someone in the crowd shouted, "According to the rules of the Inyang Hall, you must deliver supplies to us daily. This is mistreatment. We shall report you to the overseers." Hearing this, a slight smile curled at the corners of Qin Chen's mouth. It is well known that there exists a saying about killing the chicken to scare the monkey. When implementing a stringent rule, it is crucial for someone to serve as an example, thereby deterring others. Now, this chicken had stepped forward. With a swift motion, Qin Chen kicked over a water bucket, causing the precious spring water he had laboriously transported to cascade onto the ground. The onlookers were left in stunned silence. "You there, the one who just shouted. Yes, you. Do not hide. Step forward." Qin Chen pointed at a man in the crowd who was attempting to shrink back. "You were the one who threatened to report me. Were you not? Come, I offer you a chance." Clearing his throat slightly, Qin Chen proclaimed loudly, "Thus, due to your audacity, I hereby declare that for the next 3 days, you shall receive no food or water. However, considering this is your first offense, I shall extend an opportunity, within the time it takes for a stick of incense to burn, if you manage to strip him of his trousers. This punishment shall be revoked." This maneuver was designed to incite internal discord. Indeed, upon hearing Qin Chen's decree of a 3-day supply stoppage, the crowd erupted in shock and dismay, as Qin Chen proclaimed that the individual who had shouted could be spared punishment if his trousers were forcibly removed. The expressions of those present shifted dramatically. Like ravenous wolves, they turned their gazes toward the man who had called out. "What are you all looking at me for?" Ding Hao gulped audibly, clutching his trousers tightly. "It's him. Strip him of his pants. Let us all charge at him. If we can get his trousers off, we'll have food to eat." The crowd erupted in a fervent chant, surging forward. Within the confines of the soul-locking array, Ding Hao was unable to harness any spiritual power. Relying solely on his physical strength, he had no chance to resist. He couldn't even utter a plea for mercy before being overwhelmed by the throng. Moments later, a pair of trousers flew out from the mass. Accompanying it was a scream filled with anguish, laced with shame, and tinged with despair. As the crowd dispersed, they revealed Ding Hao, squatting on the ground, hands covering his private parts. Fortunately, his garment was long enough to offer some semblance of modesty. Ding Hao's face was a mask of indignation as he looked toward Qin Chen. "Brother Qin, I concede. I truly concede. From now on, if anyone dares to defy you, I shall be the first to confront him. Please, grant me the chance to put my trousers back on." The cold wind swept past, leaving Ding Hao feeling quite exposed. Qin Chen stepped forward, crouching before Ding Hao. "You truly concede?" Ding Hao nodded vigorously, affirming, "I concede. I truly concede." Qin Chen chuckled softly. "Alas, it is too late." As Qin Chen turned to leave, Ding Hao, disregarding his embarrassment, hurriedly clung to Qin Chen's leg. "Grandmaster Qin, I was once a disciple of the Infeng of the Inyang Hall. For the sake of our shared sect, please grant me a chance. If you spare me, I can reveal a secret to you." Upon hearing the word secret, Qin Chen's interest was piqued. He waved his hand, signaling the others to depart, and then addressed Ding Hao. "Do you know the fate that awaits those who deceive me? If you dare to trick me, it won't simply be a matter of removing your trousers." Ding Hao trembled at his words, quickly shaking his head. "I wouldn't dare. Grandmaster Qin, I truly was a disciple of Infeng, but I fell into the vice of gambling and could not repay my debts, which is how I became a furnace cauldron. Previously, my cave dwelling was labeled Huangzi Binghao. Beneath the floor tiles of my bed lies a fragment of an ancient map. I surmise that the location indicated by this ancient map is likely an ancient cave dwelling. I now offer this map to you, hoping for your leniency." Qin Chen's mind stirred. Huangzi Binghao? Wasn't that his own residence? "Oh, you didn't deceive me about Huangzi Binghao?" Qin Chen's eyes flickered, as though weighing the veracity of Ding Hao's claims. "Grandmaster, in my current state, how could I dare to deceive you? You would know the truth once you arrive." Ding Hao, covering his lower half, pleaded with Qin Chen in a rather humiliating posture. Seeing this, Qin Chen disdainfully waved his hand. Ding Hao's heart leaped with joy. Disregarding his modesty, he dashed toward his trousers. Qin Chen produced some fasting pills, distributing one to each person present. As he was about to depart, he approached Ding Hao and gently patted the elder's face. "Though I am a newcomer, I possess numerous methods of torment. Have you ever heard of the 10 most excruciating tortures? Those are merely appetizers. Should you dare to deceive me, even if the sect regulations prevent me from taking your life, I have ample means to make your existence a living hell." Ding Hao gulped nervously, swallowing hard, and humbly replied, "I wouldn't dare." Upon returning to his cave dwelling, Qin Chen suppressed his curiosity. He waited until the dead of night, cautiously securing the doors and windows before stealthily shifting the bed aside. By the flickering candlelight, he indeed discovered an unusual blue brick. The soil surrounding this brick was slightly loose, standing out conspicuously from the others. just as Qin Chen intended to extract the brick. He suddenly recalled something and halted his outstretched hand midair. Better to proceed with caution, he murmured to himself, retrieving a wooden stick to delicately pry the blue brick loose. With a swift motion, the moment the brick was displaced, an almost imperceptible shadow shot out from beneath it, narrowly grazing Qin Chen's scalp before burrowing into the wall. This scene instantly drenched Qin Chen in cold sweat. Ding Hao, you have paved your path to demise. Observing the poisoned silver needle extracted from the wall's small opening, Qin Chen felt a surge of anger. The demonic sect is riddled with traps. A degenerate gambler reduced to a cauldron could still ensnare himself. Had he not been deceived twice before, gaining some insight into the character of the sect's disciples, he might have fallen into Ding Hao's trap once again. How brazen. To scheme against someone even after having his pants stripped away. However, it was the dead of night, and thoughts of revenge against Ding Hao would have to be postponed. Instead, the object concealed beneath the blue brick piqued Qin Chen's curiosity. After meticulously ensuring there were no additional traps or poisons, Qin Chen finally retrieved the cloth pouch from beneath the blue brick and emptied its contents onto the table. A piece of yellow-brown beast hide and several translucent stones were revealed. With Qin Chen's keen eye, he could not discern the material of the hide. Nevertheless, as Ding Hao had mentioned, it was indeed etched with patterns resembling maps, and the items did not appear new. Their value remained uncertain, so he decided to set them aside for the time being. As for the 5 stones, each the size of a fingernail and semi-transparent with hints of pale blue, he could feel the rich spiritual energy contained within. Undoubtedly, these were spirit stones. Judging by their size and hue, they were likely low-grade spirit stones. 5 low-grade spirit stones were akin to a fortuitous blessing for Qin Chen at this moment. After presenting a gift to Liu Yuan, he found himself with a mere 5 contribution points remaining. These 5 low-grade spirit stones effectively doubled his savings. Holding them in his hand, he was inexplicably filled with a sense of happiness. The long night stretched ahead. Qin Chen was invigorated and ready to seize the moment. With a modicum of carpentry experience, he worked tirelessly through the night to create a hidden compartment beneath the bed, where he stowed away remnants of animal hide and Liu Hanbing's pouch. After all, it was imprudent to carry such items while constantly on the move. As for the identity token he had discovered, he meticulously sewn it into the hem of his garment, ensuring it was always within reach. Remarkably, this entire endeavor took scarcely over an hour. Eager and invigorated, Qin Chen was determined not to squander any time. He retrieved the thick tome of disciple regulations and began to peruse it from the very first page. In his previous life, it was the disciple regulations that had ensnared him, leading to his untimely demise due to an inability to pay a mere low-grade spirit stone fine. As the saying goes, experience is the best teacher. This time, he was resolute in mastering the sect's rules. However, upon delving into the regulations, he was met with a rather shocking revelation. The initial section of the disciple regulations provided a brief overview of the 6 major halls of the Hahuan sect, which aligned closely with what Su Miaoyun had previously conveyed. Yet, the subsequent sections, which truly outlined the disciple regulations, left Qin Chen astounded. The first rule stated, disciples of the Hahuan sect must mutually respect one another, fostering an atmosphere of friendship and assistance. Any act of insult towards fellow disciples would incur a penalty of 1 contribution point or spirit stone. The second rule strictly prohibited private duels among disciples. Violators would face penalties ranging from 10 contribution points upward, depending on the severity of the infraction. The third rule stipulated that should a conflict between disciples result in death, penalties would be enforced based on the deceased disciple's status, starting at 100 contribution points, with no upper limit. As he continued to read, he encountered hundreds of additional rules, all aimed at regulating disciple behavior. Inciting trouble led to fines. Theft and trafficking resulted in fines. Even littering incurred penalties. A profound sense of helplessness washed over Qin Chen. This document ought not to be titled Regulations of the Hahuan Sect Disciples, but rather How to Raise a Good Child. Even in the presence of a sage, joining the Hahuan sect came with its own fines. He began to suspect that the notorious reputation of the demonic sect disciples stemmed from this very set of regulations. After all, within the sect, the natural inclinations of these disciples were incessantly suppressed. Not only were fights prohibited, but even uttering insults was punishable. All negative emotions had to be vented outside the sect, truly the root of all evils. Gazing at the imposing tome of disciple regulations before him, Qin Chen's expression turned grave. He realized that he would need to employ a long-dormant traditional skill to read and memorize the entire text aloud. This way, he would not fall prey to traps laid by others using the regulations against him. Moreover, if wielded wisely, this tome could become a potent tool in his hands. He devoted the entire night to this task. With dawn's arrival, Qin Chen stowed away the disciple regulations and made his way towards the peak. He refrained from hastily confronting Ding Hao, knowing the rascal could not escape, for there were more pressing matters at hand. At the foot of the mountain, Qin Chen boarded a public flying vessel and soared through the skies for half a day before finally descending upon an extraordinarily majestic peak. Before a vast complex of buildings, the three characters' Foreign Affairs Hall shimmered brilliantly under the sun. This junior brother, wishing to leave the Foreign Affairs Hall and await the public flying boat, was reminded by the monk controlling the vessel. There is a flight every half an hour, with the last one departing at the hour of the dog. Do not miss your time. Qin Chen cupped his hands in gratitude, acknowledging his senior's advice. Watching the public flying boat fade into the distance, his heart ached. The demon sect was indeed excessively mercenary. Even the public flying boats required contribution points. A payment of 2 contribution points was necessary to activate the boarding privileges of the identity token, valid for only a month. It was utterly outrageous. Gritting his teeth, Qin Chen turned and entered the Foreign Affairs Hall. Chapter 18. Such a good opportunity. I shall leave it to others. Qin Chen had thought that the 6 Desires Hall of the Inyan Hall was already quite large. However, the Foreign Affairs Hall before him was several times larger. The hall was bustling with people, filled with the cacophony of shouts. Although it was a sect devoted to cultivation, it gave Qin Chen the distinct impression of a bustling market. Seeking to hunt the magical beast, salty water crocodile, a 3-star mission. We are short 1 member. Those at Qi refining level 5 and above, please bring your own magical tools. Rewards will be shared. Team up to hunt righteous cultivators, a 5-star mission. Cultivators at Foundation Establishment level 3 and above, come to sign up for generous rewards. Similar to the 6 Desires Hall, the Foreign Affairs Hall categorized tasks based on their difficulty and danger, ranging from 1 to 9 stars. Tasks rated 1 to 3 stars were considered low level. 4 to 6 stars were mid-level, and 7 to 9 stars were high level. Qin Chen, understanding his own limitations, did not hesitate and proceeded directly to the low-level task area. After observing for a moment, he formed a rough idea. The tasks available in the low-level area were mostly of a few types: caring for spiritual plants, searching for materials, running errands, or even locating lost spiritual pets. Although these tasks were not particularly difficult, they were time-consuming and labor-intensive, lacking any significant value. Naturally, the rewards for low-level tasks were pitifully low, typically only 1 or 2 contribution points. Occasionally, tasks with slightly higher rewards would appear, but they were snatched up almost instantaneously. Gazing at the scrolling tasks on the screen, Qin Chen furrowed his brow. It seemed there was little hope of accumulating contribution points through low-level tasks. Even with great effort, he would merely scrape by. Given this, it would be wiser to focus on cultivation, enhancing his strength first. Regretting his earlier decision, Qin Chen lamented the loss of those 2 contribution points. At that moment, 3 figures approached, blocking his view. Junior brother, you must have just joined the Huan sect, right? The leading male disciple surveyed Qin Chen with a kind smile. I am Zhong Yu, an official disciple of the Refining Hall, level 3 of Qi Refining. These are my junior sisters, Shi Yujie and Tong Tingting. Both are at level 2 of Qi Refining. Qin Chen observed the man and 2 women before him, retreating discreetly by half a step. Having encountered his senior brothers and sisters before, he began to speak but paused, clearing his throat. He produced a token from his bosom, saying, Indeed, I am but a newly initiated disciple of the sect. May I inquire what brings you here, esteemed seniors? Zhong Yu squinted at the identity token in Qin Chen's hand, smiling as he gestured invitingly. Ah, it is junior brother Peng. A pleasure to meet you. Might we have a word in private? Qin Chen, maintaining a calm demeanor, tucked away the identity token of Peng Tong and followed Zhong Yu and the others to a secluded corner. Indeed, the token he had just revealed was not his own. Initially, Liu Hanbing had resorted to underhanded tactics, eliminating a disciple of the Inyan Hall who had held her alchemical furnace hostage, erasing all traces of the deed. During his escape, Qin Chen fortuitously stumbled upon the identity token of that disciple, which he had carried ever since and now found useful. Having endured the torment from the 2 senior sisters and narrowly escaped the treachery from Ding Hao, Qin Chen had developed a psychological aversion, perceiving everyone as potentially sinister. Thus, he refrained from revealing his true identity and instead produced Peng Tong's token, for in the world beyond, one's identity is often self-ascribed. Zhong Yu and the others likely never suspected that Qin Chen possessed 2 identity tokens, harboring no doubts. Upon reaching the corner, Zhong Yu smiled warmly and, in a conspiratorial tone, remarked, the sect is currently facing a scarcity of cultivation resources. Junior brother Peng has come to the External Affairs Hall, I presume, to earn contribution points for resources? Qin Chen feigned a distressed expression, exclaiming, Indeed, senior brother. All resources within the sect must be exchanged for contribution points. I intended to undertake a couple of tasks to earn some contributions, yet my skills are lacking. I am merely at the first level of qi refinement and have found no suitable tasks. Upon hearing this, Zhong Yu sighed and encouragingly patted Qin Chen's shoulder. We have all traversed the path of a junior brother, and we understand your difficulties. Just then, he added, by coincidence, we have just taken on a task of 2-star difficulty, with generous rewards. Would junior brother Peng be interested? Qin Chen's eyes flickered with curiosity. May I ask, what is the task, senior brother? Zhong Yu replied casually. The task is quite simple. Submit a spine bone of the silver moon wolf. I have received intelligence that a mature silver moon wolf has been sighted approximately 18,000 miles from the sect of harmonious pleasure in the outskirts of Huoshi City. If we work together to slay it, the task will be deemed complete. Qin Chen furrowed his brow and asked, Senior brother, having just entered the first level of qi refinement, is it not somewhat hasty to hunt a demonic beast? Hearing this, Shi Yujia chuckled softly, reassuring him, do not worry. Junior brother Peng, the strength of an adult silver moon wolf is merely on par with a cultivator of the second level of qi refinement. With senior brother Zhong leading the way, there should be no unforeseen incidents. Zhong Yu also smiled, adding, the path of cultivation is fraught with peril. It is prudent to exercise caution, junior brother. However, I must candidly inform you that this task was indeed issued by the deacon sister of the sea peak of the artifact refining hall. On one hand, she is currently engaged in crafting a magical tool and requires the spine bone of the silver moon wolf. On the other, it serves to provide the disciples of the peak with an opportunity to gain experience outside the sect. Hence, the task is virtually guaranteed to succeed, and the rewards are substantial. Upon concluding his remarks, Zhong Yu glanced around before wrapping an arm around Qin Chen's shoulders and lowering his voice. I imagine that junior brother Peng harbors some doubts about why I would seek you for such a seemingly foolproof task. To be candid, I have recently encountered a bottleneck in my cultivation and am considering acquiring a blood essence furnace to facilitate my breakthrough. The disciples of the Yin Yang Hall enjoy a preferential price for such purchases. Qin Chen's face illuminated with understanding, realizing the implications of this arrangement. It was common knowledge that disciples of the Yin Yang Hall received a 10% discount on furnace purchases. Many would acquire a furnace and subsequently sell it privately, reaping a modest profit, a practice colloquially known as proxy buying. This revelation rendered the situation entirely reasonable, and Qin Chen nodded in agreement. At this, Zhong Yu exchanged discreet glances with the two women beside him, a glint of secret delight evident in their eyes. Junior brother Peng, fret not, for this task. Your mere presence will suffice. Upon successful completion, you shall receive 3 contribution points as remuneration, and we shall also extend additional rewards for your assistance in procuring the furnace. As he spoke, Zhong Yu subtly signaled to the two women. Shi Yujia and Tong Tingting promptly understood and approached, one on each side, linking their arms with Qin Chen's. Junior brother Peng, opportunities like this do not come easily, they could. Indeed, as brother Zhong mentioned, should our collaboration prove fruitful, we will certainly seek your help in future furnace purchases, ensuring you are well compensated. It must be noted that after embarking on the path of cultivation, whether through the initial trials of bone refining and marrow washing or the long-term nurturing of spiritual energy, one's demeanor undergoes a profound transformation. Through Qin Chen's discerning eyes, it was evident that, in a previous life, the figures and beauty of these two women would certainly have placed them among the ranks of renowned starlets. Coupled with their deliberately alluring gestures, each smile and glance possessed an enchanting allure. Junior brother, what say you? Such an opportunity is rare. Do not let it slip away. Zhong Yu urged. Qin Chen nodded firmly. Brother, I have made my decision. Zhong Yu broke into a grin, ready to speak, when Qin Chen interjected. I have made my decision. Such a splendid opportunity should be afforded to those with greater need. Therefore, I must decline. Chapter 19. Who am I? I am of the Law Enforcement Hall. Qin Chen's declaration left Zhong Yu and his companions utterly flabbergasted. The trio exchanged bewildered glances, each hesitating to voice their astonishment. Were circumstances more amenable, Zhong Yu would have been inclined to seize Qin Chen by the collar and impart a lesson in propriety. You have joined the Harmony sect. Yet you, for the sake of profit, would betray your fellow disciples like a disciple of the demonic sect. The stakes are too high, thus. You deem it wise to relinquish this opportunity to those more in need? Could such words truly escape the lips of a disciple of the demonic sect? Are you playing the role of Kong Rong, yielding pairs? Alas, the rules governing disciples stipulated that physical altercations among peers would incur penalties. Zhong Yu, suppressing the impulse to strike Qin Chen, forced a smile and queried, Junior brother Peng, when opportunities present themselves, one must seize them decisively. Your tendency to hesitate is most unwise. Qin Chen shook his head once more, resolutely replying, there will be other opportunities. I must return to tend to the furnace. Without granting Zhong Yu a moment to persuade him further, he turned and departed. As they watched Qin Chen's retreating figure, Zhong Yu and his companions bore expressions akin to severe constipation, utterly disconcerted. "Brother, are we truly letting him go?" one queried. "Indeed, brother. It is not often we encounter such a plump target," Shi Yujia and Tong Tingting lamented in unison. Zhong Yu grit his teeth. Indeed, he was a prime target. Having just entered the sect, he possessed at least 7 or 8 contribution points, and with the skyrocketing prices of furnace materials, even his dismantled bones could fetch around 15 points in the black market, given his foundational cultivation at the first level of qi refinement. Alas, the boy is clearly deranged. Frustrated at the opportunity slipping away, Zhong Yu spat on the ground. However, scarcely had he done so when a fellow cultivator approached him, expressionless, stating, "Spitting in public is against the disciple code. You are fined 1 contribution point." Zhong Yu's expression stiffened. The other was clearly a disciple of the law enforcement hall, and he dared not retaliate, swallowing his anger as he silently paid the fine. "Let us proceed. The sect has recently recruited numerous new disciples, and we must continue our search." Zhong Yu spoke in a low tone. They had engaged in such endeavors many times before. New disciples tended to be rather naive, and with the lure of benefits, many would easily fall into their traps. In truth, only those who held a deep trust in one another would undertake tasks requiring cooperation. Even though the sect had regulations against harming fellow disciples, once outside its confines, creating an accident was quite simple. Without evidence, the sect would not escalate a grand investigation for a mere novice. Thus, Zhong Yu and his companions managed to accumulate considerable contribution points each year through such means. After meandering for a while, they set their sights on a bewildered female disciple. "This junior sister, you must have just joined Hahuan sect, haven't you?" As they surrounded the female disciple, attempting to manipulate her thoughts, not far off, a pair of eyes observed them surreptitiously. Qin Chen, hidden behind a pillar, cautiously scrutinized the trio from a distance. Indeed, his earlier departure had merely been a ruse. After wandering about, he had returned just in time to witness Zhong Yu and his companions attempting to engage the female disciple. "Surely, there is something amiss," Qin Chen scoffed quietly. Moments later, it appeared that Zhong Yu and his companions had reached an agreement with the female disciple, conversing amicably before departing with smiles. Once he confirmed their genuine exit, Qin Chen swiftly emerged from behind the pillar. "Stop," Qin Chen commanded, intercepting the female disciple. His serious demeanor startled her, a look of panic crossing her face. "Why, you are from the law enforcement hall." Qin Chen produced his identity token, waving it before the female disciple. Before she could discern its details, he swiftly tucked it back into his bosom. The young woman, clearly aware of the illustrious reputation of the law enforcement hall, paled visibly upon hearing that Qin Chen was affiliated with them. "Senior brother, I haven't done anything," she exclaimed, bewildered and at a loss. "Enough of your excuses. Present your identity token. I now suspect you of involvement in a task that contravenes the sect's regulations." Qin Chen stated impassively, extending his hand toward her. Truth be told, his heart raced like a drum at that moment. After all, he had never witnessed how the disciples of the law enforcement hall executed their duties and could only feign an air of arrogance. If she displayed even a hint of suspicion, he would undoubtedly retreat without a second thought. Fortunately, it was evident that she too had never encountered a disciple from the law enforcement hall. Without hesitation, she produced her identity token and handed it over to Qin Chen. "She men from the pill hall, S.A. Peak, is it?" Qin Chen inquired, jotting down her information. "Just now, 3 individuals sought you out. What was discussed?" She men recounted their conversation with utmost sincerity. Unsurprisingly, her words mirrored Qin Chen's own, all inviting her to join in the hunt for the Silver Moon Wolf. The only alteration was that while she had promised Qin Chen assistance in procuring an alchemical furnace, she had been asked to acquire pills for them. "Oh, quite adaptable in your conversation, I see. When is the departure scheduled?" "Day after tomorrow at the hour of the snake," Shi Min replied timidly. "Very well, I understand." Qin Chen returned her identity token, adding, "It seems I was mistaken. This task does not violate any rules. However, the law enforcement hall conducts its affairs discreetly. I trust you will keep this inquiry confidential, understood?" Shi Min longed to question why she was suspected of participating in an illicit task without evidence, only to have her concerns dismissed with a mere mistake. Was this what one called discretion? Yet, her seniors had long warned her of the law enforcement hall's notorious reputation and had specifically advised against offending its disciples. With that thought, she suppressed her indignation, snatched her identity token back from Qin Chen with a trace of irritation, and turned to leave. Qin Chen glanced around, ensuring no one had taken note of him, then hastily wiped the cold sweat from his palms and departed in a hurry. The day after tomorrow at the hour of the snake, destination, Huisher City. The task involved hunting an adult silver moon wolf, approximately equivalent to the second level of qi refinement, with a total of 4 participants, 1 at the 3rd level, 2 at the 2nd, and 1 at the 1st level. Qin Chen mentally compiled the fragmented information. Zhong Yu once remarked that opportunities must be seized when presented. As a 5th-level Qi refinement practitioner, he had no doubt he could handle the 4. As the saying goes, one cannot prosper without external wealth. A horse cannot thrive without night grass. At present, he possessed a mere 3 contribution points and 5 low-grade spirit stones, rendering him destitute. Should an opportunity arise, one might indeed strike a modest fortune from the likes of Zhong Yu and his companions. Even if such an opportunity eludes me, being aware of my surroundings while remaining concealed should enable a safe retreat. However, despite possessing considerable cultivation, I have yet to practice any offensive techniques. It seems prudent to visit the Hall of Transmission before embarking on my journey. I wonder if my limited resources will suffice to learn a technique. Without further ado, Qin Chen promptly boarded a public flying vessel en route to the Hall of Transmission. I must recover my contributions of 2 points per month. Chapter 20. To my surprise, you are quite the steady character. The Hall of Transmission boasts a peculiar design, comprising 7 levels, resembling a colossal stone tower. Yet, the ancient aura emanating from the hall suggests it is indeed an antiquity, unlike the Hall of 6 Pleasures or the Hall of External Affairs. The Hall of Transmission is surrounded by numerous caves, each radiating a terrifying presence that sends shivers down Qin Chen's spine. When he previously met with the master of the Yin-Yang Hall, Cold Moon, he did not feel such an overwhelming pressure. Could it be that the practitioners residing within these caves surpass Cold Moon in power? These densely packed caves, akin to a constellation of stars, are dizzying to behold. It appears these practitioners guard the vicinity of the Hall of Transmission to intimidate any nefarious individuals. Truly, this top-tier demonic sect possesses unfathomable depth. Lowering his gaze, Qin Chen hastened towards the Hall of Transmission. At the entrance, he mimicked the actions of the other disciples, producing his identity token to place upon the protective array surrounding the hall. Following a surge of spiritual energy, an entrance, tall as a person, materialized before him. Upon entering, he beheld an elderly man, his hair and beard completely white, reclining in a rocking chair. In one hand, he held a purple clay teapot, sipping leisurely, while the other hand busily manipulated 2 walnuts, their surfaces smooth and exquisite, exuding a jade-like quality, perhaps polished over many years. Ah, young one, you must be a newcomer. Yes, do not ponder too deeply. I am not some reclusive sage who plays with the world. I am merely an outer elder, resigned to a life of retirement. With no hope of breakthrough, the old man remarked, casting a sidelong glance at Qin Chen before lifting the teapot for another sip. Upon hearing this, Qin Chen cleared his throat. According to his understanding of the norms, this elder ought to be a venerable figure of the Hahuan sect. Engaging him in conversation, showcasing his eloquence, and garnering the elder's favor could lead to the bestowal of ancient secrets. Within moments, Qin Chen had formulated several potential phrases. A profound choice might be to quote the Tao Te Ching. The Tao that can be spoken is not the eternal Tao. A more pragmatic approach could involve echoing the words of Prime Minister Chao. I would rather bear the world's disdain than allow the world to disdain my integrity. As for the renowned lines of the 4 maxims of Henku, to establish the heart for heaven and earth, to establish the life for the populace, to inherit the teachings of the sages, and to bring peace to all ages, Qin Chen swiftly dismissed them. Should he utter such a phrase, the elder might very well leap up, accusing him of being an undercover agent of the righteous path. Despite countless calculations, the elderly figure before him unveiled his identity, exposing Qin Chen's hidden intentions. I have met the elder, Qin Chen said, bowing respectfully, his demeanor exceedingly humble. The disciple was uncertain of the elder's words. He merely found the elder's visage amiable and felt a sense of familiarity. As the saying goes, one does not strike a smiling face. One of Qin Chen's guiding principles was to respond to uncertainty with flattery. Upon hearing Qin Chen's words, the elder scrutinized him with interest and then coldly remarked, "How did the Hahuan sect recruit a slippery tongue like you? Begone. Remember, outer disciples are permitted to operate only on the 1st floor of the transmission hall. New entrants need only pay 1 contribution point for their initial purchase of a technique." Although his words were brusque, the elder's statement held significant value. 1 contribution point for a technique was akin to acquiring it for free. Qin Chen bowed once more and, after bidding farewell to the elder, made his way towards the densely packed shelves within the hall. The wooden shelves were lined with countless jade slips, and a cursory glance revealed there were likely over 10,000. This was merely the collection of techniques housed on the 1st floor of the transmission hall. After an extensive search, his feeble spiritual sense finally located a technique that seemed satisfactory, the everlasting spring technique. According to the description, this technique was seized from an orthodox sect and required no external resources for cultivation. solely absorbing the spiritual essence of heaven and earth. The only drawback was the initially sluggish pace of advancement for the first few years, which would gradually accelerate over time, a philosophy perfectly aligned with the technique's name. This is it, Qin Chen declared, lifting the jade slip with a look of contentment. Of course, what attracted Qin Chen was not the technique's gradual cultivation method, but rather its characteristic of requiring no supplementary resources. With empty pockets and merely 10 contribution points to his name, there were no other techniques more suitable than the everlasting spring technique. Upon presenting the jade slip to the elder, he noticed a visible twitch in the elder's facial muscles upon seeing the technique's name. Young man, allow me to offer a word of caution. This technique has not gone unpracticed, yet invariably, those who attempted it could not withstand the slow progress and ultimately switched to other techniques. Given your aptitude for cultivation, you may very well spend a lifetime without significant achievement, the elder stated flatly. Thank you for the reminder, elder. However, I am quite resilient in the face of solitude. What does a lifetime matter? I am undeterred, Qin Chen replied confidently. Indeed, he had to be confident, primarily because his meager savings could not support the cultivation of any other technique. During his search, he had even entertained thoughts of restarting his life. Yet upon reflection, he recognized that his cycles of reincarnation were not infinite, and the reincarnation tower consisted of only 100 levels, thus necessitating cherishing each lifetime. For now, he resolved to endure. I did not expect you to possess such a steady temperament. In that case, I shall refrain from further counsel, the elder said, expertly taking Qin Chen's identity token and deducting 1 contribution point. As he exited the transmission hall, he noted that the sky had darkened considerably. Upon boarding the public flying vessel, Qin Chen hurriedly returned to his cave dwelling to commence his cultivation. A day later, with a sharp crack, he crushed the teacup in his hand. It was not merely that his progress in cultivation was slow, it was unthinkably sluggish. After an entire day of effort, the spiritual energy within his meridians had scarcely shifted at all, were it not for the constant absorption of external spiritual energy. Qin Chen would have suspected something was amiss with his body. At this rate, it would take him half a year for the spiritual energy to circulate even once through his meridians. This wretched technique, named Eternal Spring Skill, should be renamed Turtle Skill for all it's worth. Fuming with indignation, Qin Chen made his way to the summit. Within the grand formation at the peak, Ding Hao breathed a sigh of relief upon realizing that Qin Chen had not shown up for 2 days. It seemed that the contingency plan I devised has indeed succeeded. Yet, without my trump card, how can I ensure my own survival? Ding Hao muttered to himself. The public humiliation of having his trousers pulled down by Qin Chen had been too great for him to bear. In a fit of rage, he had revealed his hidden card, seeking revenge on Qin Chen. The deadly silver spirit needle, obtained during a past expedition, was lethal to any ordinary Qi practitioners. Qin Chen, being a mere novice in the realm of Qi cultivation, would certainly not escape its grasp. By now, his corpse was likely already decomposing. The reason Ding Hao had kept this card hidden until now was that he awaited an opportunity to sell it to someone, feigning to disclose the existence of treasures to ensnare them in a deadly trap and regain his freedom. However, now everything had been ruined by Qin Chen. Just as he wallowed in regret, Ding Hao suddenly froze, rubbing his eyes vigorously, his expression akin to one who had seen a ghost. Qin Chen swaggered into view, appearing utterly unperturbed. Observing the terrified face of Ding Hao, Qin Chen snorted coldly, declaring, if you wish to eat and drink today, strip him of his clothing. Ding Hao, being a furnace for spiritual energy, was considered the property of the sect, making Qin Chen hesitant to kill him. Yet, he had no shortage of more cruel alternatives. Though the crowd was oblivious to how Ding Hao had offended Qin Chen, they surged toward him upon hearing Qin Chen's command. Before Ding Hao could utter a plea for mercy, he was engulfed by the tea. However, as the saying goes, fate brings enemies together. Just as Qin Chen descended the mountain, he encountered the trio of Hui Jing, Yu Zhu, and Su Yasi, who were ascending. Upon seeing Qin Chen, the 3 women did not retreat but advanced, blocking his path. Allow me to briefly outline the rules of this book. 1. If the free for love power reaches 500 on the same day, paid gifts are converted based on value. A chapter will be released the following day. 2. With the certification of a notable figure, another chapter will follow the next day. Dear readers, a single free for love power only nets me 0.01 yuan. But many drops make an ocean. If everyone watches an advertisement just once, that would suffice. If 3 times, I would be eternally grateful. A simple glance at an advertisement each day could yield 3 chapters. I humbly beseech your support. Chapter 21. Sisters, are you feeding the tiger with your own flesh? Good dogs do not obstruct the path. Qin Chen initiated with a swift maneuver. It was evident that these women approached with ill intentions, so he decided to exploit the situation to his advantage. Upon hearing Qin Chen's words, the 3 women were momentarily taken aback, then instantly infuriated. After being mercilessly berated by Qin Chen previously, their anger boiled over. After much deliberation, they devised a cunning plan to deal with Qin Chen, to entice him and then, at a crucial moment, accuse him of intentional misconduct. It is known that while the Huan sect offers numerous dual cultivation methods, it strictly prohibits coercing fellow disciples into such practices. However, the furnace cauldron is not protected by this regulation. Moreover, the beneficial dual cultivation methods primarily exist within the inner sect, while outer sect disciples typically practice unilateral absorption techniques, making few willing to risk engaging in dual cultivation. Imagine, while performing the sacred rites, one finds their cultivation completely absorbed by another. Such perilous scenarios deter most from engaging with unfamiliar cultivators. In fact, the vast majority of cultivators in the Huan sect only partake in dual cultivation after finding a partner. Prior to that, they merely acquire furnace cauldrons for absorption. Last night, as Hu Jing and her companions perused the sect's rules, they stumbled upon a particular clause: engaging forcibly with fellow disciples, depending on the severity of the offense. The extent of the violation and the victim's cultivation level incurs penalties starting at 100 contribution points, with no upper limit, and serious offenders may face confinement. As a newly initiated disciple, Qin Chen possessed a mere 10 contribution points. Should he be fined, he would be unable to pay, thus rendering him liable to be designated as a furnace cauldron. The trio's plan was meticulously crafted. Upon encountering Qin Chen, they feigned an apology, then invited him to a banquet, intending to intoxicate him and stage a faux incident to report to the law enforcement hall. At that point, regardless of how eloquently Qin Chen spoke, he would be unable to extricate himself from the situation. Yet, the three women were utterly unprepared for Qin Chen's unpredictable nature. Before they could utter a word, they were met with a scathing rebuke from Qin Chen. Yu Zhu, gritting her teeth and ready to retort, was halted by Hu Jing, who grasped her wrist. Hu Jing cast a glance at Yu Zhu, signaling her to refrain from acting impulsively, before smiling at Qin Chen and saying, "Junior brother Qin, we have come here to extend our apologies. Why do you treat us so harshly?" At this remark, Qin Chen could not help but scoff internally. Apologizing to him? What a farce. Perhaps a naive newcomer might be beguiled by the alluring demeanor of these three women, but he was different. After having faced peril multiple times, he had cultivated a keen understanding of the cultivators from the Huan sect. There wasn't a single virtuous individual among them. Nevertheless, Qin Chen was somewhat intrigued about how they intended to approach him. Apologies? What could that possibly mean? Qin Chen replied nonchalantly. Hu Jing smiled slightly. Last time, we were rather reckless in making unreasonable demands of you, junior brother. Today, we have prepared a feast to express our contrition, and we wish to discuss the matter of you assisting with the furnace's care. Of course, we shall ensure you are compensated with contribution points for your efforts. Oh, Qin Chen's eyes brightened with a gleam of avarice. Contribution points were indeed negotiable. Hu Jing raised her hand, smiling as she gestured invitingly. Shall we converse over a drink? With a grand wave of his hand, Qin Chen replied, let's go. Observing Qin Chen's triumphant retreat, the three women exchanged glances, a sneer of disdain gracing their faces. Indeed, these insufferable men were all the same. Upon hearing of wine, meat, and contribution points, they lost all sense of their worth. In Hu Jing's cave dwelling, the space had been meticulously arranged, with 7 or 8 exquisite dishes laid out on the table, accompanied by 2 bottles of wine. The wine bottles appeared to be crafted from jade, and upon entering, the rich aroma of the liquor enveloped them, signaling its exceptional quality. Gazing at the lavish spread, Hu Jing felt a pang of regret. She had certainly invested heavily to lure Qin Chen into their scheme. Junior brother Qin, this feast cost a total of 3 contribution points. Just look at this jade lobster. The vegetables are made from half-year-old spirit leaf grass, and the lobster has been nurtured in a spirit spring for 3 months. And observe this lemon snowflake beef. Hu Jing elaborated on the dishes, finally resting her finger on the jug of wine. This wine is brewed from dozens of spirit plants. A single sip provides enough spiritual power to sustain several days of arduous cultivation. As she spoke, Hu Jing gently lifted the wine jug and filled a cup for Qin Chen, presenting it to him with her graceful hand. Junior brother Qin, are you satisfied with our sincerity in this gesture of apology? Qin Chen chuckled, accepting the wine cup. However, instead of drinking, he placed it back on the table. Such lavish hospitality from my senior sister leaves me quite overwhelmed. Yet, let us first discuss the matter of contribution points. Should I fail to alleviate my senior sister's burdens, I would be too ashamed to partake in this meal, Qin Chen stated. Seeing the anxious expression on Qin Chen's face, Hu Jing couldn't help but let out a cold snort inwardly. However, she masked her feelings perfectly, gently covering her red lips and letting out a delicate laugh. Junior brother, you are indeed meticulous in your thoughts. Since that is the case, I shall be direct. The three of us wish to devote ourselves to our cultivation and would appreciate it if you could assist with the care of the furnace. Naturally, we will not impose upon you without compensation. How does 2 contribution points every 7 days sound? Qin Chen pondered for a moment, then raised his right hand, slowly extending 3 fingers. 3 contribution points, Senior Sister. Daily water fetching is a laborious task. If you offer me 3 contribution points every week, I shall accept the job. Observing Qin Chen's meticulous nature, the 3 women exchanged glances, barely able to contain their smug smiles. Greed is not a sin, but if you dare to set a price, you better have the means to claim it. Regardless of whether it was 2 or 3 points, once this drink was consumed, he would be ensnared. With this thought, Huajing quickly agreed. Very well, we shall proceed as you suggest. After speaking, she picked up her wine cup and, with a playful laugh, approached Qin Chen. Junior brother, I shall trouble you from now on. Huajing raised another cup of wine and toast. Yet, Qin Chen remained unperturbed, picking up his chopsticks to savor the dishes. No rush, no rush. Let us eat something first before drinking, he said. Upon seeing this, Huajing secretly gritted her teeth, feigning a stumble as she leaned toward Qin Chen. Although Qin Chen was focused on his meal, his thoughts were still on Huajing and the others. As Huajing fell toward him, he instinctively reached out to catch her, bringing her back onto his lap. As the saying goes, a fool does not take advantage of a good deal. After her bone-deep cleansing, Huajing's legs, while not quite rivaling Liu's, were undeniably exquisite. Losing her balance, Huajing instinctively wrapped her arms around Qin Chen's neck. To Yu Zhu and Su Yasi, this series of actions appeared as though Huajing had intentionally leaped into Qin Chen's embrace. The 3 had indeed concocted a plan. If Qin Chen remained adamant about not drinking, Huajing would feign a fall, providing him an opportunity for a gentle touch. Now exchanging glances, the 2 women recognized admiration in each other's eyes. Truly, Huajing, the mastermind behind this scheme, was bold enough to take such risks. At that moment, Qin Chen spoke. Senior Sister, do you wish to personally feed me wine? As he measured the length from Huajing's thigh to her knee with his hand, he smiled and asked. Feeling the grip on her leg, Huajing felt her teeth nearly grind to dust. You wish to drink, do you? Today, I shall see you thoroughly intoxicated. Since junior brother desires to drink, then senior sister shall serve you. Huajing suppressed her anger and brought the cup to Qin Chen's lips. Qin Chen grinned, seemingly unguarded, and downed the wine in one gulp. Excellent wine. Truly, it is spiritual liquor. With 1 cup down, Qin Chen suddenly felt invigorated, neglecting his meal. Come, let us continue drinking. As she gazed into Qin Chen's eyes, which were veined with a deep crimson, a glimmer of triumphant malice flickered in Huajing's gaze. She signaled to Yu Zhu, who promptly understood and hastily concocted an excuse to depart. Junior brother Qin, come, let your senior sister pour you another drink. Senior sister, with what shall you serve it? A quarter of an hour later. Bang! The door of Huajing's cave dwelling was forcefully kicked open. As several figures streamed in, the door creaked ominously before collapsing to the ground. On the table, exquisite dishes lay untouched, while the wine jug appeared to have been drained entirely, with several cups askew. The solitary bed in the room, burdened beyond its capacity, emitted pitiful creaks as it swayed. However, the drapes were drawn, obscuring the 2 or 3 figures upon the bed. Unbeknownst to Yu Zhu, Huajing and Su Yasi had gone to great lengths to substantiate Qin Chen's alleged misconduct. She resolved not to hinder their scheme. In her heart, Yu Zhu silently vowed, then pointed emphatically at the bed, exclaiming to the nearby cultivators, sisters of the enforcement hall, that scoundrel is currently entangled with my 2 fellow disciples on the bed. We intended to foster camaraderie among our sect and invited him for a feast, yet after consuming a couple of drinks, he succumbed to his primal instincts. At this point, Yu Zhu squeezed out a few tears, pleading, I implore you, sisters, intervene and stop this vile rogue, lest the purity of my 2 sisters be compromised. The 3 female cultivators beside Yu Zhu were all disciples of the enforcement hall. She had seized the opportunity to report Qin Chen's alleged impropriety to the hall. Upon receiving a formal accusation, they promptly dispatched 3 female disciples to address the matter. The leading disciple of the enforcement hall, upon hearing Yu Zhu's lamentations, waved her hand impassively. The other 2 female disciples immediately drew their swords and swiftly slashed, lifting the bed curtains. As the drapes flew aside, the scene on the bed was unveiled for all to see. However, the enforcement hall disciples' gazes were fixed on Yu Zhu, who stood there, dumbfounded, her mind a blank slate. Fellow disciples, what are you waiting for? Come and assist me, or my innocence may be irreparably tarnished. As Qin Chen struggled, he called for help, lying disheveled upon the bed, while Huajing and Su Yasi, half-dressed, were atop him, seemingly in a frenzy as they tore at his garments. What is happening? Yu Zhu rubbed her eyes vigorously. Even now, She could hardly believe the scene before her. According to their plan, the three of them intended to lower Qin Chen's defenses through a lure, tricking him into drinking spirit wine laced with a tranquilizing powder. Yu Zhu had seized the moment to report to the enforcement hall, bringing disciples to apprehend Qin Chen red-handed. The scheme was flawless. Qin Chen had indeed consumed the drugged wine as intended. Yet now, with the enforcement hall's arrival, how had he become the one pinned beneath? This must be a mistake. The world had surely erred. Go, pull them apart. The sister from the law enforcement hall spoke softly. Two disciples immediately stepped forward to separate Hu Jing and Su Yasi. Yet the two women seemed to be in a frenzy, their eyes fixated solely on Qin Chen. In exasperation, the disciples had no choice but to render them unconscious, thus rescuing Qin Chen. Thank goodness you arrived in time, or else my junior brother's reputation would have been tarnished. Qin Chen lamented as he adjusted his disheveled attire. You speak nonsense. Yu Zhu began, but her voice abruptly halted. Hu Jing and Su Yasi's assault on Qin Chen had been witnessed by three disciples of the law enforcement hall. Now, no amount of words could alter the situation. Yu Zhu, how can I be speaking nonsense? It was you three who lured me here today and tricked me into drinking an adulterated spirit, intending to take advantage of me. Fortunately, I sensed something amiss and thwarted your scheme. Out of humiliation, you sought to force me, but thanks to the timely arrival of these sisters from the law enforcement hall, my honor was saved from your clutches. Qin Chen proclaimed vehemently. Enough, further discussion is futile. Come with us to the law enforcement hall to recount the details. The leading female disciple interjected, sweeping her sleeve and ushering everyone back to the hall. After a prolonged ordeal, the law enforcement hall rendered its final verdict. The remaining spirit liquor in the room tested positive for the presence of the Hahuan powder, and Hu Jing and Su Yasi's assault on Qin Chen was corroborated by eyewitness accounts. With ample evidence, both Hu Jing and Su Yasi were fined 100 contribution points. Due to their insufficient assets, they were directly transformed into spirit force cauldrons. Yu Zhu, having actively reported to the law enforcement hall, was deemed unassociated with Hu Jing and her accomplice and was released without charges. As for Qin Chen, lacking any substantial losses and with no compensation forthcoming from Hu Jing and Su Yasi, he ultimately received nothing. Outside the law enforcement hall, Yu Zhu emerged, dazed and disoriented. Upon raising her eyes, she was confronted by Qin Chen blocking her path. She instinctively recoiled a step back, her expression one of sheer terror, as if she had encountered a specter. What do you want? Yu Zhu threatened weakly, her bravado faltering. This is the law enforcement hall. Should you dare to harm me, they will not spare you. Qin Chen chuckled softly, approaching her and whispering in a tone meant solely for her ears. Do you truly believe the law enforcement hall can protect you? Do not forget the fate that befell Hu Jing and the others. At his words, a chill ran down Yu Zhu's spine, her complexion paling, devoid of color. Seizing the moment, Qin Chen pressed on. However, I am not one to pursue total annihilation. If you agree to look after the cauldron for me in the future, perhaps I might let you off the hook. A glimmer of hope flickered in Yu Zhu's eyes. Really? She exclaimed. A gentleman's word is as good as a promise sealed by a team of horses. Qin Chen affirmed. Very well, I agree. Qin Chen, in truth, this matter was orchestrated by Hu Jing and has nothing to do with me. I merely encouraged a toast and, at a critical moment, sought out someone from the enforcement hall to serve as a witness. If you cease your inquiries, all will be well. I could even grant you a formal opportunity to pursue me. Yu Zhu blushed as she spoke, setting aside the incident where Qin Chen was insulted. Although his appearance is rather ordinary, he possesses a keen mind, and amidst the perils of the Hahuan sect, he may very well carve out a name for himself. One might as well dangle a bait before him, as there is no fear in having an abundance of fish. Yet, upon hearing Yu Zhu's words, Qin Chen smiled. A truly joyous smile. Esteemed senior sister, you heard what Yu Zhu just said, did you not? Qin Chen respectfully clasped his hands together towards the figure behind Yu Zhu with a demeanor of utmost reverence. Chapter 23, The Ancient Relics. A chance for fortune. Yu Zhu, taken aback, turned around just in time to meet the gaze of the enforcement hall sister from earlier. In her eyes, there was a mixture of sighs, pity, confusion, but more than anything, a disdain for foolishness. The enforcement hall is not comprised of fools. With testimonies and evidence, they naturally understand that the three women initially intended to harm Qin Chen, yet due to some unforeseen error, they ultimately fell victim to his counterattack. However, the enforcement hall is meticulous about evidence, which is why they showed Yu Zhu leniency. Little did they expect that mere moments after exiting, this fool would expose herself. A golden opportunity presented to them, the enforcement hall would certainly not let it slip away. Bring her to the enforcement hall for a re-examination. The enforcement hall sister stated coolly. I am wronged. I am wronged. Yu Zhu, still in a daze, was restrained and dragged into the enforcement hall. Subsequently, The enforcement hall sister cast a casual glance at Qin Chen before turning to leave. Once everyone had departed, Qin Chen finally breathed a sigh of relief, slowly wiping the cold sweat from his forehead. The counterattack against the three women had not been an easy feat. Had Hu Jing and the others been aware of his cultivation level at the 5th stage of qi refinement, success would have been improbable. During Hu Jing's initial toast, as he accepted the cup and placed it on the table, he discreetly dipped a finger into the liquid and, under the pretense of eating, brought it to his lips. Though the amount was minimal, it sufficed for him to analyze its properties. He subsequently attempted to use his internal spiritual energy to counteract the drug's effects, and was surprised to find it easily expelled from his system. At that moment, he discerned that the quality of the drug was low, likely effective only on those who had just begun their qi refinement journey. Later, as Hu Jing pressed him to drink, even resorting to flattery, it became abundantly clear to Qin Chen the extent of their scheme. Thus, after Yu Zhu departed, he abandoned pretense. He boldly subdued the two and forcefully administered an entire bottle of wine to them. Finally, he lay in wait for Yu Zhu to bring the enforcement hall personnel. The success of his counterattack was attributed not only to his guise of ignorance and concealment of strength, but also to the opponent's lack of foresight and a stroke of luck. However, the most crucial aspect is the blatant bias exhibited by the enforcement hall. Indeed, the enforcement hall is decidedly partial. One of the senior sisters from the enforcement hall cast a significant glance as she departed. The implication was unmistakable. They are aware of the circumstances. Yet your evidence holds sway. Thus the enforcement hall has chosen to assist you. The enforcement hall, how contemptible. They are merely a group of unscrupulous individuals driven by self-interest. Qin Chen silently cursed. Truly, there is not a single virtuous person within the Harmony sect. Upon returning to Yifeng via a public flying vessel, Qin Chen immediately adopted a mode of discreet cultivation. Aside from delivering supplies to his furnace companions, he devoted all his remaining time to secluded training. Of course, on the very day of his return, Yifeng promptly admitted 3 new disciples to replace the positions of Hu Jing and others. The Harmony sect, a colossal entity, is never short of low-tier cultivators. On the 3rd day, Qin Chen boarded the public vessel early, heading towards the external affairs hall, where he concealed himself in a corner outside the hall. Around the hour of C, he indeed observed a trio from the artifact refining hall, led by Zhong Yu. Rendezvous with Shi Min from the alchemy hall. After exchanging pleasantries, they embarked on a flying vessel, gracefully departing the sect. Qin Chen noted the time and returned to Yifeng to continue his seclusion. Another fortnight passed. Qin Chen remained dedicated to his low-profile cultivation. Although he had discreetly sought information regarding Zhong Yu and Shi Min on 2 occasions, his efforts yielded no results. Just as he was about to abandon this lead, he stumbled upon a momentous piece of news. A team dispatched on a mission had inadvertently uncovered a clue pertaining to ancient relics near Huxicheng. The city was placed under complete lockdown, with several high-ranking sect members leading the expedition for exploration. The entire sect was abuzz with excitement. Ancient relics, indeed. Those are ancient relics that might harbor the secrets to transcendence. It is said that our Harmony sect was once a mere insignificant sect until our founder fortuitously discovered an ancient relic, acquiring ancient techniques and numerous rare materials, which propelled the sect to prominence, becoming one of the 3 great sects of the realm. Given the significance of ancient relics, it is no wonder that within merely half an hour, the news was thoroughly suppressed. Listening in on the discussions among his peers, Qin Chen remained silent. The tidings of the ancient secret realm were brought back by a team engaged in external missions. Although the information was swiftly sealed, the timing and location aligned perfectly. Could it be that the ancient secret realm was indeed discovered by Zhong Yu and his associates? With this thought, Qin Chen could no longer remain idle and resolved to verify this matter. However, upon stepping outside, he encountered Liu Yuan, whom he had not seen for several days. Since the day he arrived at Yifeng for a work handover, Qin Chen had not crossed paths with Liu Yuan, and he had assumed he was in seclusion. Greetings, Senior Brother Liu. Qin Chen clasped his hands in respect. I wondered who it was. It turns out to be Junior Brother Qin. Have you been adapting well to your cultivation these past days? Liu Yuan inquired with a cheerful demeanor, clearly in high spirits. Thanks to the careful attention of my senior, I, as a junior, am able to achieve twice the results with half the effort. Qin Chen smiled and offered a compliment. This age-old truth, flattery never fails to penetrate, remains unchanged through the ages. Upon hearing Qin Chen's words of praise, Liu Yuan burst into hearty laughter, then beckoned Qin Chen closer. Lowering his voice, he said, "Do not think for a moment that your senior does not care for you. There is an opportunity for wealth at hand. If you act swiftly, you might just get a taste of it." Qin Chen's eyes brightened. He had been puzzled by Liu Yuan's opulent appearance, contrasting sharply with his disheveled look during their last encounter. It seemed that in just a few days, his fortunes had drastically changed. As he contemplated how to broach the subject, Liu Yuan took the initiative to mention it. Qin Chen bowed deeply, feigning excitement, and urged his senior to impart his wisdom. With a satisfied grin, Liu Yuan replied, "Junior brother Qin, you must have heard about the clues regarding the ancient secret realm in Firestone City, Haven to you?" Although the sect swiftly sealed off the information upon its return, for some unknown reason, numerous rumors have circulated. Even I, a lowly disciple, have caught wind of it, suggesting that the news is likely widespread. I have indeed heard some tidbits, but how does this relate to acquiring wealth? Surely, the exploration of ruins does not involve us? Qin Chen questioned, perplexed. Are you dreaming? That is an ancient relic. Countless sect leaders have their eyes on it. It is hardly a matter for insignificant ants like us. And even if they allowed Qi practitioners to participate, it would likely be for the purpose of filling graves. Lu Qi shot Qin Chen a dismissive glare. What I meant to say pertains to another matter. Do you know the origin of Firestone City? Qin Chen shook his head. His recent days had been consumed by cultivation, leaving little time for such inquiries. You ought to read more about geographical and cultural records and similar texts. Otherwise, you might miss out on lucrative opportunities right before your eyes. Knowledge is indeed a treasure, Liu Yuan boasted. He then elaborated, Firestone City derives its name from the Firestone mines found there. Initially, the value of these mines was unknown until a master craftsman, in a moment of inspiration, incorporated some firestone into his artifact crafting. The resulting artifact's power increased by an astounding 10%. 10%. Qin Chen exclaimed, astonished. Indeed, 10%. Liu Yuan affirmed emphatically. Further research revealed that while firestone itself has no inherent effects, it significantly enhances the fusion effects of other materials during the crafting process. The more firestone incorporated, the better the results. Consequently, firestone became immensely popular in the artifact hall. A chunk as large as a fist could fetch 1 contribution point. However, Liu Yuan grinned slyly, his expression taking on a somewhat lewd quality. This was the price in the past. With the news of the ancient secret realm, Firestone City has been placed under strict martial law, and for the foreseeable future, firestone cannot be extracted. You understand the implications of this, I presume. Upon Liu Yuan's explanation, Qin Chen finally grasped the situation. The characteristics of the firestone mine are undeniable. For any who engage in the art of forging, it is an essential component. However, an unexpected curfew has suddenly been imposed on Firestone City, resulting in a complete halt of the mine's output. The news arrived with such abruptness that there was scarcely a chance to stockpile supplies. The price of firestone ore has likely skyrocketed. Liu Yuan chuckled, remarking, "It has barely been half a day since I left the forging hall, and the price of firestone ore has already surged to 4 contribution points per unit. If junior brother Qin heads over now, he might still benefit from the situation." Qin Chen promptly expressed his gratitude. "Thank you, senior brother Liu, for your guidance. I shall repay your kindness in the future." With that, Qin Chen took his leave, hastening towards the forging hall. Inside the hall, the atmosphere was tumultuous. Interestingly, the window for trading magical artifacts was nearly deserted, while the section for trading forging materials was packed with people, their voices a cacophony of complaints. "I want to buy 100 units of firestone, or, hurry up. 100? Go play somewhere else. I desell my underwear to wager 500. You all need to get lost. I'm a disciple of the forging hall. I need firestone, or for my craft. Were it not for the enforcement disciples maintaining order nearby, it is likely that chaos would have erupted as individuals vied for their place in line." Qin Chen refrained from pushing into the throng, for he found himself financially constrained. He could muster only 3 contribution points and 5 low-grade spirit stones from his pockets, while the price of firestone ore had escalated to a staggering 6 spirit stones per unit. Though he could not purchase any at present, he possessed the reincarnation tower. Missing the prime opportunity in this life, he pondered the next. Suddenly, he froze, realizing, in the next life, I might also find myself unable to afford it. How frustrating. Acquiring firestone ore at the lowest price, with his current assets, he could buy around 10 units, yielding only a few dozen contribution points in profit. While a few dozen contribution points might be considered a small fortune, they were still beneath Qin Chen's aspirations. Having been reborn for approximately 30 days, he believed that accumulating more contribution points during this time would enable him to profit handsomely once the news from the secret realm emerged. As he watched the prices on the light screen soar, his emotions fluctuated with them. All those contribution points. At that moment, a short, sly-eyed cultivator approached Qin Chen, whispering, "Brother, I've noticed you observing for quite some time. Are you also interested in purchasing some firestone ore?" "What do you mean?" Qin Chen furrowed his brow in inquiry. The diminutive cultivator grinned, producing a ring from his robe. "Brother, take a look at this. It's a trading ring, capable of connecting remotely with the transactions of various halls. You can procure magical artifacts from the forging hall, elixirs from the pill hall, furnaces from the Yin Yang hall, and even tasks from the Foreign Affairs Hall, all through this ring. Oh, such a thing exists? What is its price? Qin Chen inquired, astonished. Seeing Qin Chen's interest, the short cultivator became even more enthusiastic. The price for the sect item is set at 100 contribution points. However, it has long been discontinued and cannot be procured through legitimate channels. I possess only 2 or 3 pieces in stock. If you are sincerely interested, I can part with it for 500 contribution points, though it pains me to do so. The short-statured cultivator lamented. Qin Chen offered 25 contribution points. The short cultivator was taken aback. What? Did you not hear me say this item is discontinued? Do you need me to elucidate what discontinued means? He retorted angrily. Apologies, I'm accustomed to haggling, Qin Chen admitted, feeling somewhat embarrassed. Bargaining was a passive skill imparted by his mentor. Whenever a price was quoted, he instinctively aimed to negotiate downwards. Since it's discontinued, I will increase my offer, Qin Chen stated. The short cultivator's anger slightly abated upon hearing his words. How about 120 contribution points? 450 contribution points. That's the lowest I can go. The short cultivator gritted his teeth. Were it not for the fact that he and T made a sale in several days, he would not have wasted a glance at someone so miserly as Qin Chen. 150 contribution points. My contributions are limited, Qin Chen replied. 400 contribution points. If you're genuinely interested, that is my final offer. The short cultivator's face flushed. Brother, the price of firestones has been soaring. By purchasing firestones through the trading ring, you can avoid the queues. A few dozen stones will easily recoup the cost of the ring. Hesitate further, and you risk losing out on a great opportunity. Qin Chen pondered for a moment, nodding in agreement, understanding the rationale. In that case, I will offer 200 contribution points as a gesture of friendship. Before he could finish, the short cultivator interrupted. Deal. Qin Chen was momentarily stunned. Wait, aren't you going to negotiate the price further? Didn't you say 400 contribution points was your bottom line? Not at all, brother. My bottom line is quite flexible. The short cultivator replied, his previously heated demeanor vanishing, replaced by a cheerful smile. The swift transformation left Qin Chen questioning whether he had imagined it. How shall we proceed with the transaction? The short cultivator inquired with a beaming grin. You may have misunderstood. I never indicated I wished to buy, Qin Chen clarified, revealing the contribution points on his identity token. 3 contribution points nearly blinded the short cultivator with disbelief. Wait, you have a mere 3 contribution points? What with the fervent haggling? He was on the verge of slapping Qin Chen, if not for the nearby disciples of the law enforcement hall. Now, he finally understood why Qin Chen had been staring at the screen instead of queuing up for firestones. He simply lacked the contribution points to afford them. Just practicing my bargaining skills, getting used to it. But don't be discouraged. I will definitely return to buy from you in my next life. Qin Chen chuckled, waving his hand as he departed. Do you even deserve another life? He spat. The short monk was about to seek out his next unsuspecting target when a disciple from the enforcement hall approached him, expressionless, and stated, spitting in public, a fine of 1 contribution point. Upon exiting the artifact refining hall, Qin Chen hesitated for a moment, then took a deep breath and stepped onto the public flying boat bound for the pill hall. In this lifetime, barring any unforeseen circumstances, he was unlikely to encounter significant fortune. The ancient ruins at present were of utmost importance. To that end, he needed to verify something at the pill hall. The pill hall, Peak A, Ximin. Qin Chen recalled the information he had obtained while impersonating a disciple from the enforcement hall and made his way to Peak A of the pill hall. Just as he was about to knock on the mountain gate, a thought struck him, and he gathered a handful of wildflowers from the roadside. Who goes there? Halt. 2 female disciples guarding the mountain gate saw Qin Chen and instantly blocked his path. With a silly grin, Qin Chen raised the wildflowers in his hand and said, Sisters, could you kindly announce my arrival? I wish to seek out Sister Ximin from your esteemed peak. Ximin? The 2 female disciples exchanged glances, their expressions filled with surprise. Qin Chen endeavored to appear somewhat naive, shyly stating, Sister Ximin and I have already pledged our lives to one another in pursuit of the immortal path. Upon hearing this, one of the female disciples sighed. You may not be aware, but news just arrived last night that Sister Ximin tragically met with an accident while on a mission for the External Affairs Hall. Stunned by this revelation, Qin Chen felt a chill run down his spine. Was the invitation from Zhongyu indeed a trap? Were they truly the ones who discovered the clues to the ancient ruins? The lead he had so painstakingly grasped had vanished. Ximin, no? Qin Chen cried out to the heavens, collapsing to his knees, the wildflowers in his hand crushed to pieces, petals scattering in the wind, a scene of poignant beauty. Those who witnessed this were moved to tears, and the 2 female disciples guarding the gate could not help but feel their own eyes welling with emotion. Dear junior brother, please accept our condolences, they said, rushing forward to help him up and offering gentle words of comfort. Might you tell me how Sister Ximin met her untimely fate? Qin Chen forced out 2 lines of tears, gritting his teeth. I must avenge Sister Shimin. The 2 female disciples shook their heads with a sigh. To be honest, we are not entirely clear either. The news of Sister Shimin's unfortunate demise just reached us, and the sect has declared a lockdown in Firestone City. Since then, there has been no further information. I see. Thank you, sisters. Qin Chen clasped his hands in gratitude, turning away in a daze as he descended the mountain. Such a devoted soul is rare in this world. The 2 female disciples sighed in unison, watching Qin Chen's staggering figure retreat into the distance. Once beyond their sight, the lovesick Qin Chen wiped away the traces of tears from his face with a swift motion, his expression returning to normal in an instant. With Shimin's death coinciding with the news of the ancient ruins surfacing at the sect, it was highly likely that they were indeed the ones who had discovered it. Qin Chen pondered momentarily before ultimately relinquishing the thought of seeking out Zhongyu and the others. His original plan had been to use a confession as a pretext to meet Shimin, subsequently leveraging his identity as a disciple of the enforcement hall to extract information from her. However, with Shimin now deceased, and no means to glean insights from Zhongyu and his companions, the trail had come to an irrevocable halt. It appeared that in his next life, he would inevitably accompany Zhongyu and the others on a journey to Huoshi City. Upon returning to the Yinyang Hall, Feng, Qin Chen commenced another round of seclusion for intensive cultivation. In the blink of an eye, half a year had elapsed. Suddenly, a series of urgent knocks on the door shattered the tranquility of Qin Chen's retreat. Rising to answer, he found Liu Yuan bursting in a state of disarray. Junior brother Qin, how many contribution points do you have on hand? I need to borrow some urgently, Liu Yuan exclaimed, his voice rife with desperation. Qin Chen's eyes widened in astonishment at the sight before him. Liu Yuan appeared disheveled, his clothes unwashed for an indeterminate time, emanating a faintly sour odor. His visage was gaunt, and his gaze was vacant, as if he had endured some harrowing ordeal, devoid of his previous vitality. It was worth noting that since Liu Yuan had begun speculating on the Huoshi mine, his wealth had multiplied exponentially in mere days, peaking at thousands of contribution points, earning him a notable reputation within the Yinyang Hall. Even Qin Chen, who rarely left his abode and only occasionally transported supplies to the peak, had heard whispers of Liu Yuan's illustrious success. Yet, where there are those who celebrate, there are also those who lament. Initially, a daring group had profited immensely from the speculation on the Huoshi mine, inciting envy and irrationality among numerous disciples within the sect. Many inexperienced cultivators purchased vast quantities of the mine at inflated prices, dreaming of overnight riches. Unfortunately, the price of the Huoshi mine was artificially high. After peaking, it fluctuated unpredictably, leading many to sell their possessions in a futile attempt to stabilize their investments, ultimately resulting in their financial ruin. Some even resorted to borrowing to speculate. Unable to repay their debts, they were reduced to becoming furnace cauldrons to settle their obligations, facing a grim fate. In recent days, the number of furnace cauldrons within the Yinyang Hall had surged, including several foundation establishment and core formation disciples, with rumors even suggesting the presence of nascent soul cultivators, all ensnared by the fallout of the Huoshi mine speculation. However, how had Liu Yuan, who had once amassed wealth, descended to such a wretched state? Senior brother Liu, what on earth have you been through? Qin Chen inquired, astonished. Never mind that for now. I have stockpiled a batch of goods. If I can just endure these few days of stagnation, I stand to earn tens of thousands of contribution points. Please, lend me some contribution points, and I promise to repay you 100-fold. Liu Yuan's voice quivered, his eyes darting anxiously toward the door, as if evading some unseen threat. How much do you wish to borrow, Senior brother Liu? Qin Chen cautiously probed. 5,000. No, 3,000 contribution points will suffice to turn my fortunes around. Despite his disheveled appearance, a flicker of almost frenzied confidence ignited in Liu Yuan's eyes. 3,000. Qin Chen cleared his throat, retrieving his identity token. To be candid, Senior brother, I possess merely 3 contribution points in total. I am truly unable to assist you at this moment. Gazing at the 3 contribution points within the Qin Chen token, Liu Yuan was momentarily rendered speechless, his mind clouded in disbelief. Suddenly, he erupted into a frenzied laughter, akin to a madman, only to be abruptly transformed into heart-wrenching sobs. Heaven seeks my demise, heaven seeks my demise. As his lamentations echoed, the door to the cave was violently kicked open, and several figures surged in. Liu Yuan, you have defaulted on your loans, and the repayment deadline has long passed. The sect has confiscated all your possessions in accordance with protocol. What do you have to say for yourself? One of the newcomers demanded sternly. Clad in the garb of the law enforcement hall, Qin Chen could only retreat 2 steps, resigned to his fate. Observing the near madness of Liu Yuan, Qin Chen sighed inwardly. How had this once promising senior brother become such a wretched figure? Noticing Liu Yuan's silence amidst his tears, the leading disciple of the law enforcement hall snorted disdainfully, lifting his chin slightly, prompting the others to seize Liu Yuan and depart with him. With their exit, silence enveloped the room. Qin Chen surveyed the disarray around him, yearning to pursue them and inquire, "Will you not compensate for the damage to my cave's door?" Yet, recognizing their official attire, he suppressed his grievances. The following day, Qin Chen ventured out, seeking information from his fellow disciples to unravel the mystery behind Liu Yuan's downfall. Initially, Liu Yuan had not been driven by greed. His keen insight detected a lucrative opportunity when news of the ancient relic surfaced, while others were merely awestruck. Without hesitation, he invested all his assets, engaging in low purchases and high sales, rapidly multiplying his wealth several-fold. Logically, possessing tens of thousands of contribution points should have sufficed to support Liu Yuan's cultivation to the core formation stage, provided he refrained from extravagance. However, just as he was about to withdraw, a rumor erupted within the sect. It was said that an ordinary outer disciple had executed an extraordinary series of transactions involving the Firestone mine, amassing a staggering 1,000,000 contribution points in a mere month. This individual first squandered lavishly, acquiring hundreds of remarkably beautiful female furnace cauldrons, then placed substantial orders at the artifact and alchemy halls, ultimately being noticed by an inner sect elder due to his remarkable talent, and was admitted as an inner disciple despite his modest cultivation level. The news sent countless disciples into a frenzy, and even Liu Yuan could not withstand the allure, investing all his recently acquired contribution points into the trading market. However, just half a year later, news from Firestone City broke. The ancient relic had officially manifested, revealing a pristine secret realm within. Yet, shortly after several exploration teams dispatched by the sect entered the secret realm, all the soul lamps remaining in the sect extinguished. It is essential to note that these exploration teams included formidable beings at the god transformation and integration levels. Subsequently, the sect unexpectedly announced that the secret realm would be freely accessible to all disciples, regardless of their cultivation level, with all rewards from the secret realm belonging solely to the individual, and even substantial contribution points awarded for providing the sect with vital information. As the news spread, it was accompanied by the announcement of the unsealing of Firestone City. With the secret realm now accessible to the public, there was no longer a necessity for Firestone City to remain in lockdown. The moment this information reached the market, the price of Firestone ore plummeted dramatically. From a contribution of 16 points at 4 p.m., it seamlessly dropped to 2 points at 2 p.m., and the decline continued unabated. Some individuals had initially resolved to endure and wait, but the subsequent news doused their hopes like a bucket of cold water. The ancient relics emerged from a volcano located outside the Black Market City, where the unveiling caused the magma to evaporate, revealing extensive veins of Firestone ore. Statistically, there were a total of 15 large veins, all exposed to the elements, with production set to increase at least tenfold. Consequently, the price of Firestone ore experienced a second catastrophic fall, crashing down to a mere 1-point contribution. In an instant, what was once a prized rarity transformed into a common commodity. Countless individuals leaped from the pinnacle of despair, choosing to end their lives. The remaining few were not spared either, finding themselves reduced to mere fodder for exploitation after their financial ruin. Liu Yuan was one among the multitude of bankrupt souls. Alas, Brother Liu had been excessively greedy. Upon learning of Liu Yuan's plight, Qin Chen couldn't help but sigh. Such a harvest of the unknowing was something he had not personally experienced, but he had certainly witnessed it unfold. Based on his experience, the notion of earning 1,000,000 contribution points in a month likely stemmed from the deliberate fabrication of a high-ranking sect member, aimed at enticing more disciples into the fray. The substantial orders placed with the Yin-Yang Hall, the Artifact Hall, and the Alchemy Hall could well be seen as hush money. With Liu Yuan as a cautionary tale, countless others would rush forth to become unwitting victims, ultimately harvested by the sect. Even if this was not orchestrated by the sect, it was undoubtedly tolerated by them. After all, the greatest beneficiaries of this situation were none other than the sect themselves. Treating their disciples as mere chaff, they would ruthlessly reap the rewards once the time was ripe. In light of these events, Qin Chen's understanding of the Huan sect became markedly clearer. Subsequently, Qin Chen isolated himself, apart from ascending the mountain every few days to deliver supplies. He devoted the remainder of his time to diligently practicing the eternal spring technique. In the mountains, time was but a fleeting concept, and a decade swiftly passed. Not long ago, the Deacon Su Rowley failed in her closed-door breakthrough to the core formation stage and tragically perished. Upon receiving the news, Qin Chen could only let out a deep sigh. The path of cultivation was long and arduous. The vast majority of practitioners, throughout their lifetimes, could only end up as mere bones by the roadside. It was indeed a lamentable reality. 5 years prior, he had entrusted the care of the furnace to another, naturally, akin to Liu Yuan of Ur. He had received 5 contribution points as a token of gratitude, subsequently imparting the insights Liu Yuan had gathered. In the time that followed, he remained sequestered, deeply engrossed in his cultivation. After a decade of relentless effort, the speed of the Eternal Spring Technique's operation had notably increased, reaching half the standard of an ordinary cultivator. It is precisely due to this that his cultivation has progressed at a sluggish pace, now reaching only the 6th level of Qi refinement. In other words, it has taken him over a decade to barely advance a single tier. Among his fellow disciples who entered the sect around the same time, some have fallen along the way, yet most have surpassed him in cultivation. Notably, those like Su Miaoyun, who possess influential backing, have already attained the pinnacle of Qi refinement and are preparing to break through to the foundation establishment stage. Alas, with his resources as sparse as his countenance, Qin Chen has little choice but to retreat into seclusion for further cultivation. Another decade has passed. During this time, watching his peers ascend to the foundation establishment stage while he remains firmly entrenched in Qi refinement, Qin Chen has redoubled his efforts, dedicating himself to rigorous training. Ultimately, he has achieved a breakthrough to the 7th level of Qi refinement. Indeed, after 10 years of arduous practice, he has only elevated his cultivation by a single tier. Cursed Long Chun Gong. Qin Chen howled to the heavens, realizing that the slow progress of this technique was even more excruciating than he had anticipated. Despite 2 decades of diligent practice, his pace has lagged behind that of newly initiated disciples. However, he finds himself lacking in both innate talent and resources, reflecting that, after much consideration, Long Chun Gong remains the most suitable path for him. During this period, he also learned of Liu Hanbing's recent developments. Liu Hanbing successfully broke through to the core formation stage and caught the eye of an inner sect elder, who took her as a disciple, thus gaining entry into the inner circle. This so-called elder is likely the same elder son who had previously crushed him with ease. It seems Liu Hanbing ultimately could not escape his clutches. In his past life, just before his demise, he had witnessed elder son's methods. The gifts of formations, resources, and even techniques bestowed upon Liu Hanbing were merely tools to expedite her breakthrough to the core formation stage, so she could assist him in alchemy. In this lifetime, having absorbed a considerable amount of her energy, Liu Hanbing's advancement to core formation has been delayed by a full 20 years. Yet she ultimately remains unable to evade this calamity. To the prominent figures within the sect, these lower-tier disciples are likely seen merely as resources to be exploited at will. Liu Hanbing, in her relentless pursuit of higher realms, has ultimately become nothing more than a pawn in Elder Son's grand design. It is evident that only by elevating his own cultivation can he gain the right to escape this chessboard and avoid the fate of becoming a mere piece. With a heavy sigh, Qin Chen recommenced his seclusion, perhaps due to his unwavering resolve, or perhaps the years of diligent practice of Long Chun Gong finally bearing fruit. Qin Chen's cultivation speed has significantly accelerated. 60 years later, a powerful surge of spiritual energy emanates from Qin Chen's cave abode, capturing the attention of numerous disciples. Could it be that Brother Qin has achieved a breakthrough? It is said that since he joined the sect 80 years ago, he has secluded himself in diligent training. Although his progress has been slow, his unwavering dedication remains a model for us all. 8 decades, without consuming a single pill or employing a furnace. Indeed, he lives up to the reputation of being the ascetic brother. Amidst the awe and admiration, Qin Chen slowly opens the door and steps out from his cave. The time of reckoning is nigh. Qin Chen gazes up at the familiar scenery. Now he appears to be in the prime of a mortal's 40s or 50s. His gaze tinged with the weariness of dusk, markedly different from the spirited enthusiasm of his youth. Reflecting on the passage of time, he entered the Huan sect at the tender age of 18, subsequently dedicating 80 arduous years to cultivation within the sect. Now, he has reached the venerable age of 98. While the Qi refinement stage can cleanse the bones and marrow, ensuring a life free from ailments and disasters, it regrettably does not extend one's lifespan. Like ordinary mortals, cultivators at this stage possess a mere century of life. Qin Chen, having just attained the pinnacle of the Qi refinement stage, feels the imminent approach of his life's limit. His heart filled with melancholy. If only he were granted another decade, he would be confident in breaking through to the foundation establishment stage. This stage offers a lifespan of 300 years, allowing him to continue his cultivation journey. Alas, he does not have even 10 days left to live, let alone 10 years. There is no longer an opportunity for him to challenge the foundation establishment. Truly, fate plays cruel tricks. Ah, wait, can I start anew? Then it is no longer a matter of concern. Qin Chen retrieved the blood-burning pill gifted by the system upon his rebirth and placed it into his mouth. What a familiar aroma. Qin Chen inhaled deeply, slowly closing his eyes. In the next moment, Qin Chen's breath ceased. No, wait. Chapter 27. Deception and Strategy. The blood-burning pill has exhausted all your vital energy. You have perished. Commencing evaluation of your previous life. Your life has been lackluster, lacking any remarkable achievements. You should have passed away naturally. However, in the face of insurmountable despair, you defied fate. And with merely 2 days of life remaining and devoid of any vital energy, you resolutely consumed the blood-burning pill, in pursuit of a possibility that was fundamentally non-existent. This is truly commendable. Evaluation result, red. The first level of the reincarnation tower has illuminated a soul lamp, color, red. You have awakened a special talent, deception and strategy. Deception and strategy. You can conceal your cultivation level, freely presenting any realm below your actual level. Even immortals cannot see through your disguise. Due to having gained only cultivation in your previous life without any treasures, the system automatically retains your cultivation level. Boom. Qin Chen opened his eyes. The familiar bloodthirsty grand array lay before him. Raising his hand, the vigorous spiritual energy of the pinnacle Qi refinement stage surged fiercely through his meridians. However, recalling the evaluation given by the reincarnation tower, Qin Chen's lips twitched in reaction. His original intention was to use the blood-burning pill to attempt a breakthrough to the foundation establishment stage, even if he could not succeed. He hoped to accumulate more cultivation. Qin Chen felt a sense of helplessness. At that moment, he indeed wished to leverage the effects of the blood-burning pill to make a bid for the foundation establishment stage. Yet, he had forgotten that his lifespan was nearly depleted, and his vital energy had long since been exhausted. The blood-burning pill, without any vital energy to fuel it, was utterly futile. The moment the pill entered his mouth, it led to his demise. Nevertheless, this misfortune granted him a unique talent. Indeed, calamity can often be a source of fortune. With a thought, a translucent light screen appeared before him. Name: Qin Chen. Age: 18. Realm: Great perfection of Qi refinement. Cultivation techniques: Huanju, Chong Chun Gong. Magic treasures: none. Special talents: 7 times a night. Deceptive skills: indeed, the arduous cultivation of several decades from my previous life has been flawlessly preserved. Moreover, the newly acquired talent of deceptive skills is a remarkable boon. With this ability, future endeavors shall be significantly facilitated. At that moment, a soft gasp escaped Qin Chen's lips. As he circulated the spiritual energy within his body, he instinctively activated the Chong Chun Gong. The flow of spiritual energy was utterly seamless, devoid of any obscurity. Could it be that? As this thought crossed his mind, Qin Chen resumed his practice of Chong Chun Gong. Indeed, the spiritual energy within him surged like a river. And this smooth sensation was far beyond that of a novice practitioner of Chong Chun Gong. After a moment of contemplation, Qin Chen arrived at a realization. Although the technique could not be retained, my entire realm stems from the cultivation of Chong Chun Gong. Thus, resuming its practice now comes naturally. Enlightened by this understanding, Qin Chen felt an exhilarating thrill. The cultivation speed of Chong Chun Gong would increase with time. If so, could I not exploit this as a loophole? As he pondered, a voice resonated from outside the grand formation. You, take off your clothes and come here. Qin Chen looked up and met those familiar eyes. A blend of entangled reluctance and a hint of madness. He stepped out of the formation and approached Liu Hanbing. You are a cultivator? No. How are you absorbing the spiritual energy from my body? Content omitted. Afterward, Liu Hanbing glared at Qin Chen, seething with hatred. Just moments ago, Qin Chen had employed some unknown means to forcibly extract a significant amount of her spiritual energy, causing her to plummet from the peak of foundation establishment back to its early stage. Senior Sister Liu, it has been a while. Yet your legs are still the most memorable to me. You know me? Indeed, that was in a past life. If fate allows, we shall meet again in this life. With that, Qin Chen deftly snatched the pouch from Liu Hanbing and tucked it into his embrace. Senior Sister Liu, you have harmed your fellow disciples and unlawfully intercepted the furnace of the Yin Yang Hall. Each of these acts is a grave sin. What transpired today is known to heaven and earth, to you and me. Should you seek vengeance, the consequences could be quite severe. With those words, Qin Chen departed without a glance back. He had already lingered too long at Liu Hanbing's side. Any further delay would jeopardize his chance to board the flying vessel to the Yin Yang Hall, Feng. Subsequently, en route, Qin Chen picked up Peng Tong's identity token, managing to catch the vessel in time and successfully arriving at Feng. When Su Ruoli publicly announced the entry requirements for the 7-day Qi refinement, Qin Chen paid no heed, engrossed instead in admiring the elegance of Su Ruoli's beautiful legs. Su Ruoli's legs embodied a completely different allure from those of Liu Hanbing. Liu Hanbing's legs are long and straight, perfectly proportioned and taut, devoid of any excess flesh, resembling a work of art. In contrast, Su Ruoli's legs boast a fuller curve, embodying the ideal of having substance where it is necessary, neither excessive nor lacking. The two styles are distinctly different, each possessing its own merits. Sensing the malevolent gaze upon her, Su Ruoli let out a cold huff. After explaining the rules for entering, she gracefully swept away. Qin Chen, having indulged in the visual feast, contentedly entered the humble abode. This time, he had learned from the lessons of his past lives and refrained from vying for a bed. Instead, he chose to sit in meditation in the corner upon entering. Before long, another figure entered, furrowing his brow before approaching Qin Chen and sitting down on the floor. "May I inquire your esteemed name? I hope you will take care of me in the coming days," Qin Chen said with a respectful gesture. The person beside him was none other than the enigmatic and sinister man. In his previous life, Qin Chen had believed Su Miaoyan to be the purest of the celestial dragon lineage, as she was Su Ruoli's cousin. Even after Su Ruoli's failed breakthrough led to her demise, she left behind a considerable fortune for Su Ruoli. However, he later realized how mistaken he was, gravely so. After the ancient secret realm of Huasher City was revealed, exploration continued for decades, claiming the lives of countless cultivators. It was not until 50 years after the realm's emergence that a cultivator successfully exited, bringing with him an ancient cultivation technique. That individual was the sinister man before Qin Chen, Wang Teng. Only after Wang Teng successfully navigated the secret realm and gained renown did Qin Chen come to understand his true prowess. In a mere 50 years, he had already achieved the golden core stage and mastered several immensely powerful techniques. Upon exiting the secret realm, he was directly taken in as a true disciple by the sect leader, soaring to great heights. The sect leader had once remarked, "My disciple Wang Teng possesses the potential for immortality." Wang Teng is surrounded by numerous enigmas, naturally piquing Qin Chen's curiosity, leading him to desire a friendship. Yet, to his surprise, Wang Teng merely cast a fleeting glance at Qin Chen before resuming his cultivation, uttering not a single word throughout. How arrogant. "Just wait until the secret realm emerges. I shall seize your opportunities then," Qin Chen scoffed inwardly. In his previous life, countless individuals perished in pursuit of the Huasher City secret realm, compiling a series of exploration strategies. However, each strategy was worth several hundred contribution points, a sum beyond Qin Chen's means. It wasn't until 20 years later, when the secret realm had been thoroughly explored and the strategies lost their value, that Qin Chen finally gathered all his resources to purchase one such strategy. Armed with this knowledge, he was determined not to lead a life of mediocrity in this lifetime. When the time comes to seize Wang Teng's fortune, let's see if he can remain as composed as he is now. Chapter 28. 5 Spirit Stones? Are you mocking me? 7 days later, Su Ruoli arrived as promised. Qin Chen, utilizing his talent for deception, disguised himself as a first-layer Qi cultivator and successfully became an outer disciple of the Hahuan sect. After Su Ruoli departed, Qin Chen let out a quiet sigh. If all goes as expected, this should be the last time in this lifetime that I encounter Su Ruoli. A decade hence, she shall fail in her secluded meditation to achieve the golden core stage and, regrettably, perish. It is truly a pity for those long legs, Qin Chen mused. Liu Xian, as in the previous life, stated that everyone would have a day to tidy up their cave dwellings, with tasks to be assigned the following day. After Liu Xian departed, the others began to scramble for the cave abodes. Naturally, Qin Chen had no need to compete. The dilapidated cave he resided in during his last life was akin to a doghouse, unappealing to others. Stepping into the familiar, yet worn cave, Qin Chen was unexpectedly overwhelmed by a sense of nostalgia. After all, he had spent 80 years of his previous life here. Yet, he could not afford to indulge in sentimentality. Upon entering, he eagerly pushed aside the bedding and pried open a seemingly inconspicuous green brick on the ground. To his delight, he unearthed a piece of beast hide and 5 low-grade spirit stones. Taking a deep breath, Qin Chen carefully lifted the beast hide. Despite having achieved great mastery in Qi cultivation, he could scarcely contain the excitement bubbling within him. In his previous life, the secret realm guide he had painstakingly acquired had explicitly mentioned this item. To seize the grand opportunities within the secret realm, one must utilize this very object. Back then, Wang Teng had traded a piece of beast hide for an ancient cultivation technique. In this lifetime, to vie for the opportunities within the secret realm, preparations must commence immediately. Qin Chen's gaze intensified, weighing the spirit stones in his hand, pondering how much he would need to bribe Liu Xian. Based on his past experience, Liu Xian's deliberate delay in assigning tasks for a day was a tactic to solicit bribes. Those with connections, like Su Miaoyan and Wang Teng, would soon approach Liu Xian bearing gifts to avoid being assigned tasks, thereby allowing them to devote all their energies to cultivation. Time was of the essence. There were a mere 20 days until news of the ancient secret realm reached the sect, and during this period, he must swiftly enhance his own strength. With this thought, he pocketed the spirit stones and, under the cover of night, made his way directly to Liu Xian's cave. Knock, knock, knock. Come in. Qin Chen cautiously pushed the door open, and there sat Liu Xian, neatly attired, poised at the reception table. 2 cups of steaming tea were already on the table, clearly prepared in advance. Oh, you are Qin Chen, correct? Upon seeing him, a flicker of surprise crossed Liu Xian's eyes. It was known that those with connections among the disciples had been quietly informed prior to their entrance, and Qin Chen had not been among them. However, judging by his demeanor, he seemed no ordinary individual, as common disciples would not comprehend the etiquette of gift-giving. With this realization, a smile graced Liu Xian's face as she gestured to a nearby seat. Is there something you wish to discuss, junior brother Qin, visiting at such a late hour? Senior Sister Liu, if you would be so kind, I do indeed have a request. Since my youth, I have been frail and weak, unable to bear burdens or carry heavy items. There are certain tasks that, regrettably, I find myself unable to perform. I ask for your understanding. As Qin Chen spoke, he discreetly placed 5 spirit stones on the table. Upon meeting Sister Liu for the first time, he felt an overwhelming sense of warmth. These stones were a token of his goodwill, a humble invitation for her to share a cup of tea, hoping she would not find it lacking. Liu Xian's expression turned quizzical. Is my junior brother jesting with me? She thought, her brows furrowing in disbelief. Her initial assessment was entirely misguided. Qin Chen had not come to present a gift, but rather to humiliate her. 5 mere spirit stones. Please take them back, junior brother, should others see this. They might think I am soliciting bribes, she retorted coldly. To her, such a trifling amount was an insult. Accepting it would leave her feeling nauseous throughout the night. Unfazed, Qin Chen maintained his composure and replied confidently, Sister Liu, these 5 spirit stones are merely a token of my sincerity. I have the means to secure 100 contribution points for you within the next month. He had anticipated that 5 spirit stones would not satiate Liu Xian's appetite. If he wished to offload the task, he had no choice but to paint a grand vision for her. Clearly, this tactic proved effective. 100 contribution points? Initially, Liu Xian considered kicking Qin Chen out, but his words made her hesitate. After all, even the favored connections of Su Miaoyun only yielded 50 contribution points. If Qin Chen could indeed deliver 100, it would be a significant gain. More importantly, she would incur no costs. A win-win situation. Sister Liu, when I say 100 contribution points, I mean exactly that. Qin Chen pressed on. I will be working under your guidance. How could I possibly deceive you? Liu Xian tapped her fingers on the table, contemplating his apparent earnestness. Since you show such sincerity, I shall not be heartless. Given your health condition, I will refrain from assigning you tasks for the time being. However, her tone shifted abruptly, but you must understand, deceiving me is the one thing I cannot abide. Instantly, Qin Chen rose, clasped his hands, and assured her, rest assured, sister, if I fail to secure 100 contribution points within a month, I will present my head to you. Huh, what a gruesome notion, too bloody for my taste, she replied, unable to comprehend his words. Well, it's getting late. With a hint of dismissal in her demeanor, Qin Chen understood it was time to take his leave. Upon returning to his cave dwelling, Qin Chen exhaled in relief. Only 20 days remained until the ancient relics emerged into the world, a prime opportunity for him to exploit the information gap and significantly inflate prices. In his previous life, he had spent countless days in the refining hall, memorizing the price trends of Firestone mines, ensuring he would not fall prey like Liu Yuan. Next, he needed to cultivate a powerful and aggressive martial art before their departure. His gaze sharpened with determination. The ancient relics would undoubtedly be fraught with peril. While the Changchun technique was commendable, it lacked combat efficacy, and entering with such a skill would be tantamount to courting death. Thus, it was imperative that he mastered a formidable technique beforehand. According to the timeline, he would meet Zhong Yu and others at the Foreign Affairs Hall 2 days hence. And after preparing for 3 days, he would set off for Huasher City. Tom was not on his side. The following morning, upon entering, he once again encountered Elder Li of the transmission hall, his beard all white. Elder Li remained leisurely, one hand cradling a shiny walnut while the other held a purple clay teapot. Greetings, Elder. Qin Chen stepped forward, bowing respectfully. What is it? Elder Li did not lift his eyelids, the walnut in his hand making a soft clicking sound as he turned it. Elder, I seek a martial art. Newly initiated. Are you? Before Qin Chen could finish his sentence, he was interrupted by Elder Li. Choose your own martial art. Remember, outer disciples may only select from the first tier. To purchase your first martial art, you need to contribute just 1 point. With that, Elder Li waved his hand dismissively, indicating that Qin Chen should not disturb him. Qin Chen smiled bitterly to himself. In his previous life, he had nearly perused all the martial arts in the first tier, yet he found none that suited his needs. May I inquire, Elder, Does the sect possess any martial arts of particularly great power and lethality? As long as the effects are strong and easy to grasp, I can accept significant costs, whether it be lifespan consumption or the burning of vital essence. Elderly, still swallowing his tea, nearly spat it out upon hearing Qin Chen's request. What did you say you wanted? He asked, eyes wide with incredulity. The Huan sect was a demonic sect. He had seen disciples who were violent and ruthless, bloodthirsty to the core, and cunningly treacherous, but never had he encountered someone so foolish. To rush into seeking such dark arts right after entering the sect, it was as if he were eager to reincarnate. The transmission hall was vast, housing martial arts as numerous as the stars, and the type Qin Chen sought was certainly among them. Elderly begrudgingly swallowed his tea, his tone dripping with disdain. But you must understand, such martial arts usually come with a hefty price. The lightest consequence may ruin your foundation and limit your future achievements, while the gravest could significantly shorten your lifespan. I fear you might have the means to cultivate, but lack the life to enjoy it. Upon hearing this, Qin Chen was overjoyed. Truly, a grand sect possessed such martial arts. I implore you, elder, to provide me with one, the stronger the better. His eyes sparkled with excitement. Seeing Qin Chen's expression, which appeared genuine, Elderly fell silent for a long moment before finally pointing to a row of bookshelves behind him. The martial arts here are precisely of the type you seek: great power, strong effects, rapid results. The only issue is the enormous cost. Even in the Huan sect, disciples seldom practice them. Gazing at the dozens of martial arts on the shelves, Qin Chen's eyes glimmered like a starving wolf. No wonder he and T discovered such arts in his previous life. They were likely hidden away to prevent disciples from straying down a perilous path. After a moment of contemplation, he finally understood why he had not encountered martial arts with similar effects before. Thank you for your guidance, Elder. Qin Chen clasped his hands and eagerly approached the bookshelf to inspect it. The 7 emotions devouring heart seed entails planting a demonic seed within the heart, nurturing it with the bloodline power of one's closest kin, resulting in a cultivation speed far surpassing that of ordinary individuals. The cursed bone technique employs a unique method to inscribe spiritual energy formations upon one's bones, enhancing the absorption rate of celestial essence, albeit at the cost of one's bones and blood. Within 50 years, the entire skeletal structure would be rendered utterly compromised. The 9 Hells transformation scripture consists of 9 tiers of mastery, with each breakthrough necessitating the ordeal of demonic tribulation, wherein one's bones and flesh must be shattered and reconstituted. A perilous endeavor, fraught with danger, where a single misstep could lead to irreparable ruin. He chuckled. You youngsters are simply too ambitious, daring to contemplate the cultivation of such techniques. Now, do you see the consequences? Each of these methods demands an exorbitant price. I advise you to seek a more conventional technique for your cultivation. Observing the solemn expression on Qin Chen's face, Elderly began to counsel him. However, to his surprise, as Qin Chen cautiously set down the technique he held, his grave demeanor gradually transformed into one of exhilaration, his eyes gleaming as if he had discovered a rare treasure. Who could have imagined that the Hall of Transmission houses such techniques? I have truly squandered my previous existence, Qin Chen exclaimed, smiting his thigh in regret. If only he had encountered these techniques in his past life. Beside him, Elderly, witnessing Qin Chen's uncontainable joy, swallowed back the advice he had almost uttered. Alas, another one driven mad, he thought, reclining back into his chair, choosing to ignore Qin Chen. If one seeks their own demise, they have no one to blame but themselves. After perusing the techniques on the shelf, Qin Chen hesitated momentarily before finally lifting a shadowy jade slip. The blood-burning soul technique ignites the soul fire within the Dantian, using one's essence blood as fuel for the flames. If the fire extinguishes, the individual perishes. During the period of the soul fire's ignition, the circulation speed of spiritual energy within the meridians increases at least threefold, and in moments of peril, one can even burn the essence of their soul, unleashing power far beyond their current realm. Wonderful. This demonic technique seems tailor-made for me. Who else could wield it? Qin Chen declared, presenting the jade slip to Elderly. Elder, I wish to acquire this one. Upon glancing at the name inscribed on the jade slip, Elderly shook his head and sighed. Alas, if you pursue this technique, your vital essence will be perpetually consumed. In no less than 10 years, or at most 20, your life force will be exhausted, leading to your demise. Are you truly resolved to cultivate this technique? Qin Chen looked at Elder Li with a hint of astonishment. This is a technique that devours its user. How has this elder remained so pure-hearted to survive until now? Nonetheless, my decision is made, Qin Chen stated solemnly. Very well, it is futile to advise the damned. Elderly relented, deducting 1 contribution point from Qin Chen's identity token and tossing the jade slip back to him. Qin Chen bowed in gratitude and departed in high spirits. Upon returning to his abode, he could hardly contain his eagerness to begin his cultivation of the blood-burning soul technique. To speak candidly, the techniques within the demon sect are rather sinister. Take, for instance, the introductory technique known as the harmony art, which contains numerous methods that involve cultivation through a furnace. In comparison to orthodox methods, it undoubtedly qualifies as demonic practice. The blood-burning soul ignition technique has been concealed within the transmission hall to prevent newly initiated disciples from mistakenly practicing it. This technique can genuinely be regarded as the epitome of demonic arts. According to the description of this technique, igniting the soul fire within the dantian necessitates complete reliance on one's blood essence, infiltrating the dantian without the aid of spiritual power, followed by the application of secret methods to ignite it. At that moment, the energy generated by the burning blood essence will invigorate the dantian, significantly enhancing the flow of spiritual power within the meridians. When the soul fire extinguishes, the dantian will be destroyed alongside it, leading to the cultivator's demise. One can only marvel at the ingenuity of the individual who conceived this technique, capable of devising a method to infiltrate the dantian with blood essence. Truly a genius. Qin Chen couldn't help but exclaim in astonishment. The effects and name of this technique bear a striking resemblance to the blood-burning pill. Perhaps the blood-burning pill was inspired by this very technique. After a brief interval, Qin Chen successfully ignited the soul fire within his dantian. Upon the instant the soul fire ignited, he felt as though he had been pierced by a searing iron rod, causing him to curl up and tumble from his bed. Within mere moments, cold sweat drenched his entire body. The agony surged from the depths of his soul, gradually consuming Qin Chen's consciousness like a relentless tide. The technique did not forewarn of such excruciating pain associated with igniting the soul fire. Qin Chen grimaced in agony. After enduring the pain, he finally comprehended that this torment was the fundamental suffering of the dantian being scorched by the soul fire. After gasping for breath for an extended period, he managed to endure the pain long enough to change into a clean outfit and hurriedly stepped outside. Noon had arrived, and Liu Xian was about to assign tasks. In the open area, nearly everyone stood with their heads bowed, awaiting Liu Xian's instructions. It seemed he had not arrived late. Qin Chen breathed a sigh of relief and discreetly positioned himself at the back of the crowd. Soon, Liu Xian appeared, distributing various tasks for the Yifeng. Thanks to the transaction from the previous night, Qin Chen naturally received no assignments. Observing the expressions of those disciples who had been assigned tasks, filled with frustration yet unable to voice their discontent, Qin Chen couldn't help but smile wryly. In his previous life, he had cursed Su Miaoyun and others when assigned tasks. Now, in this life, he too had become a member of the Celestial Dragon. Truly, the affairs of the world are unpredictable. After Liu Xian announced the dismissal, just as Qin Chen intended to sneak back to his quarters for a breather, a figure blocked his path. You are Qin Chen, correct? Whose man are you? Su Miaoyun inquired, her brow furrowed, her gaze filled with scrutiny. Chapter 30. Those who understand will naturally comprehend. Su Miaoyun was filled with confusion. She had already gathered information about the other disciples who entered at the same time through Su Ruoli. Aside from the perpetually cold-faced Wang Tong, she was well aware of everyone's background. If memory served correctly, Qin Chen was nothing more than an utterly ordinary disciple. Yet, such an individual remarkably remains unburdened by the toil of assigned tasks. It seems that Qin Chen must have sought out Liu Xian last night, driven by an insatiable curiosity. She could not restrain herself and directly intercepted Qin Chen. Wang Tong, who initially intended to depart, paused upon witnessing this scene, crossing his arms in anticipation. Seemingly intrigued by Qin Chen's origins, this action nearly triggered Qin Chen's passive response. However, recalling that Su Miaoyun was Su Ruoli's cousin, he restrained himself from inquiring about her mother's well-being and suppressing his desire to express a wish for a closer relationship. Who I am is of no concern to you, Qin Chen remarked coolly. Su Miaoyun, hands on her hips, adopted a defiant stance. I am Su Ruoli's cousin. If you wish to navigate through Yifeng, I advise you to speak more courteously. Qin Chen chuckled softly, beckoning Su Miaoyun with a finger. As she approached cautiously, he lowered his voice to a hushed whisper, audible only to the two of them. My identity is somewhat intricate to elucidate. If you were to inquire about my background, it is neither overly grand nor particularly insignificant. To articulate it succinctly, the situation is as it stands. The rationale is as it is. You need only comprehend this. Do not speculate recklessly about my identity. I can only assert that those who understand will grasp it, and those who do not will remain oblivious. The essence lies in your own contemplation. Do you comprehend? Having conveyed this in one breath, Qin Chen exchanged a knowing glance with Su Miaoyun before swiftly departing, leaving her in a state of bewilderment. Moments later, Wang Tong approached with a furrowed brow. What did he say to you? He pondered, questioning whether he had underestimated the young man's stature. It was inconceivable that, given Su Miaoyun's standing, she would be so taken aback. He mentioned that the depths of this matter are profound and urged me to ponder it carefully. Su Miaoyun replied, still dazed. She sensed that Qin Chen had spoken extensively, yet conveyed little. Was it truly necessary to reflect on it further? A frown creased her forehead. An instinctive feeling that something was amiss. The audacity to assert such depth in front of Su Miaoyun indicated that this individual's origins were indeed extraordinary. Wang Tong appeared to grasp the implications, wearing an expression of dawning realization. 2 days later, Qin Chen, timing his departure meticulously, set out for the outer affairs hall at dawn, boarding a public airship. After lingering inside the hall for what felt like an eternity, he finally encountered Zhong Yu and his companions. Standing apart from the crowd, Qin Chen focused intently on the lower-tier tasks scrolling across the luminous screen, while his peripheral vision remained fixed on Zhong Yu and his associates. Indeed, his demeanor of feigned naivety instantly caught their attention. Dear Junior, you must have recently joined the Huan Sect, correct? Zhong Yu inquired with a warm smile. As in the previous life, Zhong Yu first presented his identification token, introducing several individuals to gain Qin Chen's trust, before proposing to embark on a mission together. Qin Chen feigned ignorance and attempted to decline several times, but eventually, after Zhong Yu dangled the bait of contribution points, he pretended to be persuaded and agreed. Of course, in this life, he still used Peng Tong's identification token. Junior brother Peng indeed possesses remarkable resolve. Fear not, with my presence, I assure you a safe return. Zhong Yu remarked affectionately, patting Qin Chen on the shoulder. 3 days hence, at the hour of the snake, we shall gather at the entrance of the Foreign Affairs Hall. A flying vessel awaits, directly leading beyond the sect. Then I must trouble Brother Zhong and the 2 sisters. Qin Chen responded, feigning astonishment as he cupped his hands in gratitude. Once Qin Chen departed, the warmth on Zhong Yu's face swiftly transformed into a sneer. It appears fortune smiles upon us. We have stumbled upon a plump sheep. Brother, your keen insight has discerned this individual is merely a novice disciple. It seems we shall earn ourselves several contribution points once more. Shi Yujie chimed in with a smile. However, Tong Tingting furrowed her brows, a feeling of unease gnawing at her. Brother Zhong, I cannot shake the sense of foreboding. My sixth sense has rarely misled me. This task may harbor unforeseen complications. Zhong Yu cast a dismissive glance at Tong Tingting. What unease? It is merely a flaw in your cultivation. A couple of heart-soothing pills will suffice to remedy that. Upon hearing this, Tong Tingting awkwardly closed her mouth, refraining from further comment. Upon reaching Blackstone City, let us not be hasty in eliminating him, for the Silver Moon Wolf is cunning. We shall require this person's cooperation to draw it out. Zhong Yu said with a cold smile. Yet, once the Silver Moon Wolf is lured forth, employing some means to eliminate that brat will be effortless. We shall report to the law enforcement hall that he met with misfortune while on a mission. Such schemes had become second nature to them, executed flawlessly every time without a hitch. The disciples chosen by Zhong Yu were all fresh initiates, their minds untainted by the treachery inherent in the demonic sect, rendering them unsuspecting. Coupled with the allure of profit, ensnaring them was remarkably simple. From Qin Chen's demeanor today, he appeared rather naive as well. With this thought, Zhong Yu smirked wickedly. Once this affair concludes, not only would they secure the rewards for the deacon's tasks, but the boy's very essence could fetch a handsome price. Especially as the market for spirit power furnace cauldrons remains perpetually high. The 2 women smiled knowingly, aware that with Brother Zhong's intervention, success was all but guaranteed. In the following 3 days, Qin Chen secluded himself, diligently honing the blood-burning soul incantation. It was not until the appointed day that he quietly emerged, making his way to the Foreign Affairs Hall. As the flying vessel touched down, Zhong Yu and his companions swiftly approached. Junior brother Peng, you are indeed trustworthy. If all is in order, we shall depart now. The flying vessel awaits, Zhong Yu remarked, gesturing towards the massive craft not far away. In contrast to the public vessels within the sect, this flying vessel was not only larger, but also exhibited an ethereal flow of spiritual energy, clearly engraved with numerous formations. Junior brother, this is the Xianshao ferry of our sect, worth over 10 million spirit stones. It is equipped with 9 acceleration formations, 5 defensive formations, and 3 offensive formations, truly luxurious, capable of accommodating 300 passengers. Moreover, there is a formidable being of the transformation stage aboard, ensuring the vessel's safety. Such a high-end flying boat requires merely 2 contribution points for a single journey, which can be considered a benefit of the sect. 2 contribution points. Qin Chen displayed an expression of astonishment, as I had assumed it was complimentary. Senior brother, having just joined the sect, I possess little in terms of savings. A round trip would cost 4 contribution points. Perhaps it would be best if I refrained from going? Qin Chen feigned a retreat. Upon hearing Qin Chen's words, Zhong Yu cursed under his breath. How could I have miscalculated so terribly, encountering a miser who is unwilling to part with even 4 contribution points? Normally, he would have slapped him across the face by now. However, this time, he needed to use Qin Chen as bait. Before luring out the Silver Moon Wolf, he had to keep Qin Chen placated to avoid raising his suspicions. Suppressing his irritation, he forced a strained smile. Junior brother, it would be inappropriate for you to pay for the ticket while accompanying us on a mission. Naturally, I shall cover the travel expenses. Reluctantly, he produced the fare and led several individuals onto the flying boat. Just a little longer, let you enjoy yourself for a few more days. Once the Silver Moon Wolf is lured out, it will be your demise. Glaring at Qin Chen's retreating figure, Zhong Yu gritted his teeth in frustration.